recognized symbol of excellence.
The WWF, what the world is watching.
Turn it on and rip the knob off.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Now at episode 122, and it is time, everybody, for the WrestleMania IV review. And welcome back to the program. I am your host, Ray Russell, going to take you through WrestleMania IV Part 1 here this week. Going to go back in time, take a look at that giant 20-man over-the-top rope battle royal. All 6 first-round matches as part of the WWF Championship Tournament. And then the Ultimate Warrior collides with the mighty Hercules in the Battle of the Century, or at least the Battle of March 27th, 1988, guys. We're going to talk about all of that and so much more here this week. Going to jump into things of course, Part 1. We're also going to take a deep dive back and look at everything going into WrestleMania 4. What set it up? What was going on behind the scenes the day of and all of that fun stuff. And of course, as promised, going to have at least a couple of guests join the show here this week to talk about their memories of WrestleMania 4, including one Jammie Ward, who was at the event himself. First-hand experiences from one Jammie Ward, so stay tuned for that. But first, guys, just a quick reminder that you can listen to shows like the Wrestling Memory Grenade and our sister shows like the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Coming soon, it's the Pro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Pro Race himself, Mr. Dan Giannetti, and of course, be sure to check out Barry Rose and Captain Nick Massey and their Glory Days Grapple Concast, where they give you all the latest up-to-date information on the upcoming Glory Days Grapple Con taking place Orlando, Florida, April the 20th. Also, Nick and Barry continue to share their past memories in professional wrestling, and of course, you never know who the special guest is going to be from week to week there. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And hey, while you're at it, why not subscribe to my social media, guys? You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade? All sorts of good stuff there on my YouTube. Subscribe today. And last but most definitely not least, now would be a phenomenal time to become a WrestleCopia patron. And you can find me over there at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Talking about that $5 all access tier, guys. Get you so many gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed book-like show notes, pages and pages of show notes for every episode of the Regional Wrestling Podcast, Monday Warfare, and this right here, the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Check out my show notes here for WrestleMania 4. Pages and pages, I promise you. You guys will also get early access to many of the podcasts here on WrestleCopia, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. Then from there, it's remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show, covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all. You also get digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, random bonus video drops, and of course, our Patreon exclusive watch-along series, covering many past WWF and WCW events, and you get all of that for the low, low price of just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime, give it a try for a month. I think you'll like all the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here. Your support to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the great shows here up and running for the months and the years to come. And we can certainly use your help. The web hosting fees, the podcast hosting fees, the annual editing software bills, they pile up on me. So if you truly support the brand, you really want to help out, keep this thing going, I'd greatly appreciate your support by joining patreon.com/WrestleCopia. But enough of that for now. Going to get all of that out of the way in order to jump into things here this week. As promised, it is WrestleMania IV, Part 1.
The WWF, what the world is watching.
All right, guys, no turning back now. Away we go. The time for talking is done. All of the hype, all of the build, all of the anticipation is boiling over, and it all comes to a head right here, right now. It's WrestleMania! WrestleMania IV, Sunday, March 27th, with a 4 p.m. Eastern start time, live on pay-per-view and closed-circuit television. Atlantic City, New Jersey, guys, reportedly at Trump Plaza. More on that in just a little bit. But a sold-out crowd here. Now, depending on who you want to believe, it could have been 19,199 fans, or according to The Observer, 18,165 fans with a paid attendance of 17,000. So just a little over 1,000 comp there to the high rollers around ringside. And for those not in the know, what's a high roller, Ray? Well, people that like to spend a whole lot of money at the casino. Donald Trump buying up the closest seats to the ring, which will become abundantly clear as the pay-per-view gets rolling, and gifting them to his high rollers out there. Got to keep the money spenders happy. And here's the first thing, guys. Remember I said Trump Plaza, that's the way they've been building it for the last couple months on TV. Well, the first thing to blow your mind here on the WrestleMania IV review is that the pay-per-view itself, WrestleMania, live at Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino, was not held at Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino because, believe it or not, Trump Plaza was not an arena venue. It was a hotel and casino. But rather, WrestleMania IV was indeed held at Atlantic City's Convention Hall, aka Boardwalk Hall, though Donald Trump's nearby Trump Plaza was the main sponsor of the event, and thus it was promoted for the event. And this place, Convention Hall, it had already stood the test of time by 1988 here at WrestleMania IV. It was actually named a National Historic Landmark the year before in 1987. That's how long this building had been around, hosting a variety of musical performances over the years, from the Beatles on their very first U.S. tour to the Rolling Stones, from The Who to the Boss, Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, Bon Jovi, you name it, they played there. This venue also marked the site of at least 4 of Mike Tyson's world title defenses back in the 1980s, including one shortly before this in January of 88 over Larry Holmes, and then he's going to defend it again later in June of 88 here against the, at the time, undefeated Michael Spinks. Wow, 2 title defenses in 6 months. Different times, people. Cooler times, if you ask me. But now this venue also hosted a ton of other fights, including the Evander Holyfield-George Foreman bout in 1991. It's even hosted UFC events, and most recently, AEW even been to Convention Hall. And according to Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, the WWF brought everything you see here in this venue, all of the lighting, everything. It was just a bare bones building when the WWF got there the week prior. And it certainly had a unique look for a wrestling event. Let's talk about the venue a little bit here. As according to Bruce, they turned chicken shit into chicken helper. Let's face it here. It's not the greatest look of all time, but certainly unique, and I'm not going to complain. I enjoyed it the first time I saw it. And some of the overhead shots look really cool when we see them on camera, but in others, you can tell the venue for what it is, a a glorified event center, event hall, if you will. And a lot of people ask, so why the convention center? Why Atlantic City, which was at the time a wannabe East Coast version of Las Vegas? Well, after kicking off in the Garden in 1985 and topping Jim Crockett, who was doing 2 arena simulcasts for Starrcade, they go with 3 cities at WrestleMania 2, obviously. And then, of course, the attendance record at WrestleMania 3. But WrestleMania 4, quite the enigma in and of itself, and in many ways, a bought show by Donald Trump. A lot of the floor seats comped out to those high rollers, the gamblers, and a way to get Donald's public perception over as an all-around good guy. So that someday, maybe, he could do things like make a cameo on Home Alone 2, host the Celebrity Apprentice, and that whole being president thing as well. Nevertheless, WrestleMania 4 confirmed, sold out weeks in advance, and thus for the last few weeks on TV, they've pushed hard for pay-per-view and closed-circuit TV. And just a couple of those closed-circuit locations, one being Madison Square Garden in New York City, another being the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, straight into NWA country and one of their main buildings. Another shot fired by Vince McMahon. And we'll talk about shots fired here. Let's do it right now. After the Thanksgiving fiasco with Survivor Series versus Starrcade, remember the pay-per-view company said, you're never going to do this to us again. If you ever try to both pull this, put a pay-per-view on the same day again, we're not going to air either one of them. Now, I don't know how true that would have been, but they weren't going to take the gamble. And thus, Vince got cute as Jim Crockett returned to pay-per-view in January with his Bunkhouse Stampede event. Vince went head-to-head with him live and free on the USA Network with the very first Royal Rumble. So Vince continuing to attack Jim Crockett Promotions. But finally here, Crockett gonna fire back, promoting the first ever Clash of the Champions live on basic cable TV, TBS, the Superstation. Ric Flair versus Sting for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Bet Vince didn't see that coming. And the Clash, it did not only take place March 27th, the very same day as WrestleMania, but it also went head-to-head at the same time as WrestleMania for about 2.5 hours. So take that, Vince. You got to figure it had to cost Vince McMahon at least some cash from people who were on the fence about getting the pay-per-view. I could see parents also telling their kids, well, watch this one, honey. It's free. Save a couple bucks there. But this WrestleMania also marks the first Mania to be sold as a 4-hour event. Remember, WrestleMania 3 just went a little over 3 hours, as did WrestleMania 2. So we're expanding here, guys, the time slot of the big WrestleMania pay-per-view, given 4-hour window here on pay-per-view and closed-circuit TV. But very interesting. Jim Crockett says, if you can do it, Vince, I can do it too, running the very first Clash of the Champions up against WrestleMania 4, and that won't be the last time we see that happen. But the main selling point here of WrestleMania, of course, the big 14-man single elimination battle royal for the vacant WWF Championship. And this story actually began all the way back at WrestleMania 3, if you think about it. The near pinfall by Andre the Giant, proclaiming himself to be the uncrowned champion for the rest of 1987. Andre returns and survives at the Survivor Series, demands another title shot with Hulk Hogan. Enter Ted DiBiase, who also tries to purchase the WWF title, to which Hulk Hogan responded,
Hell no!
Hell no, brother! So Ted DiBiase, he finds a backup plan and purchases the services of one Andre the Giant, leading us to February 5, the main event. Andre the Giant defeating Hulk Hogan with the help of twin Hebners.
How much money did the plastic surgery cost, man?
You guys remember the old twin Hebners ordeal? Well, by WrestleMania here, we're kind of ignoring that now. It's just that a referee was paid off. Nevertheless, Andre the Giant was indeed announced the WWF champion, and there was nothing President Jack Tunney could do about it. However, when Andre surrendered the title to Ted DiBiase, sold the belt to the $1 Million Man, somewhere in those WWF rulebooks says you can't do that. You can't buy the WWF Championship, Ted DiBiase. So as he turns the belt over to Ted, President Jack Tunney stripping DiBiase of the championship and holding it up pending this 14-man single elimination tournament. Now, I know what some of you are asking out there. Shouldn't DiBiase have top-level attorneys who read the bylaws in advance? Shouldn't he have known he couldn't purchase the championship? Plus, couldn't they find a loophole in Andre surrendering the title? Since he did refer to it as the tag team title, after all. Man, I should have been Ted Sawyer. Nevertheless, a new champion to be crowned here tonight at WrestleMania, with Hulk and Andre drawing buys into the quarterfinals against each other. And I gotta ask, if they're the last two champions and the number 1 and number 2 seeds, so to speak, why is the bye against each other in the quarterfinals rather than in opposite brackets? Plus, Andre getting a bye, even though he cheated to win? It is Jack Tunney after all, and the decision is final. Hulk and Andre to kick off the quarterfinals. Now, in regards to promoting the pay-per-view in advance, Bruce Pritchard has talked about sending out pressers that mentioned a few months in advance, going all the way back to the fall of 1987, that WrestleMania IV would be for the vacant WWF Championship, alluding to a Hulk-Andre debacle leading in to the pay-per-view. Bruce said he knew it was breaking kayfabe royally, and he was a little against it, but it was business and it needed to be done in order for the proper advertising to be put out and this show to be sold. Big business, pal. And interestingly enough, at least until the last couple weeks leading in, the Macho Man not really promoted super hard for this tournament, just another one of the big names involved, though in the final weeks leading in, there was a lot more leading on the Macho Man squashes, more promos, factoring Elizabeth in as his inspiration, And we discussed the story already, but just a quick refresher here. Remember, all the way back to the main event, it was supposed to be Randy Savage recapturing the IC title from the Honky Tonk Man, but they get to the show and Honky says, that ain't going to happen, brother, not in front of 33 million fans watching at home. You're not burying me here. I'll do the job when the time is right, but the time is not tonight. And thus kind of screwed up everything because Savage had already been promised a championship belt. But so had the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. The rumor was that DiBiase was going to take it to the finals against the WWF champion Hulk Hogan, which could have happened had you guys look at the original bracket for WrestleMania IV. DiBiase at the bottom of the brackets and Hogan at the top, of course. And the story goes, according to Teddy, that he was supposed to go over Hogan by disqualification. Talk about a fart in church. In the finals of the championship tournament at WrestleMania, initially crowning DiBiase, the new WWF champion, and he was thus going to drop the belt back to the Hulkster when he returned from making movies at the end of the summer. Now, all of that changed thanks to the Honky Tonk Man, who refused to drop the IC title, and Randy Savage, a trooper here in the company since 1985. Vince wanted to keep his word, and thus he pivoted. He flip-flopped the bracket around a little bit, and clearly some shenanigans were going on there, as Randy Savage now promised a different title belt. You guys know where I'm going with that. And thus leaving Ted DiBiase out in the cold. And we'll touch on that more when we get there later in the WrestleMania review. But let's also remember in the March news edition of the Wrestling Memory Grenade show that a recent WWF magazine, there was a spread on the Macho Man's manager, the lovely Elizabeth. And in that, a caption read, Elizabeth was managing the new WWF champion. Was it a typo, a red herring, or an oversight? We'll have to wait and see. Now, WrestleMania also known for some of its celebrities in past years, and this year no different, as Mr. Baseball Bob Uecker will return, guest ring announcer once again here this year, and everything else, color commentator, backstage interviewer, jack of all trades, and I sure ain't complaining. We also know that Wheel of Fortune's Vanna White going to be here as the guest timekeeper for the main event, and she'll monitor the tournament brackets with Mean Gene as well. Sort of a throwback to the Wrestling Classic pay-per-view there. Just a week or two ago on TV, it was announced that Gladys Knight and her Pips were here, reportedly, to sing America the Beautiful. Now, we will see Gladys Knight appear, but her Pips, that's another story. And, of course, Robin Leach of the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous here, going to be the presenter of the WWF Championship Gold to the winner of the tournament. And WrestleMania IV also marked the very first ever WWF Fan Fest. Before the pay-per-view event, we'll see clips of autograph signings, a 5K run on the boardwalk, fans meeting with some of their favorite wrestlers, and Bruce Pritchard said this was done after realizing all the money that they were losing due to the tailgating that was going on outside the building at WrestleMania 3. So let's give these people something to do before the show, was the thought going into this Fan Fest, if you will. And let's talk about the Coliseum video version of WrestleMania before we get going. By this point, we were accustomed to a whole lot of editing to fit in those 3-hour WWF events on a 2-hour VHS tape. But with WrestleMania 4 being sold as a 2-tape set, they were essentially able to keep the entire show, minus intermission, intact, and even add some bonus Coliseum exclusives with Craig DeGeorge. So this may be the only WWF pay-per-view to be released pretty much complete until the latter half of 1989. And before we get rolling with the show, just a fun story I want to share with everyone out there. I want to go back in time for anybody who knew the struggle of getting to the local video store to rent out some of your favorite wrestling tapes. This story actually going to take me back to a Blockbuster video back in the day, WrestleMania IV, the dual cassette box. You open it up, and in the middle, there's a head, Hulk Hogan's body in the middle of the tape set, and his head would pop up out of the middle there, kind of like a children's pop-up book. Hulk Hogan's head would pop up out of the boxes when you opened it up. Well, the fun story here is we would always go to Blockbuster, and of course, I would rent WrestleMania IV from time to time, but also in between various other wrestling videos. But every time I went, I always wanted to open up the tape set and kind of present the box to other people walking through. Hey, maybe I'll do the WWF a solid and get a rental out of WrestleMania IV by making it look pretty. But the problem was it had been opened and closed so many times and screwed with so many times that Hulk's head, it just kind of hung there. And you could tell somebody at some point had tried to tape his head back up, but it just wasn't working. Floppy-headed Hulk Hogan inside that VHS tape. So anybody who still has this video and a working Hulk head, kudos to you. As it is finally time, guys, we're going to roll on now. The WWF presents WrestleMania IV. And we are live, March 27th, 1988, 4 p.m. Eastern, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Trump Plaza. And since I mentioned the Coliseum video and the exclusives being part of this event, this is a great time to talk the different openings from the home video and the original live broadcast of the event. Very different, as the Coliseum video version actually presents a full, quote-unquote, WrestleMania IV intro video, complete with random shots of Atlantic City-type things mixed in with the wrestlers preparing for the event. Like, well, I'm going to take heat for this, but as a kid, when I saw the dock here at Atlantic City at this time of year, it wasn't really pretty. It wasn't really flattering to me, but from there, Coliseum video intro, the arena from Gorilla and Jesse Ventura welcoming us, an exclusive welcome to WrestleMania IV, the videotape, as Gorilla informs us of more exclusive bonus material that will air throughout the video cassette, hosted by, who else but Greg DeGeorge. Gorilla's never going to get his name right. And of course, it's WrestleMania, folks, which can only mean two things. Well, it can mean a lot of things, but one, you can best believe Jesse Ventura is pumped up. And Gorilla Monsoon referring to this pay-per-view as a happening. As they then cut to Craig DeGeorge, hosting the 5K run event on the boardwalk the day prior. Of course, it's frickin' March in New Jersey, guys, so the weather, not ideal for a frickin' 5K run, or however long the run really was. They literally air a lady on tape here complaining about the windy, cold weather, but she also questions her finish time in the race. She said they were off by maybe a minute. I still have no idea how this interview made air. Obviously, the entire idea, it didn't cost much money to slap together a 5K run across the public boardwalk. Doesn't seem to be very thought out, though. Right? March in New Jersey? I don't know. We also see brief clips of the Fan Fest activities around town. Wrestlers signing some autographs, maybe taking a couple pictures. But the funniest part of the Coliseum footage here, Craig DeGeorge, who has apparently lost his voice, and yet he's still used here in all of the bonus segments, sounding hoarse as he can be. Now, in interviews since that time, Craig DeGeorge, Craig Minervini, his real name, he's done some interviews in recent years and actually blamed the weather during that 5K run for losing his voice. The Craiger here also going to promote WrestleMania is airing in 35 countries. Wow. Including the country of Africa, guys. Okay. Well, I guess if Pluto can be downgraded from being a planet, I suppose Africa can be downgraded to a country. Maybe. I'm not sure. But with the Coliseum exclusive intro running down, we go off now to the actual pay-per-view intro. And it's WrestleMania IV. And right away, a brand new intro and slogan for the WWF. No longer the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment, but rather
the WWF, what the world is watching.
The WWF, what the world is watching. It's going to take some getting used to. Now, I loved it as a kid, but after going through 1987 week by week, I'm really stuck on the old intro at this point. So it may take me a little getting used to, but I'm here for it. And then we're straight into the pay-per-view intro. We see a slot machine on the screen, slot lever pulled, and we roll all cherries as the machine reads WrestleMania 4 Jackpot. And here we are. It's finally arrived. We see a high shot over top the crowd, definitely different from the previous WrestleManias. And at first look from afar, the shot does look like your typical large arena. But as we get closer, as we pan in, you see the long steps at the aisleway, a unique looking venue, and in attendance here, lots of future names on hand for this one, including Lance Storm, the Blue Meanie, Jersey Zone, Chris Kanyon, and WrestleCopia Zone, Jammie Ward. And right now, to help describe the atmosphere, rather than just watch it on TV, I'm going to bring in a guy who attended WrestleMania 4 and 5 for some first-hand experiences and memories. And you've heard him as part of the Georgia 1981 project on regional wrestling. He's also been part of the Stick to Wrestling podcast with John McAdam, and now part of the WrestleMania 4 review right here on The Grenade. Welcome on, Jammie Ward, to the program.
Hello, Ray. I've been chomping at the bit ever since you mentioned this to me. It's great to be on.
Oh, man, it's good to have you here on The Grenade. I don't think you've been on here since the 100th episode, so it's great to have you back to talk more WWF action.
Yeah, it's nice to change up the subject matter every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. See, that's one thing I got on you. I can talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Poor Jamie, I kind of stuck him in the, well, he chose Georgia 81 as well, but yeah, I know the feeling. It's good to
No, I volunteered for that when you were looking for people.
You did. In fact, you were like, yeah, Georgia 81's not a bad idea. I said, okay, that's where we're going. But this has been a long time coming too, because I think it was like in November, you asked me, hey, what are you doing after you finish up 87 in the WWF? And I said, I'm pretty sure we're going to continue to roll into 88. And you said, well, let me know when you get close to WrestleMania 4, because I was there. And I said, you were at WrestleMania? Yeah, I went to WrestleMania 4 and 5, you told me. And I said, oh, we're definitely going to have you on as part of that big blockbuster event of WrestleMania 4. And I'm so happy to have you here to kind of share some of your firsthand memories.
Yeah, and like I said a couple moments ago, I've been chomping at the bit to do this. Unlike many people who watched the show, I had a great time being at the show.
Yeah, that's
so I can't wait to discuss it.
I can't either, because that's what we want. We want positivity here. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. This has been months in the making, so it's good to have you here. I'm glad, way back in November, who knew for sure when I'd get to WrestleMania or if you'd still be down or if time would permit, but it did, and I'm happy for that. So many questions here for you, Jamie, so we'll jump into things. I guess my first question would be, when did you decide you were going to WrestleMania, or should I even ask, how did you get the WrestleMania tickets? Who did you roll with to Atlantic City?
Actually, it wasn't my idea to go to WrestleMania.
Wow.
Once again, I've told the story several times about how my parents always supported my wrestling habit, for lack of a better term. And my dad just went ahead and got WrestleMania tickets for us.
Now, did he get the tickets before he asked you, or did he make sure first before he went and made that purchase?
Well, like, I'm going to say no.
I was just curious. I didn't know if he surprised you with the tickets, or if he said, hey, Jamie, okay, very cool.
No, he surprised me with the tickets.
That's awesome. So you get to roll with your old dad down to Atlantic City for a WrestleMania of all things. Of course, still in its infancy. It's not quite near 40 yet in 1988, but still it's a WrestleMania, and you're heading there for the big tournament. And that was another selling point you've told me about in the past. You were huge on going to see this tournament.
Yeah. Now, while the WWF did the Wrestling Classic, what was it, a couple years before, I had never seen a live tournament. I spent all those years, reading the magazines, and like you and I are covering Georgia in 81 here. That was a big deal, that Thanksgiving night tournament. It really captivated me that they would have all these matches in one night, and teams or individual wrestlers would be wrestling over and over again on the same card.
Well, this is a pretty big deal in general, because the WWF title had never, to the public, had never been vacated before. It had never been held up, and certainly never been placed in a tournament, a single elimination tournament like this. So it was a pretty big deal all around.
And as it worked out, I had never seen a world title change live before. I saw at least 3 dusty false finishes the old Dusty finish.
Of course.
At the NWA Civic Center and the Philadelphia Veterans Stadium, which my dad and I went to. And we used to go all the NWA.
Only 3 Dusty finishes in all those years? Wow, not bad.
At least 3. I still remember the one from the Civic Center, or not Civic Center, Vet Stadium. It was Flair against Road Warrior Hawk. And when Hawk pinned Flair, my dad must have jumped 3 feet off the ground. And I grabbed him by his shoulder. I said, calm down. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
And there it was. And he laid out, oh, ain't this a bunch of bullshit.
Jammie Ward, smart mark. I love it. Even cursing here on the Grenade. We can't get you to do that on regional wrestling, but it's all right. We can do that here on the Grenade show.
It was there, right? It was a layup.
That's an excellent memory to have, and I know you've told this story a couple times, especially over on regional wrestling, but it's never been told here before on the Grenade. I was hoping you could share your story about one July 4th, 1981 with the fans here on the Grenade show.
Yeah, we had my friends across the street from me. We both got cable around the same time in 1978, but in early 1981, he had a different cable company than I did. His cable company got TBS. My cable company didn't. So for several months, I was sneaking over to his house. Not sneaking, going over to his house on Saturday nights as often as it allowed. I mean, if he wasn't home, I couldn't go to his house. So we watched TBS as much as we could, Georgia Championship Wrestling. Well, on July 1st, 1981, my cable system gets WGN out of Chicago and WTBS out of Atlanta.
So you don't need your friend anymore.
No, I don't need my friend anymore. I can watch it on my own. And actually, that friend, he drifts away from wrestling after that. I kind of dragged him into it, I guess. But now I can watch every Saturday night. I can watch 6:05 WTBS, Georgia Championship Wrestling. However, that first time, July 4th, 1981, my parents remind me that we have a party to go to that day. Needless to say, I was not a happy camper because I'm like 14 at the time, and I'm not thrilled about going to a party with relatives when I'm going to miss Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Right.
So we're there a couple hours. I'm having my food, and I'm getting along with everybody. And then all of a sudden, my dad comes out, taps me on the shoulder, and says, "Let's go." I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "You're going home. You're not missing Georgia Championship Wrestling. I know that's what you want. Let's go home." So we made the 15-minute ride back to the house. He dropped me off. He went back to the party. I didn't see them till later in the night, and I got to watch Georgia Championship Wrestling.
What a pops. That is pretty damn cool, man. I've heard you tell the story before, but I just love that. They totally supported your wrestling fandom, and they understood what it meant to you to get home and watch that very first episode of Georgia on your own home TV screen. So I'm sure that...
And a matter of fact, I don't know if I've told you this story before. The first time I ever went to a wrestling show was in August of 1980, and my dad knew I wanted to go to see Spectrum Wrestling live. I mean, we watch it every month on Prism, and he had a friend that he was just having me talking to who said he knew Gorilla Monsoon.
Wow.
And he got tickets from Gorilla Monsoon through the friend, and Monsoon wanted me to know that they were what he considered the best seats in the house. They were the first row behind the penalty box.
Wow. Okay.
Behind the hockey boards, and they were perfect eye level with the ring. So you got to see over everybody underneath. So again, that was my dad knowing people and got those tickets for us.
Pretty damn cool. Good stuff. And you rolled with Dad down here to WrestleMania 4. How'd you guys get down there?
Well, Dad was in his 60s at this point and really didn't feel like driving down to Atlantic City. And the local the shopping mall that he ran his photography store out of had casino buses. Oh. Because the casino started in 1978, I believe, in Atlantic City. Okay. And that became a big thing. So we ended up taking the casino bus down to WrestleMania, and we each got $25 free to go gamble with, which we didn't use.
That's the best part of the story so far. So you took a bus down. How did that work as far as taking the bus back? It wasn't coming down there specifically for WrestleMania. So did you guys have to wait a while to catch a bus? Did you have to stay overnight there?
No, actually, we timed it pretty well. My dad had the bus schedule and everything, and I forget what time we got out of the building, like 8:30, 9 o'clock around there somewhere. Okay. He had the bus schedule, and we waited maybe a half hour tops.
Wow. It was like
to board the bus for the hour and a half ride home, because it was nonstop. It went right from the shopping mall to Atlantic City. It didn't have any other stops in between.
That's not bad at all. And it was like I just said, it was kind of meant to be then, just perfect. Everything went your way to get you down there. And did you guys get there early enough in the day to kind of enjoy the scenery, take a walk there on the boardwalk, the infamous boardwalk?
Yes, we did. I want to say, what was it, like a 3 o'clock show?
4 o'clock.
So we were 4 o'clock. Okay. So we were down there, I want to say by 11 or 12, because my dad was one of those guys. He was a wedding photographer. So he was never late for anything. He was one of those guys. So we were down there plenty early. We took a walk on the boardwalk. Back when he was like a teenager, he worked on the Atlantic City boardwalk on a steel pier.
Wow. Okay.
And actually got to meet the Three Stooges several times and got involved. And I guess they wanted to take advantage of a teenage boy, and not in that manner, people, and got him into one of their poker games.
Wow, that had to be a fun time. Could you imagine?
Play poker with the Three Stooges on the steel pier in Atlantic City.
Man, if camera phones were around to get a picture of yourself playing poker with the Three Stooges of all people, that would have been kick-ass to have. But
yeah, he had their autographs. It was very simple. It was all on the same page. Curly, Larry, and Moe.
Yeah, I'm sure that would all fit on one page. That's cool
it's
stuff.
It's just a shame they didn't have, like you said, camera phones back then. And he wasn't even a photographer at that point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, good point. I didn't even put that into it. Yeah. So
this is probably the late 1930s. It was before World War II.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that has started to be pretty damn cool to live through. So that time of year, March 1988, March of any year in Atlantic City on the ocean, I discussed a lady from the Coliseum video version that was part of the 5K run they did the day before. She was mentioning how cold and windy the weather was during the 5K. Was that your experience on the day of WrestleMania as well?
That was one of the coolest experiences of my life, walking on that boardwalk.
Wow, okay.
You've heard of wind whipping? That wind was whipping right down the Atlantic City boardwalk, and we had walked, not the entire length of it, but we walked up and back with him pointing out different, things that he remembered from years ago, including Mr. Peanut.
Nice.
They had the Mr. Peanut store there.
Yeah, I can only imagine how cold it could have been with the wind whipped in there, because, I lived on the lake for many years up in the Cleveland area, Lake Erie, and you get up to the lake and that's no joke. You go to the Browns Stadium, that is not a joke. It is pretty damn cold, and the wind really adds to it. I can only imagine. I haven't had a lot of experience on the West or East Coast. I've been there, but not for long periods of time, and certainly not that time of year. And
I went down in a spring jacket that day. I wasn't thinking. Of course, I'm now 21 years old, so, I know it all at this point. But my dad was prepared. He had his hat, gloves, and coat for the boardwalk. I'd never experienced that, the boardwalk at that time.
Okay, so you froze your ass off. You got to see a few sights out there on the boardwalk area. But now let's get into the building. Let's get into, what they call Trump Plaza, but I've already explained here earlier that this was not Trump Plaza, but rather Convention Hall. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from nearby Trump Plaza, but Donald Trump sponsoring the event. Thus, it gets the name Trump Plaza, whether it's a hotel and casino. Here, we're pretending it's an arena. And that's basically the setting for the show that everybody sees, WrestleMania IV, and kind of a unique venue. We'll talk about how it was laid out in just a minute, but I was just curious, where were you sitting inside now, I ask you that. I saw a picture. You actually texted me a picture from, I'm assuming, somewhere around your seats, but I couldn't really tell where that would have been per se. So I'm just curious.
It was at the, I want to say halfway up the lower section.
Okay. So halfway up lower level, near the aisleway, near the announcers.
The picture I sent you was of Jesse Ventura and Gorilla up in the booth. So we were kind of in a corner.
Okay.
Where it gets straightened out a little bit. Maybe you could post a picture when you post the...
Yeah, we can do that. We'll post Jamie's picture to
It's not the clearest, and that's an original picture, but it's not the clearest. But
well, no, it's a 1988 camera. Your father would be disappointed
camera.
in you, though. No, believe me, Jamie, I took pictures in the mid-1990s that didn't come out that good. So I'm not, it's like I've got Shawn Michaels and Razor third row in a ladder match practicing for WrestleMania 10, and you can make it out, but it's still kind of a little bit blurry. But yeah, it's just, I thought it was pretty damn cool that you even had a picture from the event.
Yeah, I wish I had taken more that day, but that was the only one. I mean, being that far back, you're not getting any good pictures of the ring or anything. So I didn't even bother to waste my time taking any of those. But I did take that picture.
Well, I already mentioned that this is not Trump Plaza, but rather Convention Hall. We talked about that earlier on the show before you joined in regards to its background, its history with the boxing fights. Even AEW recently had a show there, and you've talked to me a little bit about it too, some of the background that you knew of the venue. But let's talk about how it looked, how it was shaped. Kind of an odd building. As the wrestlers came out, you would see the aisleway. It was kind of long stairs, really weird built, and it almost felt like it dipped underground. So I don't know how tall the building actually was, but it made the ceiling look really high by the time you got to the ring.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it for a moment, the main doors are at the level of the boardwalk. And the boardwalk, like Ocean City, Maryland, the boardwalk is on the sand level.
Right.
The boardwalk in Atlantic City is built up 10, 15 feet.
Okay.
So that's why it kind of has that sunken in appearance. Kind of like if you've ever been to certain major league stadiums, you go walking in ground level.
Right.
And here the field is below you. So it was basically the same exact kind of setup.
Well, definitely a unique structure, to say the least. I mean, it really feels like the floor does drop down. So like you said, you kind of confirm that to a degree. But I want to go back to the WrestleMania IV podcast that Bruce Pritchard did, and it's been quite a few years since I listened to it. But I remember him talking about when they arrived there about a week before the event, that it was bare bones in there. There was nothing going on. It was just an empty building, and anything you saw there, they actually put in there, including 99% of the lighting, the trusses and everything that were hanging from the rafters, if you will, to quote Gorilla Monsoon. And he said they left all of that in there when they left. They didn't feel like taking it down, and they continued to use it, and they probably used it at WrestleMania V if it was still there by that point in time. But I was just curious, you looking around when you got in there, did it feel like an actual wrestling arena? Or could you tell it was kind of like a glorified gigantic bingo hall or whatever? I don't know what term I'm looking for here, but definitely not, say, the Philly Spectrum.
No, right. The layout was definitely bigger than the Philly Spectrum. While Philly Spectrum would seat 20,000 for wrestling, It was a tight 20,000, and this was more of a spread out 20,000, more like a football stadium.
So a bigger building then.
Would be.
Okay.
Yeah, a bigger building that. Right. Instead of being everybody real tight, like I said, the Spectrum, the seats would cascade back.
Right.
Kind of like
it did have a different
Ohio
theater.
State or Michigan, where it just kind of their stadium just kind of pushed back.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And it kind of had like that same feeling for me.
All right. So, but the building itself, did it come off to you like an actual arena feel, or did it feel like something different than your typical arena outside of the larger structure?
I mean, basically it was your normal arena. It wasn't you walk in and you're wowed because you could tell it was an older place.
Right.
They definitely had put some money into it and gave it a new paint job and probably new drywall here and there, but it didn't wow me. Let's just put it that way. But it didn't disappoint either.
Okay, well that's cool. And they got the big WrestleMania sign up there, so I was focused on that really when I first saw the event. But another thing that I focused on a lot as a kid, me and my cousins, my brother, we would kind of joke about it from time to time, would be the carpeting. And I don't know where all it was laid in this structure here, but it was definitely in the aisleway where the wrestlers made their way out. And Bruce Pritchard had told Conrad on their podcast that anything you saw, the WWF put in there. But this carpet looked a little too old to be brand new. I could be wrong, but I always referred to it as a diarrhea carpet, the color, I mean. And then really, at the end of the day, it just reminded me of old 1970s, 1980s hospital lobby carpet. Just a ugly color, just kind of crappy looking, really, to be honest with you. I didn't know if that was laid out everywhere, if you paid attention to something like that, but it always stuck out to me because it was probably the only time wrestlers came out on a bed of carpet.
Watching it over again, that carpet color looked like it was like Golden's mustard.
Yeah, okay.
However, being there live, it was more like looking at the yellow brick road, if you ask me.
Okay.
I thought live it looked a little more vibrant, but definitely on TV, I can see how anybody would think that was something, left over from the 1960s. Hey, they did have enough of Miss Americas there. They had 75 of them there before they moved it out of Atlantic
that
City.
Many? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it went back to the 20s, I believe.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I knew they held the event there. I had no idea how many. That's amazing. So you just talked about how it appeared on TV. Let's talk about something else in regards to TV. Let's talk about the sound or lack thereof. When I referenced the fans here, specifically the high rollers around ringside. And I've told you this story off here, but I'm going to tell it here for everybody too. When I was a kid, there was this set of WrestleManias 1 through 6 trading cards. And on the WrestleMania 4 and 5 trading cards, because both from Trump Plaza, but I really vividly remember the WrestleMania 4 ones, we would sit there and make fun or question, actually, why are the fans in the first several rows? Because you got all these great ring shots. So you can see the fans blatantly really, really well in the first several rows. None of them are paying attention to the wrestling that's going on in the ring. You have Hulk Hogan in there, the Macho Man, whatever the case may be. They're looking to the left, they're looking to the right, they're looking at the floor, they may be talking to somebody, but nobody is reacting to anything that's going on in the ring. And that was because those were the Donald Trump high rollers that weren't necessarily wrestling fans. But I wanted to get into that, but I also wanted to get into, because you've told me this in the past, that I've mocked the fact that there's really no sound, there's no real fan reaction. Now there is some, don't get me wrong, but not to the level that you would expect specifically in an event like this. But you said, no, there was actually quite a bit of sound, at least in your area. I wanted you to explain to everybody what you were talking about.
Yeah, I thought I was at just like a normal wrestling show. I wasn't looking at the people at ringside when I was there.
Right. No, I get that.
So I can't base what their reactions was until I got home and rewatched the show.
Right.
But yeah, sitting where we were, I thought it was just a normal, I won't say rapid, but a normal wrestling crowd watching the show. And I didn't really notice that the sound was down or not, a great reaction. Now, when I watched it over the first time on television off the live recording.
Right. And that's important.
If you watch the live recording, the crowd reaction isn't that good there. My theory for that is, if you look at the faraway shots, notice how high the rounded ceiling is.
Mm-hmm.
For those that are train aficionados of old railroad stations and stuff, notice how the old railroad places all had that big curved roof. And this basically had the same thing. So the sound kind of just like takes forever to get to that roof before it bounces back down. So with a wrestling crowd that isn't overly loud, it's going to lose a lot of that sound.
So you're saying it was the height and the structure. Especially on television. So the combination of the height and the structure. Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that. I can buy into that. Now, like you said, though, you watched the original live version or maybe even the Coliseum video version. They weren't really crowd sweetening things to crazy degrees back then. But as you watch it develop over the years, the WWF home video version and now the Peacock version, go listen to it now. It was an amazing event in regards to crowd reaction.
Yeah. When I just watched this back over for when we go over the first round, the reaction is quite different. They have it cranked up pretty well. And because it's cranked up pretty well, the show actually comes off better watching it this time around than I remember watching it the other times.
Right. Yeah. The crowd always aids in, making the show more exciting. But, and some of us are lucky enough to have or maybe not lucky by having the original copy. I have mine, and yeah, there's it's the crowd reaction, and they didn't really mic the rings and things like that back then either, so that didn't help a whole lot. But
no.
Yeah, it was very, I don't want to call it dead, because some guys did get a pretty damn good reaction regardless. Bam Bigelow did, for instance. A lot of people did, to be honest with you, until Jake and Rude came out, but that's another story. We'll save that for when we get to it here later in the show. But I appreciate you stopping by early on to cover some of the firsthand memories of what you experienced there at WrestleMania, just getting into the building, taking your seat. You took your very first picture there. We got everything ready to go. And just a quick note, guys, Jammie Ward will return here later in this episode of The Grenade to discuss all of the first round action with us. So, Jammie, looking forward to having you back here in, say, 45 minutes or so.
I look forward to it also, Ray. Like I said, I've watched the show over again, so I'm ready to go.
Can't wait. Boy, that was fun. Thank you once again so much, Jammie Ward, for joining the show, lending us your firsthand memories. And Jammie's going to be back a little later in the program to talk about some of the first round matches in the tournament. But right now, it's off to the ring. And Mean Gene Okerlund, not Vince McMahon, but rather Mean Gene, welcoming us to WrestleMania 4 as the crowd goes mild. Fucking high rollers. You guys know how casinos will make you listen to timeshare pitches to get free tickets to the shows in Vegas? I feel like they suckered these gamblers into WrestleMania in place of a timeshare pitch. Promise some bonus plays if they'd fill these seats here tonight. As the fan response right around ringside seems pretty much dead. Now, we heard Jammie say a little bit of the opposite. The wrestling fans were alive, and he blamed maybe the acoustics, the reason why we didn't really hear it on the video. However, at the same time, you can visibly see these well-to-do gamblers around ringside, not necessarily invested in what's going on in the ring, which is, truly unfortunate, especially for a WrestleMania. These people around ringside looking disinterested, but they're not truly wrestling fans, so you have to expect that. Is Mean Gene going to introduce Gladys Knight, sans Pips? Hey, where'd the Pips go? They promised us Pips, damn it. But it is Gladys Knight singing America the Beautiful. Everybody thinks she's finished. We get a big applause, but she continues on. A second trip, a little My Country 'Tis of Thee thrown in there one more time around. And you have to presume Gladys Knight probably had a gig in Atlantic City around this time because, for one, she was there, but she's also rocking a sequin jacket of sorts that has more ads on it than NASCAR. Unbelievable. You got to check this out. There's ads all over her jacket. I'm not really sure what that was about. I've never seen that before on a performer, but maybe I just haven't watched enough performers, I suppose. So we cut away from Mean Gene Okerlund. We head off to the host of the show, Gorilla Monsoon, and Jesse the Body Ventura welcoming us. Once again, we saw it on Coliseum Video. Now we see it for the live event, welcoming us to WrestleMania. And it's at this point in the program, Bob Uecker going to join Jesse and Gorilla shortly as guest commentator for the opening matchup. And right now joining me here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade, guest commentary for the opening matchup. Going to bring him on right now. His very first time, I do believe, on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. You may have heard him on Memphis 85 on the Regional Wrestling Podcast. Looking forward to hearing his side of things here for the big upcoming Battle Royal. We're going to bring him here for the first time ever, I do believe, on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome, Gene Jackson, to the program.
That's right. This is, in fact, the very first time I have had the honor of being on the Wrestling Memory Grenade, but I have certainly watched, not watched, I guess I should say listened to my fair share of the Memory Grenade, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm babbling and don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm excited to be here, and usually, Ray, we spend our time in 1985, so to be here in 1988, this is a whole new experience.
Yeah, we're usually in that WMC TV5 studio in front of 50 fans, and I'm being generous there, but here, it's a happening, to quote Gorilla Monsoon. They are literally hanging from the rafters here at Trump Plaza, or Convention Hall, call it what you will. But we're here. It's WrestleMania 4, and I couldn't think of a better... Well, the WWF, they had Bob Uecker join in for the guest hosting here for the Battle Royal, and I thought, man, nobody better than Gene Jackson to do the same here for the Grenade.
Oh, well, thank you. That's kind words because, man, Uecker has some great lines throughout this Battle Royal.
He sure does, and we've got a ton of the sound bites queued up. I can't wait to get to those. As we cut to ringside before the matchup, we see referees Joey Morella and a very young Jimmy Corderas out there carrying out that giant 7-foot trophy for the Battle Royal, as Gorilla does indeed inform us, Gene, that it is going to be a happening. In which Jesse the Body responds, he's beyond pumped up. So this must be WrestleMania.
That's right. When Gorilla lets us know it's going to be a happening, it's WrestleMania time.
And the Body always pumped up for the big event as well. As we see the wrestlers begin to make their way down to ringside for the Battle Royal, it's the opening match. They announced it on TV. We didn't hear that a lot back then, telling you what they're going to kick the show off with. They promised on TV it was going to be the Battle Royal, and they kept their word.
They did, yeah. Like I said, very rarely do they ever give you any insight to what to expect to start WrestleMania, but we knew we were starting with this Battle Royal, the let's get them all on the card Battle Royal here. But hey, they went as far to make a big trophy for it. So
they sure did. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that trophy in just a minute as we see Joey Morella standing ringside, directing the baby faces and heels in different directions upon entering the ring here. Baby faces on the left, heels on the right, which made no sense to me, Gene, since they're all going to wind up in the ring together anyway for the introductions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fun. They go their separate ways and immediately they all converge in the ring and then have to kind of stand there to be introduced. So it was all for nothing.
And we touched on it already, but just as you join here the grenade for the Battle Royal, unannounced, out of nowhere, Bob Uecker joins the announce team, which makes this all the more better. Bob Uecker part of this Battle Royal to kick off WrestleMania.
Absolutely. He was a fun part of WrestleMania 3, and I dare say he was even more fun in the build-up and here at WrestleMania 4.
Yeah, you got to love it. The Uke out here to kick off the show. And for as good as he was last year at WrestleMania 3, even more on this year, I thought. Lots of vignettes on TV leading in, kicking things off here with fun banter with Jesse Ventura back and forth. They exchange some sneers, and he even refers to Gorilla as Gino here.
Yeah, that was fun, and that was what really stood out to me is, if Uecker would have wanted to transition into the WWF, man, it would have been a very smooth transition. He felt right at home. He, all the vignettes he did leading into WrestleMania and all the stuff he did at WrestleMania at 3 and 4 just felt so natural. He felt just like, he was comfortable around the wrestlers and knew exactly what his role was and how to play it up and be scared when he needs to be and be funny when he needs to be. And man, I would love to have seen a lot more Bob Uecker in the WWF.
Yeah, I wish he had stuck around. I wish, Mr. Belvedere had been a flop and he got booted from the baseball world so that we would be forced to see Bob Uecker here more in the WWF. It would have been a fun time. I wish they just kept bringing him back year after year because he really got it. And this is a guy who likely probably didn't follow the business that deep. But man, he just comes in and he just turns it right on. They talk about how he ad-libbed all of his lines in the Major League movie, but it feels like he does the same. And we know he does during commentary here, which is just tremendous. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Bob Uecker, man, just another world. Certainly here on commentary for this one as we begin things with the 20-man over-the-top rope Invitational Battle Royal. And the invites include Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the Hart Foundation, the Young Stallions, Jimmy Powers and Paul Roma, the Wild Samoan Sika, Dangerous Danny Davis, the Killer Bees, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell and B. Brian Blair, Bad News Brown, one of the recent stars here, the WWF. Also, Sam Houston in this one, Jacques and Raymond, the Rougeau brothers, Olympic strongman Ken Patera, Outlaw Ron Bass, he's got Miss Betsy with him down there ringside. The Junkyard Dog is here, as well as Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov, the Bolsheviks, Hillbilly Jim, the King, Harley Race, and George, the Animal Steele. Gene, can I take you back in time? Who was your original pick to win this thing?
So back then, when I was a kid, I genuinely thought that as we went into this, I really did think that Junkyard Dog was going to win this, which shows you how little I was clued in back in those days.
I'm going to double down on that. That was my pick heading in as well. In fact, when it came down, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but when it comes down to the final three, I still thought even then it was JYD all the way. So I'm with you. Again, I've told the story on some of my other past shows, though. He was one of my top favorites, when I first started getting into the WWF scene. 84, 85, the dog just arrived. He was still getting that push. He was my favorite thumb wrestler as a kid as well. So love me some JYD. And even though it's very obvious here at 87 and 88, not the dog of old, but still in my heart as a kid, I loved him. And I was rooting for JYD in this one.
Well, that's great to hear because I thought, man, I'm kind of, as I was about to get ready to say it, I'm sure he's going to be like, really? You thought JYD was going to win in 88? But man, I did. And I was a big JYD fan too. He was one of the first LJNs to have an accessory. He had his chain and his dog collar on, and I thought that was just really cool when I was a little kid. So, yeah, man, I was pulling for him. And, as far as being an invitational battle royal, looking back on it, you'd almost think some of these invitations were sent out by Herb Abrams, perhaps.
It could have been. I'll tell you what, though, our pick of the JYD, a much better pick than one Dave Meltzer, and we'll touch on that in just a little bit as we get going here. During the introductions of the wrestlers, they put over the monster 7-foot trophy at ringside as a huge deal when Bob Uecker says this.
That's right. Did you get a look at the size of that trophy, Gorilla?
Oh, 6.5, perhaps 7-footer.
That thing's taller than Uecker's ever been in high heels.
You got one like that at home, Ueck?
Yeah, I paid, as I said before, anybody with any kind of desire at all, and if you want to pay a price, Gorilla can have those kinds of trophies. Some of the bigger ones I have cost me well over $100.
I love it.
Oh, the prestige here, Gene. As Bob Uecker says, he's had a few of those made for himself. In fact, he says anybody who wants to have one made can. They can do so by paying just a little over $100. I wrote, womp, womp. I know Ueck, he wasn't trying to bury it, but I had to LOL. Gorilla putting this trophy over huge, and Uecker's like, yeah, you can have those made for about $100.
I mean, that's just vintage old school comedy right there. And I tell you, I love me some Jesse Ventura in this era, but man, if you could have got a show, pick just any random show. If it had been a Boston Garden show or something with Gorilla, Bobby, and Bob Uecker all together at the announce table, or a couple episodes of Prime Time with Uecker sitting in, can you imagine?
Oh my God, the ad lib between Uecker and Heenan alone would just be priceless. Uecker's not too bad with Mean Gene either, but him and Bobby in the little time they have together here, not bad. But I also like his stuff with Jesse, who seems to feed off. Jesse's having a different time, a more fun, not so serious time here when he's talking with Uecker. And we're going to hear that as the sound bites continue on. As up next, we're going to hear Uecker mentioning that he was surprised that he got a call from one Vince McMahon to return to WrestleMania here this year. And then Gorilla quickly wanting to change the subject.
I know, Ueck, that I had a great time last year with you, and I'm looking forward to having another great time here this year.
Al, I couldn't believe it, Gorilla, when I got the call from Vince McMahon asking me if I'd love to participate.
There it is.
In WrestleMania 4. There it is, the trophy you guys just talked about a minute ago.
Look at the size of it.
Oh, man. I tell you, I couldn't wait to get here.
Ixnay on the Insfay, the Gorilla Monsoon changing the subject once again to the size of the trophy. Oh, look at the size of that trophy, will you guys? Not wanting to acknowledge Vince McMahon's power within the company.
Exactly. That was a big no-no back then. I'm surprised Gorilla didn't go, you mean when Jack Tunney called you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just that weekend's TV too. Jesse Ventura pointing out on Superstars, hey, Vince, what are you going to do for WrestleMania? Because I'm doing commentary with Gorilla and they're all sold out at Trump Plaza. So you're not going to be there. And Vince McMahon, well, I hope to be there, pal. So yeah, but it's just funny listening to Uecker talk about getting the call from Vince, which even by 1988 standards, I'm a little surprised that Vince himself made the call.
Yeah, that is very surprising, honestly. Just hearing that again, watching it recently, I thought, man, even though, I know they didn't love him saying that regardless, but just to think that Vince McMahon's calling the celebrities to be at WrestleMania at that point is kind of shocking.
Well, as they try to get pretty much everyone a payday here on the show, as you already mentioned, this match was added last. A Battle Royal added to a tournament card. That's a lot of wrestlers, as we have 9 heels and 11 baby faces in this matchup. And get this, 5 tag teams involved. 10 men take up half the field. 5 tag teams. I never really paid attention in the past until I did this here. I was like, wow, half the field is just tag teams.
Yeah, that I didn't pick up on that when I was a kid, really. But when I watched it recently, because I knew we were going to be doing this, I was like, man, a lot of tag teams here. That's kind of odd, but it worked out. Like I said, when you look down that lineup and you start looking for a winner, JYD really stood out. We were early on, in some of those guys' tenure in WWF, so that's why I really didn't consider them, because as a kid, I didn't know much about them, and even later on, I probably wouldn't have really thought, well, are they pulling the trigger on them? But as we'll get to, it's kind of surprising to see, some of the people that stick around and who doesn't.
And I took a few notes here before we head into the matchup. This also marks the King Harley Race's final match for something like 7-8 months. Harley going to go down to serious surgery. He's going to have a foot and a half of his intestines removed after recently being injured on Saturday night's main event. That headbutt dive off the apron, going through the table, the steel from the rim of the table shoving up into Harley's gut, giving him a hernia in the process. And unbelievably, well, actually, it's Harley Race, so I do believe it. He makes WrestleMania for that final payday on the way out.
Man, you got to respect the manhood of Harley Race when you hear how that turned out to still make WrestleMania. And, a lot of people think that table spots, originated with ECW and Sabu and Public Enemy, and I think a lot of people are shocked to know that Harley Race was out there going through tables on Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event, brother.
That's right. It's just a couple other notes here. Harley Race and JYD in the same match 2 years in a row, 1-on-1 last year at WrestleMania 3. Both guys here part of this Battle Royal. Also, I noticed a quarter of the field here, a little reminiscent to WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal. A quarter of the field, 5 men, part of the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal, back here for the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 4, including Hillbilly Jim, the Hart Foundation, and the Killer Bees.
That's a fun stat that I didn't pick up on. I like it.
This match also marks the Wild Samoan Sika's final night with the company, giving him a WrestleMania payday on the way out. We're going to say goodbye to the father of Roman Reigns after this one.
Yeah, and he is sporting some new tights. I didn't remember seeing him wearing those.
Yeah, it's in my notes.
leopard
I'm glad
prints.
you noticed that too. So it was also about this time. Listen to this one. About a year ago, I reported in around March, April of the news here in the World Wrestling Federation. At least DeMelt stated there was early plans for WrestleMania 4. Talk was the main event was going to feature then WWF champion Hulk Hogan versus Ken Patera. Yet here Ken is in the Battle Royal. I wrote wishful thinking meets reality.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
No, definitely not. In fact, I think they gave up on that a very long time ago. I don't know what they were thinking heading in, before Patera even made his return from prison. But yeah, definitely not. Maybe if he brought a boulder along with him, it'd have been a little more effective. This one also...
There would have been a barbershop window back then to throw it through.
That would have been great. That would have been excellent. This also marks George Steele somehow managing to appear on his third WrestleMania in a row. Of course, he wrestled the Macho Man for the IC title at WrestleMania 2. He was in the corner of the Dragon, played a pivotal part once again in a Macho Man match. The Dragon scoring the win in the IC Championship at WrestleMania 3. And now here he is, once again, WrestleMania 4 in the Battle Royal as George on the outside for the introductions. And a lot of people, George told this story, Jim Myers, told this story about, I don't know, let's just say 20 years ago in a shoot interview. Everybody wanted to know, why did you never get in the ring, George? And his story was, you remember the stairs at WrestleMania 4, Trump Plaza, the steps. He claims he twisted his knee on the way down, so he simply never got in the ring, didn't want to aggravate the injury any further. And I bought that, when I first started. Well, that makes sense. Finally, we have a reason. And it made sense. Okay, cool. Now I know why he never got in the ring. But then I get to the notes here. I started doing research for 1988, and there's multiple Bunkhouse Battle Royals back in January where George Steele does the same exact thing, standing around ringside. And in fact, when DeMeltz got cute and started predicting some of the things to happen at WrestleMania when they announced the Battle Royal, the first thing he said was, I predict that George Steele won't get in the ring. So this was pretty much a far-gone conclusion before it even happened, and I didn't even know it at the time.
So, this is only speculate. I don't expect you to have an actual answer to this, but do you think that Jim Myers just remembers it that way and he really thinks that that's how that played out, or is that just top of his head thinks that's a good explanation when he's telling the story? Or maybe he just didn't remember. He was up in age by the time those shoot interviews happened. But
I'm not arguing. Maybe he did have a knee injury at the time. Maybe that's really the legitimate reason why he was doing this for the last few months. But he was also, and I use this term loosely, but working some matches in between as well. So who knows? Maybe he just don't want to take that bump over the top rope. Like Sheik at WrestleMania 17, story goes, he only won the match because he couldn't take the bump out of the ring.
Yeah, I'm sure if it came down to it, and they're like, well, look, we're going to have to let Steele win this thing because he can't go to the top rope. And somebody's like, yeah, just let him stand outside the ring.
Yeah, so
we're good.
It's pretty cool. Miss Betsy makes her WrestleMania debut, her one and only, out here with the Outlaw Ron Bass. George Steele out there during introductions, removing his shirt for business, but he remains on the outside for the duration. I wrote, what a waste. Should have given that spot to Outback Jack.
I would have popped for it. I was an Outback Jack fan when I was a kid, I have to admit. I still am. I got an autographed picture of Outback Jack. I'm proud to say.
I need me one of those. Sadly, Outback will never make it to WrestleMania. We also see the usually smiling Hillbilly Jim, but I noticed here he just kind of throws his hands up for the introduction, doesn't even really look at the camera. I wrote, he must have got word of his payday beforehand here. Didn't look too happy to be out there, did Hillbilly?
Yeah, maybe he wanted the standing outside the ring and getting paid spot instead of George. Yeah, he did not look like his jovial hillbilly self.
Yeah, kind of weird. As we also see Sika going all glitz and glamour, as you referenced, upgrades his attire here for WrestleMania. Looks like some of my wife's tiger print pajama pants. Looking dapper, though, for this spectacle is the Wild Samoan. Wouldn't it be cool if Roman Reigns busted that out at WrestleMania 40?
Yes, that would be a great homage to Pops.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gorilla Monsoon, as the action gets going, he ponders if Bob Uecker ever saw anything like this in baseball, to which the Uecker responds,
Unbelievable.
Well, you're more than welcome, I'm sure.
And we're off and running.
Bell's gone. We're underway here. What a dangerous type match, Jess.
Well, I'll tell you what, Uke, you'll never see nothing like this in baseball, will you?
This looks like the final day of cut-down day in spring training to me.
I love it.
looks like the final cut down day in spring training, never misses a beat. I mean, talk about ad-libbing at its finest, just blurts that out without even needing time to think about it, process it.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me a lot of Heenan, where he's just so quick and sharp. You know, he's got these lines just ready to throw them out
and to
there
be out of his element.
that.
You know, to be out of his element. It'd be one thing if it's like a MLB All-Star Weekend, you know, where you kind of, you've been around baseball your whole life. You've got all these jokes, saved up in the back of your head. But here in wrestling, he's ready to go. As the bell sounds, we heard it right there. The action begins, and Sam Houston goes right after his rival, Dangerous Danny Davis, right away. But the outlaw Ron Bass attacking Houston from behind, whipping him into Davis, who backdrops Sam over the top rope and out of the floor in just 43 seconds. As Sam was Dave Meltzer's favorite to win this thing. Can you believe that? Sam Houston out first.
Well, there goes Meltzer's credibility years ago. But, I have to say it's sad that Sam Houston's hot spot was getting his little dance in during the intro.
Certainly with a little two-step.
He managed to cut a rug across the ring real quick as they named his name.
He sure did. So I wrote, was it a shot at the Melts to throw Houston out first, or simply a way to show everyone that Sam is where he is on the card? I think I'll go with the latter there. I don't think Vince really gave two shits about Dave Meltzer back in 1988 or any time for that matter. But is Jesse Ventura going to point out that, Sam, he's kind of a lighter weight, Gene, and this match may not have been meant for a guy his size, but no sooner than Jesse gets that line out that Sam Houston, he's too light for such a match, that we see the 300-pound Sika also eliminated seconds into this encounter by a handful of guys.
What did we start with?
There it is.
Sam Houston.
Sam Houston gone.
Well, Sam, this
there goes Sika.
This wasn't the kind of match for Sam Houston because he's kind of light and possibly very easy to put over the top rope.
Well, Sika certainly isn't light, Jess, and he's a goner.
So Jesse contradicted immediately there. In fact, Sika was already gone before Body puts over the fact that Sam's kind of a lightweight. And, he just wasn't built for this matchup. But Sika, 300 pounds out the door as well.
Poor Jesse. He's actually trying to help save face for Sam Houston, which is out of character for him. And then immediately Gorilla's like, well, Sika's not light, so shut up.
So a lot of work for that payday on the way out. Sika finishing up here after less than a minute in the Battle Royal, but he did make it to WrestleMania. So I guess you could acknowledge that one, Gene.
Wow, what a shame. You break out some brand new britches and you're out of there in under a minute. Goodness.
I think that's why he held a grudge against Vince McMahon. He goes out and spends another $50 at K&H Wear, gets himself a brand new pair of Tiger trunks, and you're out the door. See you later, Sika. Didn't even get reimbursed, I bet.
I'm sure he didn't.
As we continue on, Jesse Ventura wanting to know what's going on with Animal Steele outside the ring.
What did we start with in this, 20?
20.
Well, we're down to 18. What's with Animal Steele outside the ring?
He's outside. I'm not sure he ever got in there.
That guy might be smarter than everyone thinks. Maybe he's going to wait for everyone to eliminate each other, then he'll climb in there.
Gorilla Monsoon, not so sure Animal ever got in the ring just yet. And remember that, Gene. We're going to revisit that in just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
As the action barrels on, as we see a cool shot of Bret Hart trying to eliminate the King Harley Race. I wrote that would have been a fun match.
Yeah, it would have. I was noticing that a couple of times that some people paired off and thinking, man, I don't really remember seeing that outside of, this battle royal and maybe a couple other odd, battle royals here and there. But that definitely would have been a great singles match to have seen.
As the action goes on, Animal Steele going to get cute, reaching in to grab hold of Jim Neidhart. But the Anvil has none of it, reaching over the top rope, swatting at the Animal's head. But George Steele reaching up from the outside floor and grabbing the Anvil by his goatee, yanking Jim Neidhart over the top rope and out of the ring in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I wrote bummer, and that shouldn't have been legal.
No, definitely not. But What a great spot to feature the Animal there, pulling him over the top with his goatee. But, considering some of the people that's in there, I would have liked to have seen the Animal stick around longer, but,
Oh, you and me both. In fact, I never really, good point. I never really understood that as a kid. Why did the Anvil go out before Paul Roma, Jimmy Powers, this person, that person? And then it becomes obvious, as we get older and we start, developing that booking mind sort of to where, oh, okay, I see. We need these two separated as far as we can for the story we're trying to tell here. As the ramifications of this match are huge. So important that Jesse and Uecker go into a spiel about Vanna White.
Oh, she's definitely here, you.
Yeah, I'm supposed to meet her. That's my main reason for being here.
That's your main reason for being here, Uecker? Vanna White?
Yeah, I'm supposed to meet her here someplace.
Well, do you have any idea that she's in love with me?
I saw something about that in some tablet. No, that's not her.
It was, in fact, the National Examiner, you.
Is that where it was?
Page, yes.
She wouldn't come here unless she got a date from me. And I was very upset about that. Jack Tunney never asked me.
Yeah, she's got a little better taste than that,
look at
baby.
that, George, the Animal.
Whoa!
Pulled from the outside, the Anvil right out of there. I think that the Animal's already out of there as well.
Well, Ueck, if Vanna has good taste, she's less filling then.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm very familiar with that.
Will you two stop?
Woo!
Let's get back to wrestling.
The big Russian, Boris Zubkov, being worked over there.
These guys having some fun for sure. Bob Uecker says they tricked him last year with the fabulous Moolah, but this year, and that always confused me too, way back at watching WrestleMania 3, but he says this year he knows what he's looking for. Bob Uecker then alludes that he's supposed to get with Vanna White, but Jesse brings up being linked to Vanna in a recent issue of the National Examiner, as they joke about Vanna maybe having great taste and being less filling. Making reference, obviously, to their Miller Lite commercial and likely some sexual innuendo there as well. As Gorilla pulls out the old, "Will you stop it?"
As George Takei would say, "Oh my." Yeah, they tiptoed right up to the line there for 1988 standards anyway, so that was fun.
And I'm going to correct myself. That was the old Bobby Heenan, like Gorilla, "Will you stop it?" But here he has to put it to both of them. "Will you two stop?" And of course, they kind of, and then Jesse even has to go back into wrestling. "All right, let's get back to wrestling." He's like, "All right, Bob, let's do this." And they're trying to get back on track. So Uecker immediately after that shouts, "Whoa!" like he just saw something cool happen, but nothing going on in the ring. So everybody trying to get back on focus here as the Killer Bees both repeatedly tossed over the top rope, but they flutter to find their way back inside. See what I did there? Finally, though, Brian Blair dumped to the apron, and bad news, with the unlikely help of one Jacques Rougeau, gets rid of B. Brian Blair, sending him packing back to Hazel's Honey Hut. As we get some brief revenge for the Bees, Jim Brunzell eliminating Ray Rougeau, but Jacques laying in wait and will effectively eliminate Jim Brunzell, doing away with both Killer Bees early in the match. I think the writing's on the wall for the B team.
Yep. They're going to be following Sika out the door, it seems, by the way things are going there.
Sooner or later, they'll stick around for a little bit, but unfortunately, the story goes anyway, that the Bees were the first ones offered the option to turn heel around this time, and they declined, and thus that's going to go to the Rougeau brothers, and the Bees, well, they're going to pay for it.
I was always kind of baffled by that whole, it was featured on a couple of Coliseum videos, and I think they even showed it on Prime Time, where there was this lumberjack match with Dibiase and Hogan, and the Bees were out there in the mask as lumberjacks, and they did that spot at the end, and Hogan beats them up and all that, and I was always confused, like, okay, was that supposed to actually be the Bees, or is that a couple of heels dressed up like the Bees? And it never really got explained. No,
they never followed through with it. It confused the hell out of me as a kid as well. I was waiting for the payday. I couldn't really figure anything out. There was no internet. I couldn't go look it up. Like, did they turn heel? And I just don't remember it because, they don't make it to pay-per-view, many more pay-per-views after this. I think Jim Brunzell going to fill in at Survivor Series 88 or something along those lines. But the Bees, for all intents and purposes, they're not done yet, but they might as well be as the Battle Royal continues on. Directly thereafter, the Bees are eliminated. It's the Junkyard Dog dumping Outlaw Ron Bass right at the feet of the Animal. George Steele immediately getting into it with the Outlaw. I wrote, "Man, where's Miss Betsy when you need her?"
Yeah, definitely.
And remember, Gorilla Monsoon, he argued earlier that the Animal never got in the ring. Well, he does a complete 180 at this point in the match.
Referees are having a hard time getting the Animal out of there.
Hey, Animal Steele ain't even been in there yet.
Well, I think he has. I think he's been put out over the top already, Jess.
He was never in, Gorilla.
I think so. He was in for the introduction. Somebody else just went.
Gorilla trying to throw everybody off there. Somebody else just went. I got news for you. Nobody else just went, Gene. He's trying to change the subject there. Gorilla saying that George Steele never got in the ring earlier, and now he had to be in the ring. And fun story here as a kid. I don't know how many times me and my cousins, my brother, we would rewind the tape and try to see where Steele went in and went back out because Gorilla Monsoon told us so, and Gorilla wouldn't lie to you. I wrote, "Damn you, Gorilla."
Yeah, because he flat out said, I don't think he ever got in. And then there he said, oh, yeah, he was in there during the introduction. And so I have a theory on this. You know, a lot has been said in more recent years about McMahon being in the headset, producing people and demanding lines be said. Do you think this is an early example of this, where maybe Vince is in the headset and like, damn it, pal, he was in, he got thrown out.
I don't see Vince ever directing Gorilla. I don't know that he could have directed Gorilla, but also at the same time, I'm not sure they were doing the headset deal back then. So I'm not sure, but it would have been interesting to know. As a Gorilla Monsoon, he tries to change the subject. We heard it there. Somebody else just went, although nobody did. That is until Boris Zukov, of all people, dumps out Hillbilly Jim. After about 4.5 minutes, we learned that Hillbilly was Uecker's favorite to win this thing. And it's at that point I realized that Bob has now called both Hillbilly Jim matches in back-to-back WrestleManias, the midget match and now the Battle Royal. So talk about the making the best out of back-to-back shitty situations. I mean Uecker, not Hillbilly.
Maybe that's why Hillbilly looked so cranky in the beginning, because he knew Boris was going to be tossing him out, and that's told him all he needed to know about his future bookings here in WWF.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Hillbilly made a good little chunk of change even for the mixed tag match at WrestleMania 3, but his track record, not really great. I mean, he goes from a Battle Royal. Well, he was injured. He likely would have been part of WrestleMania 1. There was a pretty big push for Hillbilly at that point in time. Blows out his knee, and he's done for months. And then he comes back to work a Battle Royal at 2, does the mixed tag with the midgets at WrestleMania 3, and here he is back to the Battle Royal at 4. And this is it for Hillbilly until he's back for a Battle Royal again at WrestleMania X7.
Wow. Yeah, his career never got back on track after that injury, unfortunately, because it seemed they had a lot more in store for him before the injury, and it just never got back on track. And unfortunately, Uncle Elmer was long gone by this time. I wish he'd have been here for the Battle Royal.
Should have kept the Playboy around. Should have kept him around. It's at this point in the matchup, though, the referees, they've had enough of George Steele's antics at ringside, forcing him to leave the ringside area, eliminating him in the process. George Steele leaving right behind Hillbilly Jim. Now, some say he was never officially in the match, but as Gorilla said, he was in for the introductions. So I always took it as this was where he was officially eliminated by the referee's decision, Gene. Still weird, but it worked because it was the Animal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and for the viewing audience, we just assumed that, okay, something happened off camera that we didn't see, but for the people there in the arena that could see everything, you know, it had to kind of bewilder them, like, okay, he stood by the ring, and now they're just making him leave. Like, they let him eliminate Jim Hart, Neidhart. They didn't reverse that or anything, and now he's just going away. But then again, it's George Animal Steele. I don't think anybody was really hung up on it. Like, oh man, like
no, yeah. Obviously, if it was like Jimmy Powers or Boris Zukov doing this, it would be a little more questionable.
Yeah, it is what it is. You know, he got his WrestleMania paycheck. He eliminated the Anvil. He was a talking point. So yeah, good for him.
Action goes on. Going to see Dangerous Danny Davis out next to a pretty good pop. The fans really hate the former referee. Eliminated here by young stallion Paul Roma, as even Bob Uecker sees it coming, saying Davis is gone. Davis is gone. Danny dumped from a fireman's carry by Roma, as we are now halfway through the field. 10 men eliminated. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ring, Bad News Brown tossing the other stallion, Jimmy Powers, from the match. As we continue on, we get some baseball talk here from Uecker and Jesse Ventura. Jesse having some fun with Bob's batting average, as Uecker expressing the guys going out early getting their money.
Nikolai comes over and stops him immediately. Whoa! From behind, Boris Zukov did a number there.
At least the guys that went out early got their per diem money.
Well, that's...
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I know what you mean.
It's the only way to go.
Please. I'm going to have trouble, I can tell, here at WrestleMania 4, sitting between the Uke and the body.
Gorilla trying to keep control of this commentary, while much like Bobby Heenan, Gorilla trying not to laugh, even though he can't help himself but to laugh, as Uecker pointing out that maybe they went out early, but at least they got their guarantee.
Yeah, it gives you a little insight into Uke's mindset there. And have we already gotten past the third base comment that he made?
No,
coming up?
Nope. I don't think I have that one on Soundbite. So if you want to discuss it, you're more than welcome to.
I enjoyed that one because Jesse made reference to third base coaches, and
yes,
Uecker said, most of my conversations with third base came from the dugout.
Right, yeah. It was a great line. It definitely was a great line, a baseball line for sure. Anybody out there who knows even a slightest a bit about baseball will have a laugh at that one. Well, we get a rematch here in the middle of this battle royal, a WrestleMania 3 showdown as the Junkyard Dog and Harley Race duking it out. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ring, the Olympic strongman Ken Patera dips his shoulder and dumps out the big Russian Nikolai Volkov. And then it's Boris Zukov over to exact some revenge on Patera, but Kenny gonna dump Zukov out as well as Bob Uecker shouts, "Yeah, USA is in!" Only for Bad News Brown to come from behind and assist the Bolsheviks in pitching Ken Patera out of the ring at 5 minutes and 50 seconds as the Body quickly responds.
Go! There goes Nikolai! The big 300-pounder over the top at the hands of Patera.
Hey, USA is in! Yes, sir!
And Zukov, and look at that, Nikolai from the outside.
Yes!
Yeah, there went USA, Uecker.
Pull Patera with him.
Yeah, there went USA, Uecker. God, so many memorable lines. And this is just the first match on the pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, okay. No Mike Sharp here in this battle royal. It's unfortunate.
That's a shame.
Oh, I'm not on WrestleMania. Oh, okay. Wrestling challenge job. Oh, okay. Okay.
I bet he was on standby back there in the showers just waiting. If somebody went down, Iron Mike was going to tear down it all.
Yeah, I had to pop the final week of TV leading in to the WrestleMania IV Battle Royal. It's a tag match. It might have been against the Bulldogs. It really doesn't matter, but Mike Sharp gets in the ring, and Jesse Ventura on commentary says, a lot of people call Mike Sharp a dirty wrestler, but I happen to know he showers 3 or 4 times a day. I had to pop, dude.
That's so funny that's such a thing throughout his career.
Went over my head as a kid, but I totally got it last week, so I loved it. As we get back to the action here, Gorilla Monsoon proclaiming we're down to 4. As the hard camera showing the full ring, we clearly see there's way more than 4 guys in there. Is Harley Race going to backdrop Jacques Rougeau out to the floor? And now Gorilla says, and we're down to 5. So something wrong with Gorilla's math. We were actually down to 6, and Jacques' elimination does make it down to 5, but I always got a laugh out of that.
I've heard the term addition by subtraction, but I don't think that's what that means, Gorilla.
Yeah, I've heard Scott Steiner math, but there's also Gorilla math.
That's right.
As Junkyard Dog gonna blast Harley Race, eliminating him, sending him backwards over the top rope and out to the floor as Bob Uecker claims.
Oh, there goes the king! The king is out of there!
Wow. You talk about a crown for a king. What a blast he took.
What a blast he took indeed. What a bump. And you got to put it into context. Harley Race, he's taking, his typical backflip bump out of the ring, and it does look like, came a little closer than usual to busting his head on the apron. But if you watch the splat, he's clearly laid out flat to land on his stomach. Now remember, he's getting ready for fucking surgery. He's getting ready to have part of his intestines removed, and he's taking a bump like this.
That dude's a freaking warrior, man. I know he's widely recognized as a tough guy, but he still doesn't get enough credit, especially in
he did not have to do this. He did not have to do this in the middle of a battle royal.
He could have went out there, eased over that top rope out to the floor, and man, this is how he goes out. He's a hell of a man.
Yeah, sadly, guys, this is going to mark Harley Race's final match before that surgery, and he won't return until the fall. It'll never be the same. Obviously, it will never go back to a full-time in-ring competition, so got to thank Harley Race for everything he gave here, even in his run as the king in the WWF.
Yeah, it was, it was a good run, and I think it was a good gimmick for him. I know a lot of people hate on it, and, they wanted their NWA Handsome Harley, but I think for the era of WWF we're in, I think it was a good gimmick for him, and he did all he could do with it.
No, I agree. A lot of people do dump on Harley Race for this time here in the WWF, but at that point in his career, it was the best thing they could do, give him kind of a gimmick to work with, and he got it over, and he was, Yes, he didn't move at the pace he did once upon a time, but man, his bumps were still second to none all the way out the door.
Absolutely. And why shouldn't Harley get to pad his bank account like everybody else was doing?
He certainly deserved it after all those
money,
years.
Carly.
Yeah, of washing Happy Humphrey's ass and all that good stuff. Yeah, it pays off here. We're going to see the King, or maybe not the King when he returns, but we'll have to wait and see. That's a long ways off. But right now we're down to the final four, as young stallion Paul Roma's still in there unloading on Bad News Brown, but Bad News going to duck a shoulder and backdrop Roma out of the match with relative ease at 6 minutes and 23 seconds. And now we're down to the final three, Gene, as a story begins to be told, a 2-on-1 beatdown. The heels of Bret Hart and Bad News Brown taking on the Junkyard Dog, all Stampede alumni.
Yeah, that's a very fun fact there, the link between the three of them, and especially, Bret and Bad News. And,
right.
Man, I can't say, even with Meltzer's odd prediction of Sam Houston, you can't tell me there was a living soul on earth, even a member of his family, who would have predicted Paul Roma would have been in the Final Four, as briefly as it was, still, on the record book, the Final Four.
Do you think that was by accident? I slightly recall Bruce Pritchard telling a story about Royal Rumble 88. I can't remember if it was Bret Hart or Tito Santana. I think it was Bret, but I'm not sure. They gave everybody the cue who's supposed to throw them out when they're supposed to go out during that Rumble match, and they forgot to give one of them the cue. So finally, they're like, "What the hell's Bret Hart still doing in there?" And they had to tell somebody to go out there and throw him out. So I'm wondering if there was a forgotten cue here to tell Paul Roma to hit the bricks earlier, and of course, Roma being Roma just stayed in there until he absolutely had to hit the bricks.
I would like to think so, because nothing they did with him prior or post WrestleMania really seemed to justify him getting this far in this Battle Royal.
But Vince was always a big fan of booking these Battle Royals. Usually you'd have a guy or two near the end that typically wasn't going to win it, but they would still be in there, showing that anything can happen. I mean, I remember watching Antonio Inoki take out Ron Shaw and Charlie Fulton to win one at the Gardens. So anything's possible. Yeah. Hey, Paul Roma, he's gone now. It's down to three. It's the Hitman and Bad News Brown beating down the JYD. The heels double-teaming Dog until Brown accidentally walloping the Hitman, and Dog down with a series of crawling headbutts on both men, which looks stiff but awesome.
Yes, I mean, he a lot of people dump on, we talked about Harley, and a lot of people dumped on JYD, and Lord
and
knows,
for good reason.
Harley and JYD at WrestleMania 3, wasn't anything any of us wanted to see again when they ended up here together, and this one's like, oh God, let's not revisit that, please. But for a fleeting moment here, he looked a bit like the JYD of old, and really fired me up as a kid to think, yeah, he's going to do this. He's got it.
Yeah, the Dog laying in the headbutts to both of the heels, but the numbers game going to work against JYD. The odds here in Atlantic City, and the heels going to take back over. High fives all around as they double team the Dog and gang up on JYD, who can't escape being cornered. Dog tries to fight his way out, but the heels wind up dumping him over the top rope in a surprise elimination for me as a kid. The Dog out at 8 minutes and 39 seconds. So there goes our pick, Gene.
Yep, our pick's out, and I'm sitting there like, okay, we got the new heel and a tag team wrestler. Like, what are we doing here? I was even as a kid, I used a little bit of logic in that. I'm like, wow, he's one half the tag team there. Like, and there's two heels. Like, this is weird.
Yeah, and Bret had been here for years, and he was even down. Remember the end of the Battle Royal with Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 2. Here we are again. It's down to the Hitman. Maybe he's going to pull it off this time. I was a big Hart Foundation fan. Now, I was a bigger fan as baby faces over heels, but I always loved just the dynamic, their cool look. The pink really stuck out for me, once they picked that part of their gimmick up as well. So I was always a Hart's fan. I know I was rooting for Bret Hart here between these two. Bad News still fairly new. I wasn't really into him yet. I don't know that I ever got into Bad News Brown, but, it was certainly a character you bought into as time went on. As it appears, though, that Bad News and the Hitman looks like they're planning to split the purse, split the money, Gene, as even the announcer's going to buy into it. Hey, you keep the trophy at your place for a year, and then I'll keep it in mine. So the heels appear to celebrate their co-win. And then, Bad News with a ghetto blaster out of nowhere, laying Bret Hart flat out in an awesome spot.
I think maybe these guys have decided to split the purse money, guys.
Yeah, but how are they going to split the trophy?
Well, You keep it at your place for a year, and I'll keep it at mine for a year.
Well, maybe that's what they got in mind.
I'm sure that a bond has been made here.
They're obviously going to have to tell the referee, or one of them's going to have to step up.
Oh, God! A double cross by Bad News.
That's the last time I'm listening to you guys. I thought these guys were really friends.
Well, you know, when money's involved, there ain't no friend,
You would know about that, wouldn't you, big boy?
Definitely.
Boy, did he do a Pearl Harbor job on the Hitman.
Oh, my.
Bad News double crossed him, you.
That just shows you can't trust anybody in a battle royal.
Can't trust anybody in a battle royal, especially Bad News Brown, as down goes the Hitman, and Bob Uecker upset at the announcers for fooling him. But there is no friends in a battle royal, specifically when money's involved.
I love that. I'm never going to listen to you guys again. I thought these guys were really friends. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
You know, this established the Bad News character, and this was something that they would continue to double down on, you know, in the next couple of Survivor Series. You know, they really established how Bad News couldn't be trusted and he couldn't get along with anybody.
Right.
And so this was one of the first times I really remember that they really started to play out this whole Bad News as a loner, and he'll double cross anybody to get the win. And is the first, you know, step in the direction of sending Bret down the road towards being a babyface.
That's right. You know, it all works out. It all makes sense. It all plays together. But at the time, I was a little surprised. The first time I saw this, they fooled me like they fooled Bob Uecker. Hey, I thought these guys were friends, but apparently not. Bad News going to turn on the Hitman here, busting out the Ghetto Blaster out of nowhere. Loved it. Bret Hart, probably the first big name that he levels it on outside of a few squash matches, and Hitman sells it well.
He certainly does. You know, it comes out of nowhere, and he sells it well. And as a kid, like, I dug the Ghetto Blaster. Like, I thought that was a cool move, but I mean, how are you ever really going to get behind or even really get mad at a dude whose go-to line in every promo he's ever done is beer belly sharecroppers and spineless cockroaches?
That's it.
I was like, dude, I dare you to do a single promo without saying one of those two lines. Like, ugh.
Oh, so he busts out the Ghetto Blaster. Down goes the Hitman. Brown then working over Hart briefly. We even get that nasty chest bump into the corner taken by the Hitman here as he's pitched out over the top rope and down to the feet of one Donald Trump at ringside. Bret Hart eliminated. Is Bad News Brown going to go over 9 minutes and 43 seconds? Thus, the Hitman tastes his first screw job here in the WWF, all thanks to the Harlem native.
I got screwed by Bad News Brown.
Lousy stinking hyena in the ring, Bad News.
Oh, man. And what
the referees turned a blind eye to it. Gorilla Monsoon turned a blind eye to it. Wah. What a whiny.
If only we could have got that cussing fit promo that we got years later at
Would that have been
WrestleMania
something?
4. Attitude Era could have started 10 years early.
Yeah, the Hitman starts the Attitude Era WrestleMania 4, all because of Bad News Brown. But I love the chest bump spot here. Bret always took that awesome, but I think I would have preferred just blasting him with that Ghetto Blaster, no pun intended, and then pitching him straight over the top rope. I think the boom boom would have been more cool.
Yes, I thought that rewatching it over the weekend, I was like, man, Ghetto Blaster straight over the top rope. It would have been a lot more effective in my opinion. Absolutely, I agree.
So Brown turns on the Hitman, pitches him out, and then he raises his hand in a solo victory as he is presented that beautiful 7-foot trophy. But a bitter, vengeful Bret Hart, in any era, returns for revenge, drop-kicking Bad News from behind, sending him out to the floor. And the Hitman then begins smashing and tearing apart the trophy, stepping on it. There goes $100, ripping it apart, tossing what's left of it out at a large ashtray can ringside. Still don't know why that was there. I guess Morello was using that to direct that traffic earlier. But excellent aim, I may add, as the trophy hits the can and splits in half. You couldn't have booked that better. The trophy destruction or the finish of the match.
Exactly. Yeah, he nailed that spot on. And, yeah, I did not expect when it took two guys to carry out the big 7-foot trophy. I thought, this one probably won't get wrecked. You know,
right.
They put some money into this one. No,
yeah, exactly.
Bret Hart destroyed it.
He certainly did. You know, in hindsight, looking back at it now, of course, we talked about picking JYD back in the day, but when you look back at it, Bad News Brown, clearly a level above everyone else in this match. outside of maybe the Hart Foundation. But again, like you said, they were a tag team, at least at this point. So it kind of made sense to fast track Bad News here. Not bad for a 2-month run in the company to go over in a battle royal at WrestleMania.
Heck no. I mean, that's strong, and basically it was a match that existed, as we said, to get everybody on the card, get them a payday, but to really strap a rocket to Bad News and send him up the card.
And as we know, the Hart Foundation soon going to go babyface and split up into singles for a while anyway. We'll revisit these two, Bad News and Bret, at upcoming house shows throughout the spring, perhaps into the early summer. But a fun opener with a great finish, great visual of the Hitman getting his heat back and starting that babyface turn that you alluded to.
Yes, a very good start to that, and it got people to start getting behind him. So, well done. Even in a battle royal, they told a story and kicked things off with a bang. More so than those old Andre the Giant battle royals years later that, had 55 people in them and served no purpose other than just, somebody getting the trophy at the end.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I don't know how, but I did. Anywho, so Bob Uecker, he's going to leave. He's going to bid adieu to Gorilla and Jesse Ventura. He's off to find Vanna White. As Jesse and Gorilla, they say they know where she is, but they're not telling. So we're 20 minutes into the show, and I wrote Bob Uecker already looking at greatest celebrity host of all time.
Without question. I absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly.
I said that after WrestleMania 3, and I meant it then, and I knew I'd seen WrestleMania 4 plenty of times, but going back and watching it here, realizing everything he did vignette after vignette for every episode of Wrestling Challenge and Superstars with various people from Bobby Heenan to Mean Gene to Slick to Jake the Snake and beyond, and he did that for a couple months leading in. He didn't have to, but he did. And then, of course, here at WrestleMania, they announced him as the guest ring announcer again for the main event, but they realized the potential he has. So he did so well in that mixed tag last year, they bring him back for a battle royal. He doesn't let us down, but he's also going to be conducting all of the heel interviews backstage throughout the duration of the pay-per-view.
Yeah, there was some fun interactions there as well. When they pulled him out of the booth, I was like, oh man, I was hoping he'd stick around longer. But then when he starts doing the heel interviews, I was like, okay, I can do this. This is good.
Yeah, and of course the Andre the Giant promo specifically lives on in infamy forever. God, I love Classic. That one. Yes, indeed. But Gene, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this WrestleMania 4 review, part 1 here this time around, and maybe we'll bring you back for part 2 if time permits.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun, and of all the matches to get to comment on, I'm glad it was this one because there was some fun stuff there, especially with Bob Uecker being involved. So
absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Gene, for joining the show. Oh, man, it was great to have Gene here as part of the show and do the Battle Royal. That went exactly as planned. Had a great time between the Bob Uecker Soundbites and Gene live right here on the program. But we're going to continue on here with WrestleMania. As up next, we get a Coliseum video exclusive. Craig DeGeorge standing by in the quote-unquote locker room of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
All right, thank you very much, Gorilla and Jesse. And we are in the plush locker room of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Virgil alongside me. Of course, moments away now for the big matchup against Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the first step in your parade in the championship tournament.
Well, little man, I have graciously allowed you and the rest of you penny-pinching peons out there the opportunity to come into my locker room and take a look around and see what true class really lives like. That's right, it's something else. You'll never find the $1 Million Man in some stinking, dingy locker room with a bunch of bubbling buffoons. I have too much class, character, and dignity to lower myself to that level. This is a locker room fit for a king, and a king I will be today. Today, I will be the undisputed World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion.
Let's get into that in a little more detail now. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the first step, and of course you know about the next one after that, if you get by, Hulk and Andre.
If, little man, let me tell you something. Hacksaw Jim Duggan is probably the lowest class of all of them. And he steps in the ring with me, he is just stepping in way over his head, and there is no if in my dictionary, little man. I graciously allowed you to come in here, and you're disputing what I say. As far as I'm concerned, this interview is over, and I'm going to go take care of business right now.
All right, Mr. DiBiase, thank you very much. Right now, let's get to ring announcer Howard Finkel with more on the tournament and the rules.
So DiBiase and Virgil standing by there with DeGeorge in what they call a palatial locker room. Looks more like a fancy hotel room there. Plants and everything laying around. As DiBiase states, Hacksaw Duggan is the lowest class of them all. Everyone involved in the tournament. DiBiase draws, well, in real life, his good buddy Jim Duggan for the first round. And as the action continues on, we see Donald Trump seated ringside, front row center, facing the hard camera. And on Donald's right, we see wife of Vanna, who would rather be anywhere else but WrestleMania, it would appear. Unless you're really straining your ears and purposely listening to Howard Finkel explain the tournament rules in the backdrop to Gorilla and Jesse speaking, you'd never know the time limits here for the tournament. This tournament has time limits, guys. Makes sense. We can only go 4 hours. First round, going to get a 15-minute time limit. Second round, quarterfinals, I do believe he said 20. The semifinals with a 30-minute time limit, and the finals are to a positive finish. No time limit for the finals here tonight. And speaking of the championship tournament, before we jump into the first round, let's bring back Jammie Ward to share with us more of his first-hand memories of some of the round one action. Thanks for joining us again, Jammie.
All right, thanks for having me again, Ray.
All right, we are getting ready to go here. Round number one of the WWF Championship Tournament. From Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous out here first, it's Robin Leach, and I don't know why, as he reads the WWF Championship Tournament proclamation off of one of those genius-like scrolls here, using the word whereas to begin every sentence, just a ridiculous amount of times. Whoever wrote this sucked at it, by the way, Jammie, but Gorilla's response pretty much even backs that up here on commentary, as the crowd simply doesn't seem to care about anything that's going on right now. High rollers and wrestling fans alike, they don't seem to care for Robin Leach. Do you remember Robin Leach in the ring? What were your thoughts?
I couldn't believe they actually had him in there. I don't know if it was before or after they did the Ted DiBiase Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you if it was before or after. I would guesstimate after, because DiBiase hadn't been there. Can't say that he wasn't there long enough, but it just seems like
he was there 8 months, because he arrives in June of '87.
Yeah, he starts in the summer of '87 with the vignettes and whatnot. It just seems like they would have built him up a little longer. Things used to take a little longer to get going in that era, but you could be right. It could have already aired at this point.
My dad's a wrestling fan. He knows, as far as the smart part is, he knows what I tell him, but he had his own views, but the behind the scenes stuff, I would tell him different things. But my dad and mom would, every Sunday night, I think it came on like at 8:00 on Channel 17 or 29 of the Lifestyles of Rich and Famous.
Right.
And they would watch it every week. So my dad got it, in his own words, he was tickled pink over seeing Robin Leach.
It would have been cool to hear the voice, obviously a very famous voice of that time period live like that. That would have been pretty damn cool. But looking back on it, man, it just doesn't age well for me. It's like, okay, they have him out here to do what? Just to hand over a belt and read this proclamation. Just seemed like a bit much with all this rich people overtone on this show, because you have Donald Trump basically sponsoring this show. You got all his high rollers sitting around ringside in a quote unquote casino setting, the way they're billing this anyway. And then you have Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous' Robin Leach out here as well. It's almost fitting that Ted DiBiase should win this tournament at this point, right? He should hobnob with these guys.
Exactly. I mean, probably some people were looking at it, hey, this is all laid out for DiBiase to win this thing, because you got the Robin Leach and you got the Donald Trump in the front row at the time.
Yeah, it's his people. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised if Donald had jumped the guardrail and helped DiBiase. Who knows?
I mean, now these high rollers are different than the Vegas high rollers. You're talking more New York, Connecticut kind of high rollers.
You can tell too by the way they're dressed. Yeah, it's a little bit different. They're here for it's like 1930s wrestling. Everybody's in a suit, nice dress. It's not so much having a great time in Vegas. It's more, you're right, it's a little more ritzy, a little more upscale as far as the clientele and the way they're dressed here, the Connecticut type people and things. At least that was my take anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely not Vegas, that's for sure.
Very more snobbish. I've been to Vegas several times with my wife.
Great words.
Yes.
Snobbish, yes.
Well, it is Connecticut after all. Vince McMahon, Triple H, remember that gimmick. But we get going here. Jesse Ventura tries to say something on commentary, but he's thrown off because Hag saw Jim Duggan immediately making his way down to ringside for the opening matchup, which is going to see Duggan take on the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, with Virgil and Andre the Giant in his corner. And right out of the gate, we learn that DiBiase apparently plans to use both Virgil and Andre in his corner here tonight. And we saw what that meant for Randy Savage just a couple weeks before this on Saturday night's main event, Andre and Virgil. Virgil got booted from ringside. Meanwhile, Andre remained, and it was Andre playing the factor causing the Macho Man to lose on a countout. So we could see that play into effect here multiple times tonight as well, with DiBiase somehow managing to have 2 people in his corner.
Everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Apparently, 2 manager licenses out here. Now, in real life, guys, these two, DiBiase and Duggan, they've been friends for a long time. And I'm not sure if they first met in DiBiase's first run in the WWF, because Duggan was doing prelim stuff there at that point, but they definitely worked together in Georgia, as we know, Jamie, back in 81.
That's right.
And of course, eventually they would go on to form the Rat Pack in the Mid-South with Matt Bourne and a couple of very good friends. Now, that's in real life, but back in the Mid-South days, these guys also had a hell of a war against each other once upon a time.
Oh, absolutely. And a matter of fact, when I first saw the revamped tournament,
where they switched the bracketing around?
Yeah. And I saw it was Duggan versus DiBiase. That was one of the matches I was most excited for to see in the tournament. Well, knowing that these two guys had known each other for so long.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be one hell of a match. It wasn't bad. I mean, it's they only had so much time to.
That's one of the problems here, and I do have that in my notes. But on paper, when you look at the first round, maybe the biggest match of the first round, name wise, the $1 Million Man, who was a top main event heel at this point, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who was basically kind of fighting for third place still at this point in time underneath Hogan and Macho on the face side. So it's a hell of a match for the first round.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, and that's years later. The Eric Bischoff used to put the cruiserweights on first, so that people would have a good match. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's probably the thinking here. A lot of people who are more than just your average WWF fan would be attracted to a match like this.
All right, so we're going to get going here. Jesse Ventura teasing Gorilla Monsoon, asking him what he did to win 4 comp tickets for the event. I assume that's what everybody got, because here on commentary, Ventura teasing Gorilla about his 4 comp tickets. Did he sell them? But being so close to home and being where he was in the company, you'd think Monsoon would get more tickets than everybody else. But I just thought that was funny on commentary, Ventura letting Gorilla have it there before we get going with the matchup. It's referee Jack Kruger, Happy Jack in this one, is Hacksaw getting some hoes from the fans. So there are some wrestling fans out there, or as Gorilla calls them here on commentary, yos. Or if Chris Cruz was here, he would call them hey-yos, but I guess everybody hears it differently. As Duggan, he beefed up. Remember back in the Georgia stuff we were talking about, he really beefed up back in 1981, but he sort of trimmed down here for his WWF run, at least in 87, 88.
Yeah, he got himself, especially after the incident with the Sheik.
Yeah.
He was a good boy. He wasn't going to
He was on his best behavior.
Screw up that job. Exactly, best behavior.
Now, he'll beef up again and become the big beefy Hacksaw we all know and love, but here he's trimmed down and he can really move around the ring at this point in time as DiBiase with a surprising clean break to start off the match. But Teddy, he tries a cheap shot on second attempt, but Duggan ready for it, blocking the shots and then unloading on DiBiase, finishing with an atomic drop, sending DiBiase over the top rope and down onto the floor. As you can hear Happy Jack Kruger shout the count, Jamie. You gotta love Jack Kruger. 4, 5. You could never mistake what was going on in a ring when Jack Kruger was referee.
Yeah, I forgot his name. I appreciate you saying that, because when I was watching it back, I'm thinking, I can't remember what this guy's name is. But Jack Kruger with the bad hairdo.
Yeah, and he was a wrestler prior to this. For those who don't know, Jack Kruger actually did jobs right before he became referee here. He was the guy that Kamala put out on a stretcher with the big splash off the top back at the end of 86. He even cut a promo when he returned saying he would never step in the ring with Kamala again. But he even got a push out in Portland doing a Sheik gimmick prior to this as well. But Jack Kruger had been around the block a little bit. I don't know how he got this job, other than I guess, from my understanding, him and Rick Hunter, they worked the referee here for Kruger, and then Hunter kept doing jobs way into, it seemed like he's 50 years old, but I guess because they were part of the ring crew.
Yeah, Hunter was around forever. I swear he was doing jobs in 1998.
It's possible. As Ted DiBiase got to re-enter the ring here while Jack Kruger laying on the count, but soon runs into a hacksaw clothesline. Tough guy, followed by the 10 punches of doom in the corner. Finally, Duggan runs into the boot in the face in the corner of Ted DiBiase, and finally the $1 Million Man going to take over in this one as Ted lands a stiff clothesline and comes off the middle rope with a standing elbow, and then is patting his fist drop. Going to get him a 2 count. DiBiase, however, telegraphing a backdrop, and Duggan counters with a sunset flip. You know, the first time I saw that, I won't say I popped, I couldn't believe it. Jim Duggan busting out a wrestling move. Even Jesse Ventura on commentary. Jim Duggan with a wrestling move?
You know what? Jesse was on his game. This may have been his best outing ever.
You know, I was going to say, and I was going to save it for later.
A major pay-per-view.
But I'll say it right here. there are more sound bites. And I didn't realize this till I just, did the review and did all my notes. There may be more sound bites out of this wrestling. There were better WrestleManias that these two were at. Don't get me wrong. But this may be the one with the most sound bites that everybody can relate to if you watch during this era. These two were on their game all night, Jesse and Gorilla.
Oh, yeah, this was, while I always thought Heenan and Gorilla were better together.
Oh, yeah.
This was their greatest night together, these two guys.
I always preferred Gorilla and Ventura on the pay-per-view, but I love Bobby and Gorilla, obviously on Primetime and even on Wrestling Challenge. I didn't mind them doing TV stuff, but when it got to the pay-per-views, and it wasn't bad in the early 90s when Bobby and Gorilla got together on pay-per-view either, but man, I don't know. It was something about Jesse and Gorilla. Shit got real when those two were out there for a pay-per-view, I always thought.
And, Jesse was over. Yes, he was a heel, but as you'll probably cover with someone else a little bit later on, when he gets up on the desk and poses, and they announce him to the crowd.
I've heard people refer to that as the loudest pop of the night.
That was deafening. It was louder than when Savage wins at the end. Spoiler, but the
crowd was probably dead by that point. That's probably why.
A smart move, bring it back to life.
Oh, man.
It worked for me. I mean, I always loved Jesse, and I wish I could have had like a radio in my ear as I was watching the show live, just so I could hear him.
Yeah, it's that's the one shame about being there live is you don't get this great commentary, but you get to go back and watch it later. And again, just an amazing job all night by both guys. I mean, they were really on their game here for this one in an era where you only got to do this, at this point, a couple times a year. Gorilla and Ventura working together, man, and they were ready to roll. As Ventura can't believe it, like I said, Duggan busting out a sunset flip, only going to get himself a 2 count, though. Hacksaw then reversing a suplex, catching Dibiase coming off the middle rope with a punch to the gut, and Teddy takes that awesome flip bump that he used to do. Always loved that when Dibiase, you knew he wasn't going to connect, and Duggan lets him have it right in the abdomen. Dibiase taking the flip bump to the mat as Hacksaw down in the 3-point stance, looking to put away Dibiase for good with that clothesline when he's tripped up from the outside by Andre the Giant. And Duggan then immediately turning around, grabs hold of the Giant, but Dibiase from behind with a knee to the back, while Andre simultaneously clocks Duggan with a punch to the face. And I'm pretty sure Jack Kruger saw that, but I guess he wasn't supposed to, Jamie. So Duggan, he takes the shot from Andre and the knee from Dibiase and the kidneys all at the same time. Down goes Hacksaw, and Ted following up with that falling fist drop to make the 1, 2, 3. Match only goes 5 minutes and 2 seconds as Dibiase will advance to the quarterfinals. Jim Duggan eliminated early, as we knew one of them had to be, but I would have liked to have seen these two go at it in the quarterfinals. But again, like you talked about already, these matches were made before the brackets were flipped around.
Yeah, exactly. And it is the proper finish to have Dibiase, while not clean, have him pin Duggan in this situation.
And to have Andre get involved because it's a foreshadowing things to come later in the night.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But I'll say this much. I would have liked to have seen this take place in the quarterfinals, Duggan and Dibiase. Like, what's to stop Duggan from going over on Dino Bravo in the first round and Dibiase going over on Muraco? It wouldn't have hurt anybody involved. I'm just nitpicking here, obviously. And again, when they came up with this match, the brackets were completely different as well. But it is what it is. Too short to be good of a match, but it wasn't bad either. But just insane amount of matches scheduled for this show. You talked about it causing some of the matches that may have been good cut a little short.
See, going into it, like I said, I had never seen a tournament live, so I didn't even think about matches going to be short. I was thinking some would be short, some would be long.
Right.
I had no idea that every match was going to be short.
Well, there's one match that wasn't short that needed to be out. We'll get to that before you leave.
But if they didn't have them shorter matches, I'd probably still be sitting there watching it 40 years later.
That's very possible. As we continue on, we know Dibiase advancing into the next round. Before we head back to the ring, though, it's Mean Gene Okerlund standing by with Brutus, the Barber Beefcake.
All right, Brutus, the Barber Beefcake. Please, you've already given me my haircut. Brutus, take a look at this. Brutus, this is incredible. What a package. Where do you buy these clothes? Where do you get something like this? What is that, fishnet?
You don't get these down on the boardwalk, brother. It's beefcake. It's Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And I know you won't forget that, honky-tonk man. You'll never forget that. After tonight's all over with and done, I will be the new champion.
What about Jimmy Hart, the mouth of the South manager for the Intercontinental Champion? He has interjected himself into one of the Honky Tonk Man's matches more than once.
Yeah, he's interjected himself, and I've got the fine steel blade honed to the sharpest edge. And it's ready and waiting for Jimmy Hart if he was to get in the way of these blades. Snip, 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 a little off the side, a little off the top.
Oh.
You never know, it could happen to you.
All right, so here it is. Tonight is the Intercontinental Championship match. The Barber taking on the Honky Tonk Man. He says when everything is over, all said and done, he will be the new champion. Hey, he rhymed, Jamie. Wonder if Lanny Poffo wrote that for him.
Very possible.
So the Barber, and just in the last few weeks, he's really fine-tuned his look, his gimmick. He's got the hair. It's a little more longer now. It's a little more puffed out. He looks more like the Barber we would know over the later 80s into 1990 now. He's really got a little bigger in the body as well.
He's somebody who I never thought was going to get over as a face. You know, it had been a year since WrestleMania 3 and the turn. Right. I didn't think he'd get over. I thought he would just wind up being one of those guys you get pushed down the card and you wind up forgetting about him. But I guess being Hulk Hogan's little brother.
Well, that'll do it. That was the story, right?
Once in a while.
It does. But you got to admit, people just love that Barber gimmick. They loved watching the job guys get their hair cut. The Pops, they told a story.
Oh, yeah.
Evil fans. How about that, too? Beefcake cutting that promo there with Mean Gene. But how about that brand new backdrop that we're going to see for the next few months here on WWF TV for the local promos and whatnot? The map of the world, maybe some continents, the ocean back there behind the scenes. I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that background. Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was a little different. We don't get it for too long, but it's cool while it lasts as we head back to the ring for the next match. Whoever wins this one going to be taking on the $1 Million Man. It's Rock Don Muraco with superstar Billy Graham in his corner, taking on the Canadian strongman Dino Bravo with Frenchie Martin. And the referee for this one, a very young Jimmy Corderas here, as the first match of the tournament had no entrance music. This match features both Bravo's new French anthem as well as Jesus Christ Superstar for The Rock. Heading to the ring, of course, taking Superstar Graham's music there. It's like looking in the mirror, though, across the ring from each other with all the roids in the ring right now. But you got to admit, Jamie, the edge has to go to Muraco because of his hoses, dude. Look at the hoses in the chest of Muraco.
I mean, he was ripped here. He was definitely taking the special vitamins.
I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that, even on bodybuilders. I don't know what that is going on up there, but I posted pictures, and people say what I've thought for years. It's amazing out of everybody that's alive that somehow he survived that.
Yeah, really. I mean, hell, it's a perfect pair, him and Billy Graham. God knows what they did before, after, and during the show.
Good call. Good call. As the bell sounds, Don Muraco driving Dino back in the corner, then delivering a scoop slam on the massive Canadian like a feather. Literally clean jerked Dino Bravo into the air and dumped into the mat like a baby.
You see the difference in Muraco. Mm-hmm. He's not as agile as he was around 79, 80, 81.
Sure.
He's not. But Dino Bravo.
Oh, my God.
I remember when I first started watching in around 78.
Right.
And that guy could throw drop kicks. And
yeah.
I like that Dino Bravo.
Me too.
Even when he first came back and he was the WWF Canadian champion.
Right.
On the All-Star Wrestling shows. Mm-hmm. He could still work, but once they put him with, I don't know if it was Johnny Valiant disease or something.
Johnny Valiant, I love it. I need a new T-shirt. Johnny Valiant disease.
You know, him and look what happened to Valentine when he went with Johnny Valiant.
True that.
It just went down the hill for Bravo. And by the time they get him with Frenchie Martin, who, I mean, I knew who he was,
right.
Pierre Martel.
Right.
But I thought that gimmick was just the pits. And there was no doubt in my mind that who was going to win this match. I mean,
And it still didn't play out the way I wanted it to, but we'll get to that at the end. But yeah, I think Dino Bravo was the definition of muscle bound here for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, that is an excellent analogy also, right? Very muscle bound, yeah. He was so big he couldn't move.
So the Rocco, he winds up going up to the middle rope, looking for a Vader Bomb pump splash here, channeling his former partner, Cowboy Bob Orton. But Dino, out of position for the move, and Muraco, he kind of has to try to adjust his body in midair on the way down to land the spot, and it comes off pretty sloppy. Gorilla defends it by saying that Muraco must have slipped on the ropes. As Dino Bravo, though, runs into a backdrop by The Rock. Muraco whiffing on an arm drag, taking a bump to the mat. Dino going to capitalize on the fallen Rock by planting a pair of big elbow drops there. Then it's a gut-wrench suplex by Dino that follows, whipping Muraco from corner to corner. Gorilla and Jesse then going to spend most of the matchup arguing about that damned bench press record from the Royal Rumble. Jesse swearing, "I only put 2 pounds of pressure on the bar, Gorilla." To which Gorilla asks, "How could you possibly know exactly how many pounds of pressure you use, Jess?" To which Jesse responds, "When you've been lifting as long as I have, Gorilla, you know exactly how much." Just fun banter between the two. It saves the match anyway, at least for watching at home.
It made it very palatable when I watched it back.
Well, it's like you said, Jesse was on his game. A lot of the
matches, the whole show, Jesse saves the show.
He does.
Live is one thing. You're not hearing that, and you're watching it, and just like any live show you go to, you have your ebbs and flows, and there's no announcer to save you. At least Jesse was there to save the people watching on television.
Absolutely. If you just kind of zone out on the match, not that it was the worst match of all time, but if you just zone out and listen to these two, it's like heaven, man. You can just kind of go to sleep to this. As Jesse talks about only using his 2 little pinkies to help Dino Bravo with the bar as we go back to the action. Dino missing a running high knee in the corner, and the Magnificent One then begins to work over Bravo's leg, kicking Dino's leg out of his leg here. Spinning toe hold applied by The Rock as Frenchie Martin trying to climb up on the apron, but he has second thoughts when Billy Graham comes walking around the corner. Dino finally escapes the toe hold by kicking Muraco off, and Don with his infamous head caught in the rope spot, the same spot that Mick Foley will use years later, get his ear ripped off in WCW. But Muraco, he did that often as a heel, and I guess he just wanted to get that in here because it was WrestleMania, Jamie.
Yeah, it's one of his patented spots. So,
right.
Yeah, he definitely had to get that in. Whether he was a face or not, he had to get it in.
I was going to say, that's not really a baby face spot per se. I mean, unless you have the heel go over there and hook you in it, I could see that. But the way Muraco used to do it, it was great for a heel. You want to pop for it.
Exactly. And you're waiting for the good guy to come over and
right.
pound him while he's caught. And hopefully he breaks his neck while he's...
or gets his ear ripped off.
Or gets his ear ripped off.
Well... It certainly didn't get the response here that it deserved. I'll tell you that much, Jamie. This crowd not really popping for Muraco and his head caught in the ropes, but he does get freed as Dino Bravo going to take control, delivering a pile driver, but he's slow to cover, and it only gets a 2 count. So Bravo sets The Rock up for a second pile driver attempt, but this time Don going to counter with a backdrop. Both men back up as we get the old Big Hoss double clothesline, taking both men down, but only briefly, thankfully. Then both men back up, trading punches immediately. They must have got the go-home signal from Tony Gurria there at ringside, Jamie, because Muraco wins the fist fight, rocking Bravo against the ropes, then plastering him with a flying forearm. The Rock then setting Dino up for his second forearm, but this time Bravo yanking the referee in his path. Muraco blasting Corderas with a flying forearm, sending the ref down, and as Don checks on the referee, Dino from behind, landing his patented side suplex, Jess. And Dino Bravo going to make the cover. Jimmy Corderas, holy shit, it's a miracle, Jamie, recovering from a Muraco forearm. Unbelievable. He manages to crawl over and tap Dino Bravo on his shoulder. Bravo jumping up, celebrating with his manager, Frenchie Martin. They believe they won the match. I didn't see a 3 count. Could Muraco have been disqualified for hitting the referee? No, we learned that Jimmy Corderas, he may be young, but he's not stupid. He realized that Bravo pulled him in the way, disqualifying Dino in the process. Don Muraco going to score the win here, 4 minutes and 53 seconds.
Well-deserved win for Don Muraco in that one. I think that was Vince paying back Muraco for his years of service.
I just assumed that it was Vince paying Muraco back for getting on the gas the way he did here, looking the way, oh, that looks great, pal. I love the hoses.
I'm sure that
advance to the quarterfinals.
He wasn't paying Billy Graham back because Billy Graham did nothing but steal money from the time he came back. I mean,
my God,
it was Vince's fault for hiring damaged goods.
Right.
He never got it. His money's worth out of Billy Graham.
I'll tell you what, for everybody that wants to, give Vince crap for what's going on right now, I'm totally in support of that. But going back there and all the complaints that Billy Graham made over the years off and on, I got to say, they did everything they possibly could to keep this guy in business, with the company. From wrestling to this managing spot. When that didn't work out, they gave him a job as an announcer, which was not very good either. So he's going to hang around here for the rest of the year.
And when he turned up on that Donahue show that time, right. I was shocked Billy Graham was on there.
Well,
because I thought he was firmly in McMahon's pocket from there on out, it was a love-hate relationship.
Right. He loved him every time he had a job, and he hated him every time.
Exactly.
He did. Yeah. So Don Muraco is going to go on to meet the $1 Million Man in the quarterfinals in the top bracket. Thus begins the inexplicable refusal of Vince McMahon to job Dino Bravo out on pay-per-view by pinfall for the next couple of years.
Those two results should have been reversed. It should have been Duggan protected,
right?
Not Dino Bravo. I mean, yes, Duggan outside interference does the job, but it should have been the other way around.
No, I agree. And again, I would have just flip-flopped the matches. I would have gave Dibiase Muraco, since he's going to work him anyway, and gave Duggan Dino Bravo here. Not that it would have been a good match, but I think the right people would have advanced. Also, at the same time, I agree with you. Like, it would protect Dino or Duggan over Dino, but at the same time, I think they wanted to build the credibility of Dibiase up, and also the whole point of what Andre is as a factor at ringside. So I get what they were going with there, but I do agree with you also. Both ways win-win, I guess, as far as the booking in the Dibiase match. But here, at least Muraco advances. That's all I can really say about this. Is Dino Bravo going to screw himself out of advancing in the tournament so early in the match as well? It felt like a primetime finish to me. I mean, the fucking world title is on the line, and you're yanking the referee in front of a fucking forearm.
Yeah, this is more like a Spectrum or an MSG finish.
There you go. So I don't know what I've ever when I've ever actually sat through this match and studied it before. Probably never. And it's never been something that intrigued me for obvious reasons. But honestly, it wasn't really that bad. Of course, now 5 minutes in, the guys looked like they were getting gas. So it probably couldn't have went a whole lot longer. I still would have liked to have seen Muraco get a pin here. Like you just said, it would have been a lot better. But no reason to start the non-finish horse shit this early on the show, I thought. Like, what's it going to hurt Dino Bravo to do a job?
And now you're 2 matches in and 2 screw jobs in.
But such was the 1980s WWF. Don't job a guy unless you absolutely have to, pal.
Very true.
As we head backstage, it's not Mean Gene Okerlund. Instead, it's Bob Uecker standing by with the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man, and his manager, the Colonel, Jimmy Hart.
Me and Vanna's going to take a little walk around the convention center here. Hey, Jeff, sorry, buddy boy. You guys fooled me last year. This year I got new contacts. I know who I'm looking for this year. You didn't get me too good last year with Moolah. Not at all. Burned me up a pair of shoes with...
Come on, Honky, big deal, Vanna White, right, baby?
Looking for Vanna White. I don't think you're looking for Vanna White at all. I think you're looking for something else down here. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I know what you guys are talking about. I'll tell you what you guys are looking for and what you're going to find very shortly. Brutus the Barber Man, the guy who takes care of me. Do I look good or not? And you better look out, buddy boy. You're going to be losing some locks a little while. In about, I would say another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah,
you want to try to be funny? Yeah. Why don't we talk about somebody's lifetime batting average or something, trying to make jokes out here? This is serious business to us. We're talking about the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. We're talking about cutting somebody's hair. You're going to get it, Brutus. Shake, rattle, and roll. I don't care if I have to backstroke up the Mississippi. Woo! You guys ain't never coming to my house. Back to you, Gorilla and Jess.
All right, there it was, Uke, claiming that he just had a word with Vanna White off camera, and they have plans for later tonight, Jamie. He said that they got him last year with the Fabulous Moolah, but he has new contacts this year, and he can see the woman that he's going after now. Uke teasing the idea that Honky Tonk Man and Jimmy Hart could be losing some of their hair here later tonight against Brother Brutai. Honky says that he'll backstroke to Mississippi before he loses to the Barber here tonight. And if Uecker wants to get funny, let's talk about his lifetime batting average. Uecker, though, informs them that they're never coming to his house. Back to ringside. I wrote, wow, what a fucking natural at everything he does here, Bob Uecker.
Uecker got it. And if all of a sudden he had a lifetime ban from Major League Baseball, he had a second career.
Oh, my God. He had a career in
pro wrestling.
Yeah, and let's not forget, I didn't mention this earlier on the show.
Mr. Belvedere.
Mr. Belvedere. Yeah, now he wasn't Mr. Belvedere, but he was on the show.
Yeah, he was the dad.
The father, right. Yeah, and I used to watch that growing up. I always liked that show, but it doesn't just make me realize how good he would have been here. And I always loved his stuff with Bobby Heenan as well, but just here in wrestling. But anybody that can ad-lib like this, just walk in and ad-lib in a world that they've never really been a part of and didn't really follow to a real deep degree, tells me that this guy could have done anything he wanted to anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he could have, as far as wrestling is concerned, he could have done the Mean Gene job with no problem at all.
He could have done any of these spots, backstage interview. He's certainly already leaps and bounds better than Craig DeGeorge.
Forgot about Craig DeGeorge.
Sorry, Mr. Minervini. As we head back to the ringside, a little Mid-Atlantic throwback here. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat taking on Greg the Hammer Valentine. with Jimmy Hart in his corner. Now, on the Coliseum version, guys, we get an interview with the entire Steamboat family. Damn that Bonnie. He talks about 1988 on the Oriental calendar being the year of the dragon.
Hello, everyone. You know something? 1988 on the Oriental calendar is the year of the dragon. And I'd like to tell everyone out there that this particular year, especially this day, is going to be dedicated to my son.
I do believe that's the Chinese calendar, but whatever. So he dedicates this day and every day forward to his son, Little Dragon. I don't know if that's a great idea, but away we go as Steamboat out to ringside, carrying the Little Dragon with him to ringside in matching karate outfits, by the way. Steamboat showing off his son Richie here, as we'll know him in WWE Developmental anyway. Ventura says that the little boy has cheeks fatter than Bundy, which I thought was interesting because Bundy already gone from the company at this point. But what did you think, Ricky Steamboat bringing a baby out to the match?
I had no problem with it at the time. I had a bigger problem with it 8 months later.
There you go.
In the NWA.
Yeah, boy, that was something else, wasn't it? When Bonnie Steamboat had her hands all over what Ricky was doing there with the NWA.
Yeah, I mean, her and Little Dragon didn't bother me at this point. I actually got a kick out that he brought his kid to the ring. So did my dad that night. We really thought it was funny, but a year later, that was annoying. It was
annoying is an excellent word to use there, because here it's just a one-off for many reasons. We'll get to that at the end of the matchup, but at this point, I didn't know what a Bonnie Steamboat was, so you're right. It made sense to me. Where Gorilla's even, where's the little kid gonna go, Jess? Well, he's gonna go to his mother, Gorilla. No, that makes sense. I get it. Let's work her in. That's totally cool with me. No problem here. It's just, I guess, in hindsight, after I think about everything that goes on, not just in the NWA in '89, but what she does with Ricky later in life as well. In the stories you hear. So
yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, she got her taste here. She wanted more camera time.
She sure did. As this match is unique in that both opponents have competed at all 4 WrestleManias up to this point and in the ring against one another. And it wasn't that long ago, rumors abound that Greg Valentine was unhappy in the new Dream Team. Imagine that, with manager Jimmy Valiant. Again, imagine that. He was just sick of it all, and he was going to head for Crockett country back in the fall of 1987. And Vince, wanting Greg to stay, gave him this reinvigorated singles run here. And honestly, Jamie, up until I started covering this in the end of 87, beginning of 88, I had forgotten, after they split the new Dream Team, that Valentine was actually a fairly decent singles performer for the next few months anyway, after splitting away. Now, later on, Greg going to slow down more so than even Greg Valentine level of slow down, but here he's not so bad. He is reinvigorated. He's trying really hard here.
Yeah, well, that's because he got away from Johnny Valiant at this point.
And Dino Bravo.
Talk
about two anchors.
Right, and he's back with Jimmy Hart. I always heard that him and Jimmy like to party together, so it's, he's reinvigorated, like you just said.
Well, I'll say this, think about all the people, all the smart marks at the time that hated Beefcake and the Dream Team and said, I can't wait for Greg Valentine to get rid of Beefcake. And then they got their wish, and Beefcake's replaced by Dino Bravo. Everybody was longing for Brutus Beefcake to come back to the Dream Team at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked the Valentine Beefcake Dream Team. I thought they were decent.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I would have done other things with the two, but it certainly helped Beefcake, not that he was ever, a mat technician or anything like that, but whatever Greg taught him, at least, it helped further his career more so than whatever we got out of Dino Bravo, who, much like, you were talking about earlier, I was a huge Bravo fan. I didn't grow up and see him during his first run there in the 70s, but, I got the old Coliseum videos, the Tag Team Championship Coliseum video, things like that, and I saw Dino Bravo working and moving around and looking good and throwing those drop kicks, and I became an instant fan, and his tape trading picked up for me in the 90s. I got a little more of him in Montreal in the AWA, and I'm like, wow, man. And you get these fans now who only know Dino from this Bleach Blonde run, and they only know him as the Muscle-Bound Bravo, and I have to defend him. No, he was really good up until around 85, 86 or whatever, but
I get to see some tapes of him in Mid-Atlantic also.
Right, yeah.
And he was much better.
So walking in this one was one of the matches where it was obvious, right, Jamie? It was obvious to both of us who was winning this, right? Ricky Steamboat has to go over.
Oh, yeah, he had to go over in this one. There was former Intercontinental Champion.
Right.
Everybody loved Ricky Steamboat.
And different level of talent as far as the way they're pushed here.
Right, and he just returned, about a month or so before this?
Right, full time, right, yeah, right around the end of January. Like right at when he worked Rude at the Rumble, that was pretty much where they put Ricky back on the road full time for about a month. And then, You notice he's not on the last couple TV tapings and whatnot in March, so obviously by a month prior, he's probably gave out his notice here to Vince.
Yeah, and as you said, the anticipation for the smart marks
right
at this point, Valentine, Steamboat, this is another dream match, kind of like the Dibiase Duggan match.
And everybody's looking at the brackets here, and everybody knows that we're going to see the WrestleMania 3 rematch in the quarterfinals between the Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat. Or so we think. We're going to have to wait and see how this plays out, guys. Is everybody just sitting there looking at the brackets? They're waiting for that match. Steamboat being given Valentine basically hammered that idea home of all the talents he could be in the ring against. Greg Valentine seemed like a shoo-in to defeat. But Valentine, he's coming off of that feud with Brutus the Barber Beefcake as well. Now, Beefer did go over on Valentine on Saturday night's main event, but it was they safe played it there. Beefcake just getting his shoulder up on a back suplex, so he didn't definitively beat the Hammer. So Valentine still looked pretty credible walking into this match.
And, Valentine's another one of Vince's boys, like Muraco. He's been around. I mean, yes, he did leave for a couple times, but he's basically been there a majority of the time since 1979.
Sure. Now, remember, Gorilla Monsoon always likes to say that it takes at least 15 minutes for the Hammer to get warmed up. Well, if that's the case here, they're going to take it to a draw. As we get a little feeling out here to start, leading to a nice running the rope sequence by Steamboat, ending with the Dragon landing a pair of his patented deep arm drags and into an arm bar. Dragon with a hooking kick and some chops gets himself a 2 count. The Hammer, though, coming back, he sees Steamer coming and pitches him, sidesteps him, pitching him over the top rope. But the Dragon going to skin the cat back inside, drop-kicking the Hammer from behind, sending Valentine into the ropes. Ricky looking for a schoolboy, but Greg falls early, so Steamboat has to just jump on top. A little sloppy there, but he makes the cover, gets himself a 2 count. And Steamboat, he goes back on the arm as Jesse Ventura going to send a shout-out to wrestling expert Barry Blaustein out in California. Apparently, Barry has picked the Dragon to win it all. Jesse was good for those shout-outs at WrestleMania. Of course, I want to say hi to Terry, Tyrell, and Jade up in Minnesota, his family. But of course, Barry Blaustein here would go on many years later to produce Beyond the Mat.
Wasn't he Jesse's agent, too?
Yeah, I believe he was.
At one point?
Yeah, I believe so. Obviously, Jesse knew him here in 1988, but it's just kind of funny to hear that name, mentioned and know what he would be famous for later on, the Beyond the Mat documentary.
Yeah, which was groundbreaking at the time.
It certainly was. It's also during this match, and I don't think it's the debut of it, but it's apparently the first time Jesse Ventura ever hears it. Gorilla Monsoon busts out the old, he hit him in the external occipital protuberance, and Jesse just legit pops. Right here, I go, what? What did you just say, Gorilla? Oh, that little bump on the back of his head.
Right in the external occipital protuberance area. That'll knock you out to the middle of next week.
A what?
I'll tell you later.
Can you repeat that again, Gorilla?
What is that?
What you said there, where he got hit.
That little bump on the back of your head.
Ah, okay.
Jesse it was a legit pop there, and Ventura just loved it. It's like, what the hell was that? Oh, that's a real thing. But Gorilla was good for those things.
That's why they were a great team. Gorilla come up with these odd references, and Jesse would just like, what'd you say?
What was that? It was better than Vince trying to correct Jesse with all the double negatives all the time anyway.
Right.
As the action continues on, the Hammer finally cuts the Dragon off, goes to work with elbows and chops, and a falling forearm drop, going to get himself a 2 count there on the Dragon. Greg, he's going to try for an atomic drop, but Steamboat does a little back roll over the shoulder, landing on his feet to escape, driving Valentine into the buckle hard in the corner. Ricky right back to the armbar, though, and the Hammer going to escape with an inverted atomic drop and a clothesline. Drops the Dragon to the mat. Valentine then draping Steamboat over the apron, a la Dick Murdoch, driving a forearm across the throat and chest area. Then back in the ring, Valentine throwing some jabs. Never seen Valentine rock a series of jabs before.
Something new in the repertoire.
It is here. Steamboat, though, he's going to fire back with some loud-ass chops as we get a random shot of Donald Trump in the middle. It's Kevin Dunn produced. Yes, he is produced. Okay, that makes sense. Because Donald Trump shown during an action part of the matchup. They had the option to do this during the armbar segment, but instead they wait until Steamboat's firing up and they cut to Donald Trump just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, well, Donald could have showed more emotion during the show.
As we go on, the Hammer.
You know what is amazing? I'm not going politics here.
Yeah.
But to see the change in him from 1988 to not necessarily 2016, but to 2024, right. You wouldn't know it's the same guy.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah, It's quite a few years as well, but I do get, and I've thought that in the past.
I don't look like what I look like in 1988 either,
right,
but
right.
At least you can see some resemblance. I don't see any resemblance in those two people at all.
No, yeah, there's two different Donalds. Maybe it's like twin Hebners. There were twin Trumps. I shudder that thought. As we get back to the action, the Hammer going to cut Steamboat back off, delivering a nice gutbuster before going to work on the Dragon's leg. And you know what that's a setup for? Valentine looking for his figure 4 leg lock. But Steamboat kicks free, and the two men fight each other with some stiff-ass chops back and forth, which the Dragon wins. As we get the old tree fall bump here by Greg Valentine, probably for the 10th time in the match. By that point, Ricky Steamboat going to make the cover, get a 2 count. But Valentine going to stop the momentum with a good old-fashioned thumb to the eye, and then a shoulder breaker, a la Bob Roop, going to give the Hammer a 2 count. Greg then going up to the top rope. You don't see that every day, but he does do it, and he connects here with a big forearm shot, dropping the Dragon before trying to hook in the figure 4 once again. But as Valentine tries to lock the legs, Steamboat reaches up and chops his way free. Steamboat making the big comeback here, Jamie. You can feel the end is near as the Dragon goes to town. Nice spinning back elbow and a top rope karate chop. Gonna get 1, 2, but the Hammer escapes, and the Dragon going back up for a second time. Could it be? Yes, indeed. The flying crossbody block, but the Hammer using the momentum of the Dragon, rolling over on top. Valentine grabbing a little hook of the tights there, and he's gonna get the 1, 2, 3. Greg Valentine beats Ricky Steamboat. I wrote, wow. Match goes 9 minutes and 10 seconds.
I can tell you I was shocked watching that live. I thought for sure Steamboat was winning or it was going to a draw so Savage wouldn't have to wrestle 4 matches.
Boy, Atlantic City, a gambling city. If anybody could have bet on Greg the Hammer Valentine to win that match, they would have won quite a bit of money.
Yeah, and you know what? Watching not so much Valentine at this point, but you just brought back something to me. You watching a Valentine match anywhere from 79 to 83, even 84. Watching a Valentine match was almost like watching a Ric Flair match.
In a lot of ways, you're right. Yeah, and I could see that, and including, as I picture Hulk Hogan throwing the Hammer off the top rope, kind of Ric Flair style as well.
Right, they used many of the same maneuvers because they tagged together for all those years.
Yeah,
they picked up a lot of their idiosyncrasies from each other.
Yeah, the figure 4 and everything on down the line.
And it's just a shame we never got to see a WWF Valentine Flair feud.
And I just remember, my cousins, my brother, they would get to see this on Coliseum Video when it first came out, rent it from Blockbuster or the local video stores at the time, and I would watch it with them for their first time. And they were everybody knew Ricky Steamboat was going over, and then Valentine wins, and they all just look at me like, what? Like they couldn't believe it. We'd never really discussed it. And why? It was like 2 different worlds because Steamboat was up here, former IC champion, semi-main eventer. Greg Valentine hadn't seen that in years here in the company. And so it was certainly a shock. And Ricky going to argue with Dave Hebner after the matchup about having his tights pulled, but he quickly gets over it. I was eliminated. Ricky looking towards the crowd, dropping down to one knee, giving the I love you sign, kind of like Roddy Piper WrestleMania 3, and Steamboat waving to the crowd. And we wouldn't know what that meant at the time, but it actually meant Steamboat's final night in the World Wrestling Federation. He won't be back till 1991 when he comes back as a real-life, fire-breathing dragon, Jamie.
Right. He didn't even get credit for being Ricky Steamboat on that trip.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but he kind of argues with Dave for about 10 seconds. Hey, he pulled my tights? No, nothing? Okay. And he just kind of tells everybody goodbye. Ricky Steamboat gone from the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, it was sad. Like you said, all 4 WrestleManias he had appeared, and then no more Ricky Steamboat.
So we know now we are not going to get that Savage Steamboat match in the next round, even if Macho Man were to win here in the next bout. So it looked like maybe in the quarterfinals we're going to get a pair of rematches from WrestleMania 3, the 2 biggest matches. Hulk and Andre, we already know that, and then Savage and Steamboat, but that one's taken from us. And for obvious reasons, Bruce Pritchard has said they didn't really want to do a baby versus baby match. They were a little worried about who was going to get cheered, who was going to get booed, but I don't buy that, really. I think it's just Steamboat is on his way out, and this is where we're at.
Yeah, I don't even know how much pull Pritchard had at the time because he was just coming over from Mid-South and the purchase of the Paul Bosch Houston circuit. And from what I remember reading back at that time, the name Bruce Pritchard wasn't jumping out at me until we got into the Brother Love days. I think that's where he first started getting a lot of influence.
Well, I don't know where the influence starts, but he's already producer of Primetime Wrestling. Joel Watts does it for a little bit there, and then Watts quits professional wrestling. He leaves the company, and at that point, Bruce takes over there near the end of 87 as producer of the Primetime show. But I do know that he mentioned something around September, October of 87, kind of hanging around for the meetings. I don't know that he was actually giving anybody any input, but he was certainly there. So as you said, he's probably slowly becoming involved, lending some ideas and whatnot. But I don't know how deep he was here at WrestleMania. I do know he was at the curtain, working the curtain here and whatnot, though. So he was keeping time, which he did for the Rumble as well. So he's certainly earning his stripes pretty quickly.
Right. I do remember seeing him at the curtain, watching the show back. And Pat Patterson was very prominent at the curtain, too.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, yeah. But, I've also, I've listened to some other podcasts in the past, and I don't even remember who it was. They've discussed this before, the potential Savage Steamboat match in the quarterfinals, and some people say, everybody expected it. And I've heard other people say, nobody expected that. Nobody thought that was going to happen. That's just hindsight. And I don't know about you, man, but it seemed pretty obvious to me at the time growing up and living that. That's what I thought was coming.
I mean, that's what I thought that night. I thought we were going to get Steamboat Savage too.
And people ask, well, how would you work that? 2 baby faces, Steamboat's leaving, you don't want people to heel out Savage. I don't think that was going to happen. You fast forward King of the Ring 93, Bret and Perfect. They had an excellent babyface versus babyface match. Hitman goes over. Nobody got booed. And I think we could have done that here as well. It was Savage with an inside cradle or something along those lines, and you just go home.
Right. It's not beyond the realm that they could have gone that way, because look at the Battle Royal that opened the show with Bad News Brown and Bret Hart.
Right.
Bret was still a heel.
Right, yeah. In fact, that certainly aided, in his turn that's upcoming here in 1988. Nevertheless, thank you, Ricky Steamboat, for everything you did here over the last 3 years in the company. He debuted shortly before WrestleMania 1, and he leaves us here at WrestleMania 4 as we get another shot ringside of Donald Trump and wife Ivana, who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else at this point. And we're not even an hour into this pay-per-view, so I can't wait to see what she's like later on here. We got a fun story after the Jake match that I'll share with everybody as we go off now to Mean Gene Okerlund, standing by with the British Bulldogs, Coco Beware, and she's back, Matilda.
All right, she is back. I am talking about Matilda. Matilda back after being dog-napped by the Islanders and Bobby the Brain Heenan, I beg your pardon. And as I understand, Coco Beware and the British Bulldogs, you've had Matilda in some very special training. What about it, Dynamite?
That's right, Mean Gene. Matilda's been through some very vigorous training, special training, and she's been doing a lot of hard work. Isn't that right, Davey boy?
That's right. Mean Gene, she's the only certifiable weasel dog in the world.
Whoa, wait a minute. Weasel dog? What are you talking about, a weasel dog?
The weasel dog. And we're going to take Matilda weasel hunting for Weasel Heenan.
Weasel hunting?
That's right, Mean
for
Gene.
Bobby Heenan. What about a test?
Oh, yeah, Mean Gene. You see, I smell. I smell, that's right. I smell a weasel hunt, brother. And Matilda smell a weasel hunt. That's right, Bobby Heenan. Get ready, brother, because the Birdman is fired up and the Bulldogs is fired up. Matilda, I want you to eat his lunch, okay, baby?
I thank you very much. British Bulldogs, Coco Beware. Matilda, it's got to be revenge for you against the Islanders and Bobby Heenan. I can hardly wait. Wow.
All right, so Matilda's been through some special training, says Dynamite Kid there. She's now a certified weasel dog. She's going weasel hunting tonight, Jamie.
That was the highlight when I found out Matilda was going to be at WrestleMania 4.
That was the ticket seller for your father. Tell the truth.
Absolutely. The moment I saw that, I said, Dad, thank you. I finally get to see Matilda live and in person.
Well, you are a dog lover, so I totally buy that story.
Yes, I am. But Bella didn't make an appearance tonight. For those that were looking for Bella to talk, Bella's in bed already.
Well, good night, Bella. So this is where on the Coliseum video version of the pay-per-view, we get bonus feature of Craig DeGeorge, who claims to be in a locker room. It looks more like a hotel hallway, which probably is, as we witness a courier deliver a package to the door of one Bobby the Brain Heenan. Heenan even breaking his usual character here to tip the fellow courier, very unlike the Brain.
Wow.
As DeGeorge wants to know, what's in the package?
Hi, Mr. Heenan. Craig DeGeorge.
Off here. I know who you are. I know who you are real well. Turn these lights off right now on this camera.
If I could, Mr. Heenan, we got a word that there was something pertaining to your WrestleMania match, something obviously significant being delivered. We just want to know what's in the box, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Heenan. None of your business what's in the box. Don't go away, young man.
Here you go.
Thank you very
I
much.
don't mean to be intrusive at all, but...
I don't know why you're here. What's in this box belongs to me. And it's mine for my own personal use. It's none of your business. I told you to turn that camera off, Joker.
It's a big deal here. We don't mean
Is there security around here?
No, we don't mean to upset you or anything, Mr. Heenan. We just wanted to...
Well, what's in that box is my business. Not your business or anybody else's business. WrestleMania is sold out. There's millions of people watching. You got millions of people all over the world. Concern yourself with somebody else. Wait in the lobby for the next mail ship to come.
Hiding something from
Not hiding nothing. I don't have to hide anything. You can hide no. Why don't you hang around the lobby when somebody walks in with a package? Follow them up the back stairs and sneak in and look and see what's in their package. You don't have to.
I didn't mean to upset you. I'm sorry, Mr.
Well, you
Heenan.
did upset me. None of your business. You want to know what's in this package?
Would you tell us?
Sure.
Bobby refusing to say anything here. So stay tuned for that, guys, into part 2 of WrestleMania 4. We'll talk about that next week on the Grenade. But now we head back to the ring for our next matchup. It's the Macho Man, Randy Savage, with the lovely Miss Elizabeth, taking on the natural Butch Reed with the Doctor of Style, Slick. And we get a little jive soul bro dancing right away from Slick and the Natural in the ring, as it's the first appearance of the night from the Macho Man and Elizabeth, rocking a color-coordinated blue attire with beautiful jewelry, diamonds around the neck of the lovely Liz. Really expensive looking at that. Reportedly, they got those on loan from some of Trump's people.
Great move by Vince, if that's a true fact. I mean, they knew how to push Elizabeth, and they did it perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm not big into jewelry or anything like that, but throughout the entire night, she'll change up, as we know, her costume and her jewelry. But this first one she comes out with in the blue, man, I don't know what the net value of this necklace is, man, but holy shit.
Yeah, they spared no expense for this WrestleMania.
No, they well, I mean, I don't know that they paid anything for these ice around the neck of the lovely Liz, but
it was probably Ivanka's, and Donald just reached in the jewelry box and said, "Hey, Vinny, can you use some of this?"
So we'll get on with the action here. The Natural, a little strutting and flexing pre-match, and then smashing the Macho Man in the corner before delivering a big fist drop with one of those soup bone right hands, as they would call it in the Mid-South. Butch Reed going to stay on top, but Macho tries fighting back, but the Natural reversing a suplex and dropping a big elbow that barely gets him a 2 count. Savage rolls out to the apron, where Butch Reed going to snap the Macho Man's neck across the top rope, sending him out to the floor. But once back inside, Butch with a big back elbow and another fist drop, this time from the middle rope, a la Jerry Lawler. Reed, however, going to telegraph a backdrop and eat a Macho Man boot to the face. Is Savage back in control with a series of jabs, but runs into a Butch Reed lariat. Nice clothesline there from the Natural. Down goes the Macho Man as Reed going to head up to the top rope. Yep, we're already there, Jamie. Looking to put the Macho Man away with either a diving clothesline, diving shoulder block. Either way, Reed has this one won. But on his way up the ropes, he stops to have some words with the lovely Liz. Reed perhaps taunting Liz, or maybe even looking for a date. Either way, a long, slow climb to the top rope gives Savage enough time to recover. And the Macho Man slamming Reed off the top rope into the middle of the ring, setting him up perfectly for the flying elbow drop. The Macho Man making the cover. Even Jesse Ventura says it's over here as we see the 1, 2, 3. Match only goes 4 minutes and 8 seconds as the Macho Man will advance in a rather short but not offensive match. And it's Macho Man taking on the Hammer in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, this was another smart fan dream match here. Everybody loves Savage. You take this match back 3 years and have it in Mid-South.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it would have been nuts. And, for most of his run here and in Bruce Butch, he's Butch here, that's right.
He's Bruce in Georgia. It's okay.
I'm lost in 81 here.
That's okay.
But Butch Reed, most of this Butch Reed run in the WWF, he's just beat up. You could tell his knees are shot.
I was going to say,
and he's
from
not
the get-go.
what he was.
Right, and I didn't realize that as a kid, right? I loved Butch Reed, and I couldn't understand what was wrong here.
But for this 4 minutes, he was the old Butch Reed.
He was. I mean, he busted his ass for as much as he could here, the 4 minutes that he went here with the Macho Man. But at the same time, it's unfortunate because, like you said, a few years ago, this would have been a main event caliber match. But, I started this project the very first week of 1987. Butch Reed had just came there 3-4 months prior, back in the fall of 86. But it was never the old Butch Reed. We never got that here. There was clearly, from the get-go here, as I started the project, something wasn't right. Something was wrong with the body of Butch Reed, which may explain why he was in Central States, of all places, before coming to the WWF.
And Butch was never allowed to be Butch either on the microphone. Teaming him up with Rufus's kid, didn't do him any favors.
Hey, I liked Slick, but
no. I'm not saying Slick wasn't good, but we didn't get to hear Butch Reed.
I got you.
As much as we should have.
And reportedly, he never cared for this character. He hated dyeing his hair. Apparently, it didn't work wonders for it. I guess it was falling out, and he was having issues with it, and he hated keeping up with the dye job. And sadly, much like Ricky Steamboat, this marks the end of the run for Butch Reed here. So he too gone from the company after this, and oddly enough, they won't wrestle again. Either one of them for the remainder of 1988. Both of them will return to wrestling under George Scott-led NWA in January of 1989. A little weird that it works that way, but it is true. They both finish up here at WrestleMania, and they're both done for the year in professional wrestling. Not sure what Butch goes and does, but he certainly needed time to rehab a little.
Going back to our Georgia 81, when Bruce is there, we're wondering why isn't he getting a push? I guess him and George Scott became friends after that.
Must have been, because, he's going to work for him there later on. But this match, it just... what could have been, like you said, a few years earlier. It's unfortunate. The match only goes 4 minutes. You really can't screw anything up in that amount of time. Butch Reed certainly held it together for that long. It's sad we see him go, but the hint was kind of there. Obviously, he's out here, and you could see the roots. So he wasn't a natural after all.
And the only other comment I have about this match, and it's not even about the wrestlers. I heard Barry Rose today say Missy was the ultimate 80s woman.
Okay, yeah.
It was Elizabeth all the way.
Okay.
All night and all day.
All right. Well,
in my opinion, Elizabeth was the number one woman of the 80s.
Of the 80s. I could. Well, I don't know, man. It's a fight there by 89, but prior to that, I'll go along with you there. Very soon, Missy High going to be
her 85 to 88 run. Elizabeth is at the top. And
I don't know
think anybody can get there.
I don't know what happens here in January, February-ish of 88, but as beautiful as Elizabeth was prior to that, something happens here at the beginning.
I will agree.
And it's like, I've been taking screen cap pictures for a year of Elizabeth all through 87. And all of a sudden, for the last month or two of TV, I'm like, it's as gorgeous as she always was. It's like something, and I'm not implying she had plastic surgery by any means. She still looks this, it's just something happens. She just looks unbelievably beautiful.
Yes. She was at the top of her game. Especially in four different outfits this night. I thought the blue one was the best.
I gotta agree. Yeah, I just liked it myself. I gotta look at the white one again before I make that judgment. But you're probably right.
Even from the audience, I thought the blue one was the best.
Nice, very cool. We're gonna go backstage again. Bob Uecker standing by. Oh man, with Bobby the Brain Heenan and his Islanders.
Hey, with all the excitement and everything that's going on here with WrestleMania, I can't forget my little darling. I've been writing her letters, man. They just haven't caught up to her. You know how they move.
You've been writing Vanna White letters?
Yeah, that's right, buddy boy. And speaking of letters, you're going to get a letter a little later on. All three of you guys, the Islanders, and the Weasel, I might add, the British Bulldog, Coco Beware. And I got a big surprise for you, baby. And I know you know he's here. Matilda's back, and you are in a jam. For what you did to that dog, the ASPC KGBY ought to be on you forever.
First of all, I don't have to take insults from you or anybody else. You talk about people writing in letters. You had over 700,000 votes to get in the Hall of Fame. You'd have had a lot more than that, but you ran out of stamps. So don't tell me any of your garbage.
Yeah.
And as far as some dog putting the bite on me, dragging me out in the sand, and burying me so nobody can find me, you're wrong. See, I got a surprise for everybody. I got my Islanders. Bobby the Brain Heenan. You can take Coco Beware. You can take the British Bulldogs and that miserable mutt Matilda and that bird. Put them all in one package and get rid of them. I got other things to do. Gentlemen, let's get ready.
Yeah? Hey, speaking of smorgasbords, Matilda's going to have plenty tonight. And you Islanders, don't ask me to come back and speak at your outrigger dinner. You guys have had it as far as I'm concerned. Hey, back to you, Gorilla and Jess.
I love the pairing of Bob Uecker with the heels tonight. Mean Gene's got the baby faces. Uecker gets the heels. Makes for some great lines here between the banter of the two sides. And the best one yet to come. Later on, Uecker going to interview Andre the Giant, if you know what I mean, Jamie. But Uecker, he's still infatuated with Vanna White, looking for her. As Bobby Heenan and his men, they sound ready for the upcoming 6-man tag team match later in the night. But right now, Jamie, we continue on with first round action. Bam Bigelow with Oliver Humperdinck taking on the one-man gang with Slick.
Battle of the big men.
It is.
In this one. And I was always a fan of two big guys going at it, whether they could wrestle or not. I like to see what do they say? Two big meaty guys in there.
Well, with these two guys in there, we knew these two could work. So, you expect a little more out of this, but we'll get to that in a minute.
But you like to see two big guys slamming into each other and doing body slams and, nice hard clotheslines.
Right.
But you had the added thing here. Bigelow could do drop kicks.
He could do a whole lot of things, but I don't know that he could do some of those things here. We're going to get to that in just a minute. I go back to my childhood again. I wasn't reading the dirt sheets at the time. I didn't know what an observer was, or I barely understood how, the work worked at that point in time. It was my grandfather that told me, that shit's fake, right? And that was more so just probably try to get me from being obsessed with it, I suppose. But I just continued to watch it every chance I got. No, you go back here.
Bigelow is the perfect example of today. Today you got Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, who are...
You're comparing them to Bigelow?
Dave's guys. Dave was big into Bigelow.
And apparently Sam Houston as well. He predicted him to win that Battle Royal earlier, and I didn't understand it, so it just felt like a Dave thing to do.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, then again, who's Sam's relatives? You got...
Good point.
You got your brother Jake, and Grizzly's working for the company.
Grizzly's working here at this point as well. Good call. Yeah, and Rockin' Robin is also here now.
And Rockin' Robin. I don't think she's the champ yet by this point.
Not yet.
Or was she?
No,
okay.
not yet.
And so Sam makes sense, but Dave had his favorites back in the 80s too.
Right.
The Cornettes, the Brodies, the Funks. All the guys that were feeding him information were the ones that were his favorites. but then again, you had guys like Bigelow, which he just totally latched onto. He was on the Bigelow before he ever became Crusher Yurkov in
Dallas.
in Dallas, or when he first went to Memphis.
Well, we're gonna get going here with this matchup, Jamie. But first, I was referencing, being a kid watching this growing up. I talked about my cousins, my brother. None of us really understood why Greg Valentine went over Ricky Steamboat until you realize, well, Steamboat was leaving the company. Maybe there were other reasons as well. I don't really know. But here, I got to tell you, we didn't understand the finish here. We didn't understand the time this was given. We didn't understand any of this as kids. But in hindsight, and especially now that I've covered it here at length over the last several months of the Grenade Show, Bam Bigelow, he came in like a wildfire at the end of last summer, choosing Humperdinck as his manager. Maybe not the best choice, but defeating everybody in his path along the way there through 1987, even going the distance, being the last man eliminated on Team Hogan at the 1987 Survivor Series, taking out both Bundy and the gang along the way in that match. And it's never embarrassing to say that you lost to Andre the Giant, mind you guys. But Bigelow, he was supposed to be part of the inaugural 1988 Royal Rumble match before going down to a knee injury, blowing his knee out at the beginning of the year and missing that week of action. Back in January, Bigelow missing the Royal Rumble, who maybe likely he was supposed to win. Who knows? But he would return to action the following week, mostly hidden in tag team matches and quick 60-second squashes throughout the month of February. As we've noticed, he's cut back drastically on the standing drop kicks that you referenced, and even the bombs away slingshot splash that he would do from the apron. Now it's just a running off the ropes diving headbutt as of late. But then a couple weeks ago, ironically in a match with Dino Bravo, of all people, on a house show, Bigelow re-aggravated that knee injury, and he was once again out of action for the majority of March here, to where Dave Meltzer said it was a 50-50 chance we'd even see him participate here at WrestleMania. So keep that in mind as Bigelow does show up for the pay-per-view, going to collect that payday.
Yeah, and he has Hump with him. I think the whole thing with Humperdinck, face managers never really got over.
No, that was a fail, and I don't know the backstory to that. I don't understand. Do you know the story behind that?
No, I don't know the story behind it, but after hearing the New Zealand sheep herder story, maybe it was a similar thing. He just brought Hump in to make some easy money.
I'm just trying to think of what Vince had in common with Hump, and then they make him a baby face, man. The token Arnold Scullin with a shiny jacket, basically, because Humperdinck just sits out here. He never gets involved in the matches whatsoever. Never sticks up for his wrestlers when he had Paul Orndorff. But we're going to get going here with the matchup. Heading in, now these guys, they'd already been exchanging words with each other, working some off and on for the last couple of months here on the house shows, doing some singles and tag team matches with each other. So there's a little backstory for this one. And on paper, this should have been competitive and one of the better big man matches you could really ever ask for, certainly back in the late 1980s, as the Gang and Slick in the ring, and we hear that big brass music begin to play the hometown boy, Bam Bigelow, to the ring from Asbury Park, New Jersey. Slick already one man down in this tournament, Jammie. Butch Reed gone, so he's hoping he doesn't go 0-2 here as the bell sounds and the Gang attacks Bam Bigelow, pounding him down in the corner. Gang with a clothesline to the back of Bammer's head and then rushing in but missing an avalanche splash. Bigelow gonna fire back with a tackle that drops the Gang, does a little cartwheel there for the fans who pop, as Bigelow gonna drop I called it a low gravity splash, basically just kind of fell on top of the Gang here, didn't bother to get any height on that splash, and Bammer not really even gonna get a 2 count out of that. Bigelow then running off the ropes, delivering an impressive crossbody block, however, quite a sight for a guy his size, these two super heavyweights smacking in midair, gonna give Bam the 2 count there. Bigelow staying on top with a series of shots and a clothesline to drop the Gang momentarily. Bam with a series of headbutts, taking the Gang back down, and Bigelow running off the ropes, delivering that diving headbutt that he's been using as of late. Nice looking move. And Bigelow seems to be impressing the crowd. He seemed to be one of the guys who are actually super over with this crowd here.
Oh, he's a New Jersey boy.
Well, good call.
I mean, for the schlubs like myself that were there to watch the show, the non-high rollers, local guy.
Well, they've covered Bam's knee injury up for the last couple months. He's been working squash matches, and they've been going pretty damn short. But they've been using his power moves to hide the fact that he can't really do a lot of the aerial stuff that he's been accustomed. We've seen over the last several months here. But now he's in here with the Gang, so he can't do the power stuff or the old agility type stuff here. So he's kind of screwed in between, as this match was booked long in advance. But he's going to give it his all. He's going to head off the ropes again, perhaps for the big splash. But Slickster going to pull the top rope down. Bam Bigelow taking a nasty spill out of the ring and onto the floor. He's going to try to climb back up, get on the apron. And it's at this point I noticed Oliver Humperdinck, he doesn't bother to come around ringside, do anything to Slick, say anything to the referee, or even help Bam Bigelow, just kind of standing over there minding his own business. So, again, I never understood the logic of having Humperdinck out there for these matches. But Bigelow climbing back up onto the apron, brawling with Gang on the apron, and somehow gets counted out in the process. Kind of a weak finish there, not just the count out, but the way it took place, as the Gang going to advance by count out here, 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
And that's about as long as they could go. What is interesting here is Bigelow's a big man, and he's dwarfed by the one-man Gang in this particular match.
Well, to be fair, Gang's also near 7 feet tall on top of his girth. So he's a big boy.
When Vince brought Gang in, I knew he wouldn't beat Hogan, but he was definitely one of the most serious threats to the normal person.
Yeah, I think he was misused more than a lot of the heels that could have been Hogan opponents here. Gang got the house show run with Hogan, and there weren't a lot of pay-per-views back then anyway, don't get me wrong, but even Killer Khan, he got the green mist spot, that aired in certain areas where Hogan was going to work Khan and things like that. So we would see that to set up matches for the house shows, and Gang didn't even get something like that. It was just, he's working the Gang this month at the Garden or the Spectrum or wherever they worked.
Yeah, I liked the match that they had at the Spectrum.
Right. So just kind of an odd finish here. And Bigelow's talked about, he did this on a RF video shoot interview more than 20 years ago. He talked about he had the blown out knee walking into this. He didn't really want to work to begin with. And I'm not saying they forced him because he probably wanted the payday. But he says when he takes that nasty bump over the top rope to the outside, he tried to use his good leg to brace his fall, and he wound up blowing both his knees out at that point. So by the time he got back in the ring, even though he didn't realize it at the time, by the time he got backstage, he was pretty much done.
Yeah, I remember reading about him blowing the second knee out.
So Gang going to pick up the win, and I was never a fan of guys getting counted out on the apron. And you would see that back in the old Vince Sr. days a lot of times. If the heel didn't want to do the job or wasn't going to get pinned, they would get their leg caught in the bottom and middle rope and fall out of the ring and hang there, which I still didn't like for a count out, but Fred Blassie did that a lot. But here, I mean, standing on the apron and Jack Kruger just laying in the count, I just wasn't a fan.
Yeah, it was a weak finish. But again, what's this, the fifth match? And for, quote, screw jobs, the only clean finish was the Savage match?
Well, that's a good call there. And even then, according to Jesse Ventura, Miss Elizabeth distracted Butch Reed to allow the Macho Man to pick up that win. So, depending on who you're listening to.
Oh, that's true. Jesse always told the truth. He told you so.
Well, I think it's safe to say at this point, Jammie, whatever the WWF had planned for Bam Bigelow heading into 1988, it's clear by now that that's been thrown out the window, which is just super unfortunate.
And he becomes another guy that ends up in the NWA by the end of 1988, early 89.
Kind of a weird run there, off and on a couple of times with the NWA promotion. But even worse than all of that, with Bigelow working on that bad knee, blowing out the other knee, we don't even really get to see what he might have done after WrestleMania. I'm not saying he's gone yet by any means, but he's certainly on his way out.
Yeah, I thought this was the end of him. He does come back?
Yeah, we'll see a little bit of him, not a whole lot.
Okay, just basically house show stuff?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I can't really comment if he winds up working
an
some
occasional
TV
probably.
Yeah, but he's not here a whole lot longer, and Humperdinck gone along with him. As we head off now, guys, backstage for another promo. This is a doozy. Mean Gene Okerlund standing by with the former WWF champion. Here is Hulk Hogan.
All right, over the last couple of months, it has been very difficult for me to introduce this man without using World Wrestling Federation champion Hulk Hogan here at WrestleMania 4 this afternoon. You've got the opportunity to change that.
Oh, yeah, it's been hard to live with, man. Fee, fi, fo, fum, Andre. One long year, and your time has come, man. No marks, no scars, no blemishes on the Hulkster, brother. But inside, man, I've been scarred for one long year. Everywhere I go, man, all the little Hulksters ask me, is there any truth to the fact that there was a controversial count? Hulkster, did you really get him over your head? Did you really beat the Giants? Well, today, man, in WrestleMania 4, we're going to wipe all that controversy out. Andre the Giant, in the second round, when you're fresh as a daisy, with the whole world watching, I'm going to prove, brother, that I can beat you anywhere, anytime. And all my Hulkamaniacs, they're going to feel it, too.
Speaking of the Hulkamaniacs, Hulk Hogan, we have seen him here at Atlantic City, and I know millions others are watching very intently all around the world.
But if you looked in their eyes, man, have you seen the fear in all those little Hulksters? They realize that when I get Andre the Giant cinched up in the launch position, when I slam him through the Trump Plaza, brother, from New York down to Tampa, Florida, the fault line is going to break off. And as Andre the Giant falls into the ocean, as my next two opponents fall to the ocean floor and I pin them, so will Donald Trump and all the Hulkamaniacs. But as Donald Trump hangs onto the top of the Trump Plaza with his family under his other arm, as they sink to the bottom of the sea, thank God Donald Trump's a Hulkamaniac. He'll know enough to let go of his materialistic possessions, hang on to the wife and kids, dog paddle with his life all the way to safety. But Donald, if something happens, you run out of gas, and all those little Hulkamaniacs run out of gas, just hang on to the largest back in the world, and I'll dog paddle us, backstroke all of us to safety.
Oh, and thank you, Hulk Hogan. Let's get back to action. Wow.
Unreal, Donald Trump, one of the Hulkamaniacs.
So a memorable promo there as the Hulkster readies himself for Andre the Giant. In the quarterfinals, Jammie says he's going to slam Andre through Trump Plaza as the fault line breaks from New York City all the way down to Tampa, Florida, brother. Apparently half the United States going to fall into the ocean, and everybody can climb aboard the chest of the Hulkster as he backstrokes us all to safety. And Hogan got a backstroke out of the screen. I was never a Hulkamaniac as a kid. I was never a Hulk Hogan fan, but I always loved this promo because he was animated at times, but watching Hogan backstroke out with the ocean behind him, right, too, on top of that, I loved it.
Yeah, I thought Hogan was good until about 89. And for me, at that point, he had jumped the shark.
Super paint by numbers?
Yes.
I wrote, man, this guy was smoking some good stuff here tonight in that promo, talking about slamming Andre through the ground, breaking the fault line, half of the country falling into the ocean, all that great stuff. Donald Trump doggy paddling his family to safety. All that nonsense. So just an interesting promo there from the Hulkster as he readies himself for the big matchup in the quarterfinals. But we got one more match here in the first round, Jammie. The winner of this one going to take on the one-man gang. At this point, we do catch another glimpse of Donald Trump autographing a WrestleMania 4 program for a fan at ringside. But he's in the high roller area, so I'm not really sure the kid needed that signature. I hope he didn't sell it on eBay or anything like that. I'm not sure what it would be worth. But it's kind of odd to see Donald Trump signing an autograph for a wrestling program in 88.
Well, Donald always wants to be a face, and nothing's changed since 1988, except for that brief part where he was telling everybody they were fired on television. That was the only time he was a heel.
Forgot about that.
In his mind.
Right, in his mind. There you go.
Not going political, but in his mind.
You know how much I'm dreading something when I have to throw to a discussion about Donald Trump, but here it is, guys. The final match of the first round, Jake the Snake Roberts taking on Ravishing Rick Rude, two of my favorites of the time. Rude, of course, accompanied to the ring by Bobby the Brain Heenan here. So Bobby, he's going to have to worry about bulldogs and some birds later tonight, but right now going to have to worry about the snake. As Rick Rude now rocking the new, more familiar stripper theme music. As the winner of the Jesse the Body Award back at the Slammies, Rick Rude, with a little lip service here on the microphone before he shows off his body for the ladies. He says the odds are in his favorite. I believe that's favor, but I'll let it slide as he poses and shows off his brand new airbrush tights with a lady figure on it. And Jamie, just to add some context here for you, you haven't really been going along like I have week to week here in 87, 88 WWF.
Rude is this what I think it is?
Well, he did rock an airbrush pair of tights back in January once, but these are far more elaborate. Now, it's not who you think it is on here, but we are heading into that very soon. But it's a hell of a first try for an elaborate pair of airbrush tights. So this is more about just kind of putting over the new look of Rick Rude.
Yeah, I didn't notice the tights when I rewatched it.
Right.
So I couldn't remember if those extra special tights were before this or after this.
They're coming soon. In fact, we haven't seen the angle you're referencing yet. Of course, the upcoming feud between Rick Rude and Jake Roberts was indeed already taped at the tapings prior to WrestleMania, but it won't make air until after WrestleMania 4. So even though we have this match here at the pay-per-view, technically, as far as TV is concerned, this feud hasn't started yet.
So this will help ignite it then.
Well, that's what you want to call it. As we continue on, Jake the Snake Roberts making his way out next. And how about this for context? We get the debut of Jake the Snake's theme.
Oh, is this the first time we hear? I don't remember back to the actual show itself when I was there.
Right.
But rewatching on Peacock, it didn't seem like everybody had theme music coming to the ring.
No, not at well. Dibiase didn't. Duggan didn't. There was quite a few people that still didn't have music at this point in time. But Jake debuts it here, and this was actually used back in the January 88 Saturday Night's Main Event. There was, or maybe it was the main event in February. I don't recall now, but there was a Hulk Hogan workout video. And in the video, they actually used that Jake the Snake Roberts theme. And really? Obviously, I didn't notice that at the time, but years later, when I watched it, I said, wow, that's Jake's theme. And then I realized Jake didn't have music yet, but here he is. He debuts it at WrestleMania IV. A good place to debut.
Yeah, I always liked Jake's theme.
Oh, so did I. And it worked perfectly for him. And of course, as I mentioned, the winner here going to take on the one-man gang as the match starts off. It's at an okay pace to begin things. Rick Rude doing some posing and paying for it early on. Jake managing to counter, respond to Rude's early offense. Roberts eventually grabbing a wrist lock and turning it into an arm bar. As Rude tries to punch his way free, but he can't seem to escape the Snake Man as he finally rams Jake into the corner, forcing the break. Rick placing Jake up on the middle rope as he comes charging in, but Jake jumps off with a old Mr. Wrestling 2 flying knee lift from the Snake Man right off the middle rope there. I wrote, nice, as Roberts looking for the DDT early on, but Rude slides out of it and out to the floor to escape. I wrote, so far, so good in this one. Really 3.5 minutes in, mind you, Jamie, and I want to see where this falls apart, though, because we know it's coming.
Yes, it's just a matter of time.
So Rude back in the ring. We get a crisscross spot from these two. A little unusual for these guys, but Rick runs into a scoop slam from the Snake Man. Jake looking for another running knee lift this time, running all the way across the ring, but Rude going to sidestep, and Jake goes flying upside down in the air, upside down in the corner. Awesome missed knee lift bump there. I loved the way Jake would do that. He didn't do it very often. I remember him doing it, I believe, in Rumble 90 as well, but I love that spot. Jake would just act like he was going to give it so much momentum that when he moved, it sent him upside down.
Yeah, I always enjoyed that spot also.
So Rude going to take over from there, gloating and posing over the top of Jake. Going to do the little hip swivel for the ladies out there, maybe a few of the guys as well. And it's down into a chin lock. And there it is, Jamie. Clock it. 5 minutes into the matchup. As Jake does manage to escape said chin lock a couple of times, but Rude going to hammer him back down with a clothesline, a top rope fist drop, and every time it's right back to said chin lock as Rude is determined, and I wrote determined here in capital letters, to kill this crowd dead, as they're still into the show at this point, thus far, the fans are. But it's not like a normal wrestling crowd. Remember the high rollers around ringside? But they're still involved. We get a lot of noise here early on for Jake in this match. But this goes on, this chin lock goes on for so long that even Gorilla and Jesse have to start trying to find things to talk about to entertain themselves.
If you ask a person today who watched wrestling back in the 80s, but wasn't a hardcore fan, one name they could throw out there, like when I was a kid, I could say Chief Jay Strongbow, Ivan Putski, like that. They're going to say Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and Jake the Snake.
They are, yeah. And, my grandma would call him the guy with the snake, so even she knew he existed.
My mom was petrified of snakes. She wouldn't watch one of his matches because she didn't know when it was coming out.
Well, we knew it was going to come out sooner or later, and maybe we'll see it here. We'll have to wait and see at the end of this one, but Robert's going to finally break free of the chin lock with a jawbreaker and land a series of jabs trying to wake the crowd back up before elevating Rick high into the air with a backdrop, and then he delivers that patented short arm clothesline, all to set up Jake looking for the DDT. As Jake got a hook Rude in that front face lock looking for the DDT, but Rude managed to escape by driving Jake back into the corner. But the Snake Man returning with a gutbuster, Jake hooking a headlock here, and Rude delivering a nasty back suplex, going to get himself a 2 count out of that. Both men then back up, but it's a double clothesline spot, and both men back down. Rude manages to cover Jake with his feet on the ropes, and he's going to get 1, 2, but the bell sounds. As Howard Finkel quickly informs us, this match ruled a 15-minute time limit draw. The match actually goes 15 minutes and 13 seconds. So Jake going to run the heels off here with Damien after the matchup, but I wrote in my notes here, of all the times not to use Titan time, not to shave minutes off, but actually go 13 seconds over, this goes the legitimate 15-minute draw.
Well, maybe if they hadn't messed up the a spot or two, they would have got it, saved those 13 minutes, and it would have been under. But now that you just said it, it reminds me, Jesse, every match, or Gorilla, kept saying, reminding everybody of the 15 minutes
time
in the
limit,
first
right.
Time limit in the first round, and the second round went to 20 or 25. all the way up to the final one was no time limit.
I don't think Jesse knew he was foreshadowing anything here, and I didn't put it in my notes, but I found it funny. As soon as Rude hooks the chin lock, at the beginning of the chin lock, the first thing Jesse says is, he's got to remember he only has 15 minutes, the time limit. And little did Jesse know that of the 15 minutes, we were going to get about 8 minutes of a chin lock here, more than half the match, a chin lock.
Oh, they weren't going to exude a lot of energy in that 15 minutes between those guys. The Steamboat Valentine match should have been the 15-minute draw.
Well, the draw or damn near give them the time to go in the ring over this one, certainly. Give these guys a double count out, a double DQ or something like that if you want to eliminate both guys, because time limit draw, it didn't do anybody any favors, and you'd expect more from both of these guys, but this is 0 for 2 for Rick Rude. He had that 20-minute match with Ricky Steamboat, which was pretty much identical as far as the snooze fest goes. It was constant arm bars and chin locks for like 17 of the 20 minutes back at the Rumble. And here we are 2 months later and we get the same thing. I kind of wish these two had already been feuding on TV, because maybe the action, the psychology of the match would have been a little different, a little more hot and heavy.
Right. And at this point, Rude is okay.
Right.
Where
he's still
in
developing.
a couple of years, he actually does become very good in the ring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think that he gets even better during his feud with the Warrior of all people, but he does learn to work quite a bit. The change from Rude
somebody
here,
has to carry the Warrior.
The change from Rude here in early 88 to early 89 it's quite a change. And I'm not saying he's terrible here.
I agree with that.
He can sell like a motherfucker.
Yeah, he's far from terrible. It's just that his offensive game wasn't quite there. Like you said, he had the selling down. It was just the offense, and his heat was all pre-match for the most part.
Right.
At this point of his career, except for when he does the little swivel over top of his opponent during the match. That's about his best heat spot. But as time goes on, he does become one of the tops in the game.
Now, funny story here that takes place after the matchup. We don't actually see it on TV, but both Jake Roberts and Bobby Heenan have told this story apparently, and this goes on throughout the show. This isn't just their match, but they took exception to this. And if any match, I can't really blame her, but apparently Ivana Trump was not paying attention to the match at all. She did anything but look at the ring during this match. And Jake and Rude, they both took notice of it, and they were both pissed off. It insulted them, I guess. So after the match, we do see Jake Roberts lay Damien down on the apron right in front of the Trumps. But we don't actually see what happens next because we cut backstage for our next promo. But apparently, Jake purposely, intentionally grabs Damien from the apron and swings him around to throw him around his neck. And as he does, he hits Ivana in the face with the snake to get her attention. And I guess Bobby Heenan said he thought at that point in time that was it. We were all getting fired, once Vince got wind of this. But apparently, according to Jake and Bobby, Donald Trump loved it. He thought it was hilarious. Jake said he became one of Donald's favorite wrestlers
that's a
after.
comment.
Yeah. So, but Trump loved it, and I guess became one of Jake became one of his favorite wrestlers after doing that to Ivana. Kind of woke her up there, but I guess he was insulted that she wasn't paying attention, and I'm sure Jake walked out there probably a little inebriated or maybe had some other things going on anyway. He didn't care, needless to say, and I just thought that was a funny story. And since it wasn't just Jake that told the story, but Bobby Heenan as well, I thought it lent a little more credibility. Because we know wrestlers embellish, but when you get it from two sides, a little different.
Yeah, you get a little backup and, it makes it sound better.
Yeah, so we're going to go off now to Mean Gene Okerlund. He's going to talk with Vanna White as they look at the tournament bracket. So Vanna going to play...
Oh, Vanna!
Throwback, baby. So we go backstage, kind of a throwback, too, to the old Wrestling Classic pay-per-view. Remember when they were back there doing that with the tournament brackets? We get Vanna here. She doesn't get to turn any letters, but she does get to talk about the quarterfinals. We get to see everybody who advanced. Mean Gene going to break it down. We know Hulk versus Andre. It's Dibiase and Muraco, Valentine and the Macho Man, and the gang now going to get a bye with Rick Rude and Jake Roberts both eliminated. So 7 men out, 7 men remain, potentially the next WWF champion. As Vanna, she's unsure of who Bob Uecker is here. So the story continues. The backstage Bob Uecker looking for Vanna. Vanna White has no idea who the Uke is. How could you not, Vanna? But for the quarterfinals, Mean Gene going to ask Vanna who she likes.
All right, I thank you, gentlemen. We are at the Championship Elimination Tournament board. It all leads to a new World Wrestling Federation champion will be crowned by the end of this day. I want to bring in, and I know everybody, including myself, and Bob Uecker have been waiting to meet this young lady. She is the most famous letter turner in the entire world. Please welcome Wheel of Fortune's beautiful, vivacious Vanna White. Darling, welcome to WrestleMania 4. And Vanna, isn't it exciting?
It is exciting. I'm having a great time.
All right, let's talk. By the way, I've got to mention, Bob Uecker's been hanging around here. He's been hanging all over me, looking for you. Hey, you haven't seen him, have you?
Who?
Oh, he's going to love that. I thank you very much, Vanna White. Bob, you're very good. Here we go. Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, as you know, Vanna, receiving a bye in the first round. They're going to be kicking it off in round number 2 because of what happened on February the 5th. Who do you like in this one?
Hulk.
You do like Hulk?
I like him. He is so nice. I've been talking to him. He's terrific. I like
Boy,
this
I hope
guy.
you haven't distracted him going into this big match with Andre the Giant.
I don't think so.
All right, Vanna White. Also in round number 2, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, thanks in part to Andre the Giant, has advanced. He is going to be going against The Rock, the magnificent Muraco. Who do you like in this one, Vanna White?
I have to tell you something. I don't know about the $1 Million Man. I don't like anybody buying anything for anything. You know, you have to work for it. I don't like people trying to dish out money to win something.
All right, he tells me that everybody has a price. A surprise here, Greg the Hammer Valentine advancing. He's going to be going against the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Quickly, Vanna.
Randy Savage.
You like Elizabeth?
I think she's terrific. I like that, a woman person behind him. That's what they need, and she's doing a great job, and they make a great team.
All right, and the one-man gang receives a bye in the first round, as you could very well see. Jake the Snake and Ravishing Rick Rude going the full 15 minutes on that one. It is exciting. The Championship Elimination Tournament, part of WrestleMania 4. Vanna White and myself are going to be back with more results a little later on. Right now, let's get back to Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura.
And she picks Hulk Hogan over Andre the Giant. When he asks her about DiBiase and Muraco, I'm sure she has no idea what a Muraco is. So she simply says she's not a fan of the $1 Million Man because he thinks that you can buy anything, and she thinks you need to work for it. I'll leave the irony out of that. She also selects the Macho Man to go over on Greg the Hammer Valentine. Mean Gene says, "What do you think about Elizabeth?" She responds,
"That a woman person behind him."
Well, she loves the lovely Liz. She says she likes a good woman person behind the man. A good woman person. God bless Vanna White.
There's a reason Vanna didn't talk much.
Thank you.
On Wheel of Fortune.
I was setting you up for that line, and you gave it to you delivered.
She didn't like $1 Million Man because he couldn't buy a Val. He bought the whole alphabet.
He certainly did. We're going to have to see what that does for him here in part 2 of the WrestleMania review next time around. Hopefully, Jamie, if we can find the time, I'm going to try to bring you back and cover some of those matches as well. If not, man, I do appreciate you stopping by for part 1 here, covering the first round of the tournament. Had a lot of fun talking with you about your memories. Of course, heading there with your father. And then, of course, the first 6-round matches. As we head on to the final match here in just a couple minutes, guys, going to bring on another special guest for that one, Hercules and the Ultimate Warrior. But first, Jamie, just want to thank you for being here.
As always, my pleasure, Ray. You know I love the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, and anytime you need me, I'm here for you.
I love it, man. I'm going to try to squeeze you in and get you back here for a little bit of part 2 if we can. If not, man, it's been a blast, and hopefully we can talk a little bit more down the line. And hey, there's always WrestleMania 5.
Yes, there was WrestleMania 5.
All right, guys.
I wasn't as excited for that one.
Really? The Mega Powers explode? You were more excited for this?
The one-night tournament. I was pumped. I'd never seen one.
All right.
However, WrestleMania 5, I went. My dad said, "Do you want to go again?" I'm not about to say no. So
no, obviously. Do I want to go to WrestleMania? Okay.
But that we knew what was happening a year from now.
I guess
how that was all going to end. I mean, I was holding out hope here DiBiase would win this thing, but didn't happen.
We'll see how we'll see how everything plans out over the next year. What everything we go through to get to WrestleMania 5. But for now, guys, once again, thank you so much, Jammie Ward, for being a part of WrestleMania 4.
You're welcome, Ray.
All right, guys, Jammie Ward one more time on the program. Jamie, thank you once again so much for adding so many firsthand memories of WrestleMania 4 here to the program. But now it's time to move on to the final match of part 1 here of the WrestleMania 4 review. And in order to close out the show, we're going to bring in the closer as we prepare for the big grudge match between the Ultimate Warrior and the mighty Hercules. Right now, haven't had him on since Survivor Series 1987, and we did discuss way back then that maybe we'd bring him back for a part of WrestleMania 4, and here he is, as promised, my very own brother. Welcome back, Jesse hoping maybe he can share some of his WrestleMania 4 memories, first time he watched it, and of course cover the next match. Hey, brother, so good to have you back.
Hey, brother, thanks for having me, man. I'm always happy to come on and reminisce and talk some wrestling with you.
Well, we talked back at Survivor Series 87. We thought, we discussed, we hypothesized that perhaps we could have you back by WrestleMania 4, and here you are, and I am pumped to have you here because we shared a lot of wrestling memories growing up, and watching a lot of those old school WrestleManias was definitely one of them.
Well, absolutely, because back in the day, I didn't really have access to a vast library of VHS tapes, and thankfully, my local library had like WrestleManias, I want to say like 3 through 6 pretty regularly. So I have seen WrestleMania 4 several times in my childhood. I remember it was like two VHSs, man. It took up a lot of room in the old bedroom. But.
Yeah, you would open the tapes up, and Hulk Hogan's head would pop up. The original box, I mean, not the actual tapes you brought home, but yeah, you had the luxury of actually working at the library as a teenager. So you would call me constantly, dude, I got this week. I got this tape. I'm like, damn you. Like, I have to pay for mine. But yeah, you were watching WrestleManias and other things out the wazoo.
And sadly to say, a lot of those wrestling tapes never made it back to the library when I was working there.
I think I think we've passed the.
I think my fines were forgiven. So I'll put it that way.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, that's excellent, because libraries do that thing. Kids, go visit your local library today. Just make sure you return anything you check out. That's the story we're telling you. As we're gonna get going here in WrestleMania 4, smack dab in the middle of those 3 through 6s you were taking out there at your library, and I was renting it off and on. I had to cycle through all of the pay-per-views over and over until I had 2 VCRs and started to, maybe let's just say make my own copies, and we'll leave it there. Legal or not, I don't know. I guess we were both doing random things to just get our fix of pro wrestling as kids.
Yeah, I mean, any way I can get it. I used to love, back when I would just come over and Papa would take us up to that, whatever the name of that video store was up there on Clark or something. It was like 99 cents.
I know which one you're,
like 5, 6 tapes.
Yeah, the one that Wayne knew. Yeah, I know what you're going with. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that one.
Yeah, but like you said, man, any way we could get it. And then when the internet came out, that was a whole, not so much video, but yeah, just any way we could absorb the wrestling knowledge, man. I'm still, sort of like that. I go down rabbit holes all the time, just see something old on Peacock or the network, and before I know it, I'm Googling and reading all about things. So
it's fun to go back in this time period, and I hate to admit it, this was a very long time ago now, which actually puts our age out there. But we grew up during this time frame. We grew up during the Hulkamania era, and didn't get this WrestleMania live to watch, but I did go out and, like I said, rent it quite often. One of the many 4, 5, 6, 7, or no, actually I had 7 live. I take that one back. But, it's nice to go back and revisit things. This is not a WrestleMania that I often go back and revisit anymore because it's just so long and tedious with the tournament. And Rick Rude and Jake Roberts is on this show. Need I say more? You just got through that match. But we do have little hidden gems as well, not just like the Battle Royal with Bob Uecker, but that Hulk Hogan promo. How about that Hogan promo, brother?
Yeah, I mean, you want to listen to a bunch of incoherent nonsense, you guys have to watch this promo. I had to go back. I watched it 3 times. Usually I'll kind of walk out of the room or, promo comes on. Okay, time to go, refill my coffee cup or whatever beverage. But when you told me about this one, man, I had to go and watch this thing. It was almost as good as, it's not hot.
It's not hot. Right, yeah. Well, this was very reminiscent. This was like the beta version of his future promos he would cut with Brutus Beefcake leading into WrestleMania 9. Those were some doozies. You guys can go back on the grenade and check out, if you really want to, the 1993 era of the WWF here on the Grenade Show, and some of those Hogan Beefcake promos are on there, especially the March to WrestleMania 9 one, but this really channels that all the way back in 1988, talking about slamming Andre through Trump Plaza, dude, and the fault line from New York to Tampa, breaking half of the eastern seaboard off down into the Atlantic Ocean, brother, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, well, don't forget too. As Donald Trump's holding on to his family for dear life, and they begin to sink into the ocean. Thank God Donald Trump is a Hulkamaniac.
Thank God Donald Trump is that That didn't really stand the test of
It didn't
time.
make much sense, man.
No, none of it really.
We'll go with it.
But I'll tell you what, you know firsthand, I was never a Hulkamaniac. I was never a Hulk Hogan fan. It just never resonated with me. I tolerated him early on during that WrestleMania 1 run with Mr. T on the TV because Mr. T was cool. I was into Mr. T, and Hulk Hogan looked cool enough at the time. But as time progressed and I actually really watched the product week after week, it was just too much ad nauseum of Hulkamania for me. And we were Warrior fans growing up rather than Hulk Hogan. I don't know. You might have been, I don't want to speak for you. You might have been a Hogan fan as well, but I was not. But I got to say, this was the one promo as a kid that I just absolutely loved because it was so ridiculous. And then the backstroke, with the ocean backdrop behind him, it just worked perfectly as he backstrokes out of the screen. I just always loved that. Like, this was the one Hogan promo I would watch rather than fast forward growing up.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, the backstroke was pretty fluid. It was pretty cool to see. But yeah, I mean, in answer to your first, part of that, no, I wasn't a huge Hulk Hogan fan. It just so happened, Warrior was kind of coming up right around that same time, and so I don't have to tell you who I was rooting for at WrestleMania 6.
Right.
But I never, for some reason, I don't know. I kind of liked Royal Rumble '90. I wanted Mr. Perfect to throw Hogan out. I don't know. I was always kind of rooting against Hulk Hogan, not because I really hated him, just I really wasn't a huge Hulk Hogan fan.
Right. Yeah. I remember at WrestleMania 7 when he worked Slaughter in the main event, I could have just turned the TV off and been happy with the pay-per-view at that point. I mean, we already got the Warrior Savage match, which to me should have went on last. I know why it didn't. Championship match and Iraq versus USA and all that nonsense. But I mean, that was the match. The storytelling was masterful with Elizabeth coming back and everything like that. And we got that before intermission. And then you close the show with Hogan and Slaughter. And I was just done. I mean, Slaughter was well past his prime at that point. And Hogan was, just paint by numbers at that point as well. So didn't do a whole lot for me. And I just remember being just done with the pay-per-view all throughout that match, watching it originally live back in the day. But yeah, I mean, there were times, maybe in the late 80s, I didn't necessarily hate him or as much as I did later on, where I just couldn't stand even the sight of him on my screen, circa WCW.
92?
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. The Rumble 92 and where they did the fake crowd noise with the Sid. They turned Sid heel on the crowd noise instead of using the live version where everybody was popping for Sid and chanting Sid's name. But yeah, it's things like that, man. That'll help you turn on someone if you didn't already dislike him. I was not a Hogan fan, let's just say that, but I did enjoy that promo. And then we get to the Rick Rude, Jake Roberts match. And you said, you went and watched this a couple times, and obviously you watch sometimes at night or maybe when you're getting ready to take a nap and you doze off. And you said you dozed off earlier in the show, one of your watchings, and you woke up in time to watch Rude and Jake. I said, man, you picked the wrong match to wake up for. That's the one I would have slept on. I know half the crowd did anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of rest holds, so, I mean, I guess it makes sense to take a little rest during the match. But in all seriousness, I mean, I remember as a kid, I was like, whoa, Jake versus Rude.
Yeah.
That's probably, know, I'm not going to say, I remember WrestleMania 4 as it happened. I was still pretty young at that point. But I remember the first time I rented it from the library and took it home, I was like, man, I can't wait for Jake and Rude. That was definitely going to be one of the highlights.
Sure.
15 minutes, a lot of rest holds, battle of the mustaches. I'd have to give the nod to Jake on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Rude definitely the better physique, but I like Jake's mustache a little better.
Battle of the mustaches. I like that. Yeah. And I would give the slight nod to Jake Roberts there as well. But man, those guys, probably the top two mustaches. That's what we're discussing here, guys.
Agreed.
As we close. So I told you I was bringing in the closer for a reason. Battle of the mustaches. I love it. I didn't even hit that, in my notes. So I'm glad we got you on here to talk a little bit about that. But yeah, it was, as Dave Meltzer liked to call these back in the day, his cutesy name for WrestleMania was Rest Hold Mania. And that's definitely what Jake and Rude was, because as you said, on paper and as a visual on the screen, sign me up all day. Jake Roberts and Rick Rude, but that match just wasn't it. Luckily for us, we got the big feud upcoming over Cheryl Roberts. She's going to be on the tights of Rude very soon, and we'll have a lot of fun with all of that as we progress here in 1988. But for now, it was just a match, and it wasn't a very good one at that, I got to say. But we're going to move on here with the show, guys. All right, man, and away we go, straight to the next matchup. The Mighty Hercules announced, standing in the ring as we quickly jump to the Ultimate Warrior's music beginning to play. The Warrior Man running down ringside, jogging down those stairs, as it is time for the big grudge match. UW taking on Hercules with Bobby Heenan ringside. The Ultimate Warrior's first feud. How about that? His very first pay-per-view. And these two have been going at it for the last couple of months. A recent match between the two saw Hercules try to choke out the Warrior on TV, only for the Warrior to not only break the chokehold, but apparently snap the chain after freeing himself, breaking the steel chain to show off his incredible power, and thus stunning the mythological mortal with the supposed strength of a god. Hercules couldn't believe it. What had he just witnessed? And ever since then, Hercules been hot on the trail of trying to take the Warrior out. And tonight, it's just an old school gladiator style encounter between two of the strongest men in the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't two more ripped guys in the company, you know, outside of Hulk Hogan, but I'm just talking about like from top to bottom, man. You could see every muscle on these guys' body. It was ridiculous. And, you know, Warrior's still trying to find himself there, man. I don't know if I ever saw him donning the blue and white paint, you know, after this.
Right.
So I always, you know, recognize him right away, like on the old school WrestleMania cards or in a magazine. I'm like, oh, that's WrestleMania 4 right there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely, you know, a little toned down here. He hasn't really experimented with all the different colors and things as of this point. But I got to correct you a little bit here. You said they're the most defined wrestlers in the company, and you gotta mention.
We just talked about Rick Rude.
Well, I was gonna say we gotta mention Don Muraco and those hoses, dude. I mean, it doesn't get more vascular than that.
Thanks for correcting me on that one. How could I forget Don Muraco and his hoses, man?
And those hoses, dude. But, you know, here we go. This is pretty cool. You know, it's like the beginning of the Warriors story. He's been here a few months by this point, but this is really, truly the beginning where they kind of double down and say, all right, let's see what you got here. Based on what they do here, they're giving him a pretty good talent, mid-Carter at this point, and the mighty Hercules, but he was a quality worker for a guy his size. A lot of people give Hercules a lot of flack, and if you watch him near the end of his career here in the WWF, I can see why. But when Herc came to work, he could work, you know, and for his size, for being a quote-unquote muscle-bound guy at times, he put it out there, man. And I was a Hercules fan growing up, and I'll say it again, I say it every year, Hercules for the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I know I've told you this in the past, but it's been a while, Hercules, I always thought about our uncle, Pooch. I don't know why Hercules reminded me of him. I don't know if it was
same frame.
Facial expression.
Could be.
What it was, man.
You know, he did have the Hercules beard thing going on at one time. You know what really, it's funny you said that, because I will go along with you on that. I thought the same thing at times. It was probably the frame too, the body frame. But another thing that really killed me was in 1991, Hercules tried to get with the times, and he got those little lines cut into the sides of his hair there, you know, over where the sideburns would go or whatever. And right around that same time, right around the same time, our uncle, we call him Pooch, he got the same freaking thing going on. And I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, you just...
Oh, man, if you would have had the Hercules glasses, man, that would have just said it all.
I wish I had those Hercules. I want the Power and Glory glasses. That would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, man.
But nevertheless, these people are like, wow, you guys have like an uncle that kind of resembled Hercules. To some degree, I would have to go along with that. If he looked like a wrestler, I guess that's where I would go. It's definitely Hercules.
Yeah, in the walk for sure. The way he has to walk with his arms out because of his, broad shoulders.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's good stuff. But it's Warrior's first big match in the company's real first test here, and it's live on pay-per-view. So there's no second takes, pal. As the Warrior, he walks into here, he runs into here, and he's got, like you said, the powder blue trunks, the blue face paint, but he also has a headband, which I don't believe I've ever seen him wear before or again after this. But the Warrior rocking a WrestleMania, it doesn't say WrestleMania, but it's a headband for the big pay-per-view.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I can't say that I ever recall him wearing that again. Maybe later when he was in WCW with his whole, Warrior Nation, he wore all kinds of weird stuff. But yeah, man, in the WWF, definitely can't recall another time he did that.
Well, here we go, Warrior and Hercules, and these two have been going at it for a couple months now. A recent TV match between the two saw Hercules try and choke out the Warrior with that chain of his. Warrior, of course, breaking free, tugging at the chain, and according to Gorilla Monsoon and all of the babyface announcers, it was Warrior who snapped the chain, Jess. See, I can call you Jess, and it actually makes sense here on the show. But he snapped the chain that showed the strength of the Ultimate Warrior. And that leads us here to the match today. They've had their issues. Warrior chasing Hercules backstage, attacking him with his own chain. And we even saw, I believe Warrior worked Harley Race in between here as well. And kind of something similar. Hercules attacking with his chain again. And that time the Warrior running both Hercules and Harley out of the ring. And now it's time for the showdown.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get with these two guys, man. Expect a lot of physicality and stiff clotheslines. I'll just put it that way.
So the bell sounds. They're right into this one. As the match begins, the two men, they collide center ring with a couple of shoulder tackles, and neither man budges as they go nose to nose in an awesome camera shot. I stole this camera shot. It's actually going to be the picture I'm using for the first part of WrestleMania, the podcast review. You guys will see this, but it's a cool shot of two of the Herculean, no pun intended there, Herc, but two of the top stars, two of the big monsters in the WWF going face to face, and it was just great visual for the time.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. A lot of, like I said, stiff work going on by both men. Warrior with as Gorilla called them, knife edge chops. I just call them, or knife edge. I can't remember what he called them, but anyway, I just called them chops right in the corner. But yeah, man, a lot of stiff work, clotheslines, a lot of punching, a lot of ramming heads into things on the outside of the ring. Not a lot of technical wrestling going on, but that's what you come to expect, and it kind of just brought some something different to the show. These two guys squaring off. I liked it. I mean, it wasn't the best match of all time by any means, but they kept it nice and short, so it wasn't a snooze fest. Well,
needless to say, Hercules had to lead this match. He kind of had to give Warrior the orders as to what we're going to do here. And of course, they go center ring collide, as you would do with two guys this size, nobody budging. So they actually go into a wrestling hold, the collar and elbow tie-up to begin things here. Warrior going to back Hercules into the corner as I think that's Dave Hebner back. Gets in between to separate the two, and Hercules laying in a cheap shot across the Warrior's head. But it only pisses the Warrior man off, who unloads with, as you said, a series of shots and then a bunch of chops, just lots of dangerous chops, just throwing them all over the place. Poor Hercules here. But the Warrior going to try for a clothesline, but Hercules ducks. And then Hercules delivering not one, not two, but three Herculean clotheslines to take the Warrior down, which, first off, awesome third clothesline. We talked about that off air. The clothesline from Hercules here. Badass clothesline. Hercules taking the Warrior down on the third one. But second off, Jesse Ventura notes here, he says, it took three clotheslines to drop the Warrior. A normal mortal would go down to half of a Hercules clothesline. So really trying to get over the Warrior's power here.
Well, I think a normal-sized man is probably going to go down when they see the first one coming. I don't even know if it'll take a half a clothesline.
Yeah, beat the clothesline to the mat. That's the smart way to go. As the action continues here, Hercules looking for a second clothesline, but Warrior going to fire first, delivering his version of the clothesline, taking Hercules down with just one blow. And then it's lots more random chopping by the Warrior before Hercules ducking a charge and backdropping the Ultimate One out to the floor. Hercules going to follow him outside for a brief brawl, and then back in the ring, Herc in control with a series of jabs and a back elbow to the jaw of UW. Warrior going to rebound, though, with a series of shots of his own, and right into the 10 punches of doom in the corner. And I wrote, Warrior clearly lost here, and I think I talked to you about that, too, before you watched it. I said, go check this out. Warrior doesn't seem to know what he's doing. Like, he's supposed to be making the comeback without doing his big Hulk up, right? I don't even know if he's been doing that yet. So he just kind of follows Hercules around, trying to grab hold of him, not really sure what to do. Hercules winds up in a corner, and Warrior's just kind of like, oh, okay, let's just do the 10-punch gimmick. And that's the way it feels. Very awkward middle of the match here.
Yeah, and that's a good call, man. I don't know when Warrior started doing his official shaking the ropes comeback, but yeah, it was kind of awkward looking. Hercules had punched him into the ropes and then started to actually turn around. And then Warrior comes bouncing off the ropes. Obviously, Hercules wasn't ready for it, and it looks awkward because Warrior hits him with the forearm to the back of the neck, and Hercules is like, what the hell's going on? And like you said, it turns up in the corner for the 10-punch. But, hey, man, like I said, Warrior's still kind of finding his groove, and I don't know that he ever truly found it, but he's still working on things.
He becomes the champion, so he found something. But I wrote just a weird comeback here because, like you said, we're accustomed to the Ultimate Warrior comeback. the shaking of the ropes, the jogging in place, and everything that goes with it. And here, and I got to give the WWF company credit here. They're not going straight for the kill, straight for the throat. They clearly want something with this Warrior guy, but they see he's not a total package just yet to where they want him to be. And so instead of making those big comebacks and the press slams and the splashes on some of these mid-carders, upper mid-card guys, he's going over in relative, regular wrestling fashion. We'll discuss the finish here in just a minute, but most recently he pinned Harley Race with a rolling cradle. You don't see that from the Warrior, probably never again in his entire career. But that was Harley Race, who I hate to say it, but at this point he was expendable. You could have beat him any way you wanted to with the Warrior here, but instead it's just a rolling cradle. And so the Warrior not really going over on people definitively just yet. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second when we get to the finish of the match. But it continues on. Like I said, weird comeback here by the Warrior as Hercules going to escape the corner with an inverted atomic drop. And down goes the face-painted one. But Herc then going to go for an Irish whip into the opposite corner, but Warrior reversing the whip and charging in on Hercules, but missing the mighty one, and Warrior hitting the turnbuckle hard. Hercules then laying in wait, standing behind the Warrior, and then locking in his patented full Nelson, a move he started using shortly before WrestleMania 3 to feud with the full Nelson master at the time, Billy Jack Haynes. Hercules continued to use the full Nelson until maybe a month or two prior to this WrestleMania. He went back to his torture rack backbreaker, which was badass. I always loved it. But for some reason here, no torture rack. It's the full Nelson. Going back in time here, the Hercules locking it on, but he doesn't have the fingers locked, Jess.
That makes a huge difference, man. If you don't have those fingers locked, you can't make someone submit, right? So.
Well, if we never knew it before, anytime we watched Gorilla Monsoon commentate a match that involved a full Nelson, we knew it then. So, and we do get that obligatory comment here by Gorilla Monsoon, but are the fingers locked? And we find out maybe they are. No, they are not, says Gorilla Monsoon. You'd think Hercules would have learned by now after his issues with Billy Jack Haynes to lock those fingers, as the Warrior, though, going to use his feet to kick off the top turnbuckle, sending both men backwards to the mat. Hercules releasing the full Nelson and kind of trying to turn it into a bridging back suplex of sorts. Going to get the 1, the 2, and the 3. Match goes 4 minutes and 36 seconds as the Brain and Hercules celebrate. But Dave Hebner explains that the Warrior apparently got his shoulder up. So the winner of the match is actually the Ultimate Warrior, getting his first win here on pay-per-view over the mighty Hercules.
Yeah, so as Vince McMahon would have liked to have said, unceremoniously, Warrior picks up the win with that one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how often, those sort of finishes occurred, but, I hadn't seen many like that growing up. That was definitely one of the first. But
that was before they did it to death.
Yeah. Warrior wasn't crushing people at the time, so at least, he did pick up the win. And then, of course, the post-match, which I'm sure we're going to discuss briefly. But,
right.
Yeah, man, all in all, like I said, they kept it the right length. Any longer probably would have seemed to have dragged on a little too much. But, Warrior picks up the big win.
I'm sitting here right now staring at the time of this match, 4 minutes and 36 seconds, and it has a major significance to me. Do you know what that is?
4:36.
Just the time of this match. Doesn't matter what the time is. Do you know what? Do you remember the significance?
Was that the answer to one of your Outthink the Fink questions?
Well, yes and no. I always told you, because I would call into Radio WWF, but we've talked about my struggle with the rotary phone, so I just got in whenever I got in. I couldn't really plan to get in at a certain time. But every, several weeks I would get in for Outthink the Fink, but I told you one week, I said, man, I'd already been calling the show and getting on the show, but I had never gotten to Outthink the Fink at that point. When I told you, I said, if I ever get on there, you said, oh, what would your question be? And I said, I know the Fink can't answer this. I'm going to ask him, how long was the match between the Warrior and Hercules at WrestleMania IV? And you were like, oh, how long was it?
Okay.
And I said 4 minutes and 36 seconds. And you said, oh, okay. And then the very next week, I'm listening to Radio WWF, and wouldn't you know it, this guy by the name of Jay from Cleveland makes his Radio WWF debut during Outthink the Fink. And do you know what his question was? It was, how long was the Ultimate Warrior Hercules match at WrestleMania IV? You have no idea how pissed off I was on the other side of that radio. What is he doing? Taking my question. That was my big question, And you got on radio WWF as Jay from Cleveland, and you stole my Outthink the Fink question, and you won your very first Outthink the Fink T-shirt, soon to be a collector's item.
Yeah, I would look at it more like your question made the air. It was kind of like not stealing your question as much as it was. I wanted to make sure that the Fink got that question, and who knows if you would have ever been able to ask that or not. So, yeah, apologies for that, brother. I do remember some of my other questions. I don't remember that being my first one, though, man. So apologies if you felt that way.
It threw me off because it was Jay from Cleveland, and I'm like, who the fuck's, Jay from Cleveland? And then I hear your voice, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's my brother. And then you asked the exact question.
Pseudonym, like every time, I never use my real name.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you were just trying to be cool, man. Trying to invent your own personality there for the program. But it was It was crazy because I was like, that's my fucking question. Oh, I was like fuming on the other end of that. But I guess what you're saying is you owe me an Outthink the Fink T-shirt. So, yeah.
And I do still have one in circulation, man. I wear it occasionally.
That's
I don't know how it's held up after, 30 plus years, but
right.
I do still have one around.
Yeah, it's been about 30 years to the day. Really? Wow, that's crazy. Oh my God.
It is, man.
I have one too. I don't know where my other ones went to, but I do have one I keep in my closet. I don't think I could fit into it anymore. I certainly can't wear it, but I don't want to do any damage to it. So I just kind of leave it in there and good memories, great memories of a time gone by. But I just thought that was a funny story involving the Hercules Warrior match. But the match is over. Warrior gets the win with putting his shoulder up, so not super definitive, but he does get the win nevertheless, so he is undefeated here on pay-per-view. As an upset Hercules attacks the Warrior after the match, and we saw this last year with Billy Jack Haynes. Remember Hercules coming in, blasting him with the chain, busting Billy Jack wide open post-match. Well, Hercules going to do it again here with the Warrior, minus the blood, wrapping the chain once again around the neck of the Ultimate Warrior, trying to choke him out. But Warrior going to break free one more time, snatching the chain and then swinging it over his head wildly. I mean, that chain, I don't know how long that chain is, but it's the circumference of the ring, at least a 20-foot chain here, swinging it around, and Hercules and Bobby Heenan wisely bailing out of this one.
Yeah, and the way he was swinging it, too, was kind of the way like John Cena would lift the steel steps. I mean, it just seemed like either the chain really was that heavy, or he did a good job making it feel like it, makes you think
I don't see the Warrior
the
really
swinging it. It just looked like that's a heavy ass chain.
I mean, hey, we were huge Warrior fans, but I just don't see the Warrior having the knowledge to, I got to make this thing look heavier than it is. I mean, that looked like a serious steel chain, but at the same time, it was a good 20. I mean, okay, he was in the middle of the ring, so it was a good 12 feet. He was swinging at least. I mean, even if it wasn't the heaviest chain on earth, that's a lot of work. And I mean, I just remember always thinking, even as a kid, what happens if, he accidentally lets go and it flies into the crowd like lawsuit mania? But yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
The ascension begins. The Ultimate Warrior begins his climb, and that's going to continue through the summer. And we'll see what happens at SummerSlam. Big things coming for the Ultimate one later in 1988. But what a great time in wrestling history for us as Warrior fans. It really begins here at WrestleMania 4.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of like the beginning of his rise. I won't give anything away for summertime, but, make sure you guys are tuning in to find out what happens later this year. Yeah, I mean, it was a good 4.5 minutes of powerhouse wrestling, like you would expect. Warrior pulls off the win. Can't wait to see what happens next.
I think I would have liked to seen a little more wrestling moves in there. Given the time that they were, 4.5 minutes, just a lot of chopping by the Warrior here, really. But I mean, that's what happens when the guy doesn't really know what he's doing out there yet. He's not yet ready for prime time, perhaps, or maybe he was if he could be coached by the right person. And that's not really a knock on Hercules. It's just, what are you going to do? You guys got 4.5 minutes. Go out there and get over, and then straight into the finish. But it was okay for what it was. It wasn't exactly a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but it was short, like you said, so it was harmless. As Warrior begins that ascension, like I said, and we'll have more on the Warrior as 1988 progresses here on the Grenade. And right now on WrestleMania 4, they head off to a WrestleMania 4 merchandise sale. You guys will see this on the original live version, not on the Peacock. But Mean Gene and a lady friend named Linda here showing off special WrestleMania 4 souvenirs. You can get your very own WrestleMania 4 t-shirt for $13. Not bad. You can get your own WrestleMania hat for $10, Jesse, and a key tag, which reads WrestleMania 4 on it for $4. You want a key tag?
Sure.
I thought that was
key tag.
I thought that was such an odd.
Or is it,
it just says WrestleMania 4. It looks like a ticket, almost like a ticket you would buy to purchase to come into the event. But it was kind of a weird choice. I never really seen them sell a key tag before. It was kind of odd. Just stick it on your keys and away you go. And of course, the $5 program, which I'm sure goes for a lot more than that on eBay today.
Yeah, I probably would have been a sucker for the hat. I've always liked to wear my baseball hat.
Right.
The program, I couldn't even imagine. Knowing what a 1996 SummerSlam program went for, I can only imagine what a WrestleMania 4 one's going for.
Yeah, a little more rare with the 96s, but yeah, I did get a chunk of change for that off eBay, I'll say that. But yeah, look at this. You can get the t-shirt, the hat, the key tag, and the program. Buy them all together for $30, so you save $2. How kind of Vince McMahon there. But just send your check and no, there's probably shipping involved. I didn't write that down in my notes, but you send your check or money order in an envelope to a P.O. box up in probably Stamford, Connecticut, I'm guessing here. And the kicker is you just send it. You tell them what you want in it. You just write on a piece of paper, boy. Talk about old times.
Yeah.
I don't know how safe that sounds.
We don't do it like that anymore.
No, definitely not. But at this point in the program, the pay-per-view, it's off to a 10-minute intermission on the screen. And I won't let you guys sit here with dead air for 10 minutes. So we'll fast forward through that intermission, come out on the other side here as we end this week's episode of The Grenade Show and end part 1 of WrestleMania 4. Amazing commentary so far, and we're only halfway through the event. So many memorable lines from Gorilla, Jesse Ventura, Bob Uecker. Honestly, sound bites of our youth all throughout this pay-per-view. I might say this pay-per-view, WrestleMania 4, may have more sound bites that we can recall more than any other pay-per-view.
I mean, yeah, there were a lot, especially the Bob Uecker ones, man. I can't wait to go, when you post this show, this part 1 here, I can't wait to go back and listen to, everything that led up to the end where I came on, man, because I want to hear, some of those sound bites and what you guys had to say about that.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Yeah, there are plenty of sound bites in the Battle Royal section. Gene Jackson joined the show for that one. We had a fun time going over the Battle Royal and Bob Uecker. And Bob's not done yet. He's going to continue to interview some of the heels backstage throughout the event, including, yes, that infamous interview with Andre the Giant. Hey, do you mind getting your foot off my shoulder? And the choke of doom. I always love that. I mean, it made it everywhere, right? That little video clip.
I think everyone knows that choke. That was awesome, man. That's definitely one of the things I think of, too, when you talk about WrestleMania 4. Because there's some matches, and I'll be honest, there's some matches when I went back and watched this thing, I was like, oh, yeah, that happened. But no one, including myself, has forgotten that interview, man.
No, definitely. It's one of the most famous of all time, and it's with a non-wrestling personality. Bob Uecker, we talked about this a lot in the Battle Royal. He just got it. He wasn't some gigantic, wrestling fan historian from decades gone by. He just came in and he got it. And I don't, some guys get wrestling. Okay, he got it. But he gets it just entertainment value-wise. He's the, Honky Tonk Man likes to say he's the total entertainment package, but I think that was Bob Uecker. I said it with Gene that, Bob could have got fired from the MLB tomorrow calling games, and he could have easily made another job in comedy or professional wrestling proven here. He could have easily just slid right in and worked with Bobby Heenan or Mean Gene on the weekly.
Yeah, I mean, he was a consummate professional and entertainer through and through. I think he could have transitioned right over if need be. I would have been cool with that.
Yeah, think about how many...
know the product.
Right. Well, think about how many people that they've hired for a guest ring announcer, and that's what they came in and did. They got in the ring and they said, whether it was Donnie Wahlberg, Mr. Perfect, or, Burt Reynolds calling, the yeah. Roddy Piper, or things like that. But here we go. Bob Uecker, they realized what they had. He was doing weekly vignettes, comedy vignettes with various wrestling stars, building up WrestleMania on TV every week. He gets here. He does the Battle Royal for, as a commentator, and then he leaves and he does a ton of backstage interviews with the heels. And then, eventually he will be the guest ring announcer for the main event. So it was like he was here all night. And that was really a great thing because I just wish they had kept Bob around and brought him back more often.
Yeah, and has anyone told Vanna White that he's looking for her?
I'm telling you, that's going to continue on that story. That was the only thing that I didn't really need in my life, but it always killed me, growing up when he, how he fawned over the fabulous Moolah at WrestleMania 3, because even as a kid, I was like, Is he seeing the same person I'm saying? I'm going to go see the fabulous Moolah, and then they kind of give him some retribution here this year. He's like, oh, I got new contacts in. You guys fooled me last year with Moolah. You're not getting me twice. It's like, I'm going for Vanna.
Yeah.
But it was good stuff.
I love, too. I know, we kind of blew past it because you can't cover like all the backstage goings on, but there was a little brief Vanna White backstage thing where she was picking her second round, selections, who to win. Yeah. And, Gene starts off with, hey, I think, Bob Uecker's looking for you. And she's like, who? Right.
Oh, he's going to love that.
Nice touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the story here. As we'll continue on. Dun dun dun. It's like Leslie Nielsen at that SummerSlam trying to figure out the case of the two Undertakers. Now we're Bob Uecker's trying to find Vanna White. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize she's been in the tournament bracket area the entire night, so it would have been pretty easy had he just been in the right place. But we'll see if he ever finds Vanna. I'm sure he will by the main event of WrestleMania 4, but that's going to continue on to part 2 here of the WrestleMania 4 review on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Jesse, we're going to wrap this week's up, but I appreciate you coming on and spending some time talking about some old memories, going back and renting the tape. And of course, I had to share the radio WWF story with everyone. We got the Hercules story with my Uncle Pooch. That was kind of interesting. And then, everything goes on here. Just Warrior and Hercules, fun little match for what it was. And Warrior's story begins. And we're happy as fans growing up. We were giant Warrior fans, so that's a pretty big deal. But as we continue, guys, the quarterfinals, the semis, the finals still around the corner. 6-man tag team action. Bobby Heenan got to get in the ring. So a whole lot still to come here in part 2. But for now, it's the end of part 1. And Jesse, I appreciate you so much for coming on and spending a half hour with me.
Yeah, man, had a great time. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure, man. Anytime I can get on here and shoot the breeze and talk old school wrestling, man. I love it.
Well, maybe we'll bring you back on down the line again for SummerSlam, and if time does not permit, if the everything doesn't align properly, we'll definitely get you back by hopefully Survivor Series again, because once again, right back here with the Richfield Coliseum and one of our most favorite matches of all time, the 20-man tag.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites for sure. I mean, that I won't even start talking about it now, or else I'm going to go on and on for 10 minutes. But yeah. Definitely, 87s was cool, but 88 I've probably watched at least 100 times in my lifetime.
Yeah, they perfected it. I always say that 87s was fine, but 88 they perfected it. I'm looking forward to that when we get there, but we got a long way to go. Lots of big things coming up as we head into the spring of 1988. And don't miss it, guys. Next week, it's part 2 of the WrestleMania 4 review. Jesse, thank you once again.
Anytime, man. Thank you so much.
All right, got to thank my brother one more time, Jesse, for joining the show, reliving some memories of our youth growing up. The Warrior, one of our favorite wrestlers back in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s there in his first run with the company. Hey, don't judge. We were kids and we loved him and we were glued to the set every time the Warrior came out there for action. And it truly all started here with the mighty Hercules, his very first feud, his very first true test of strength, if you will. And the Warrior makes it past Hercules, and we know what's only upward from here. But that's going to wrap it up here this week, and I knew it was going to be a doozy, a hell of a show. Want to thank everybody for staying tuned all throughout. Hope all the guests kept you guys interested in between. Want to thank Jammie Ward, Gene Jackson, and of course, my brother Jesse one more time for being a part of part 1 of the WrestleMania 4 review. When we return next week, WrestleMania 4 continues. We're going to kick off the quarterfinals of the championship tournament. Hulk Hogan meets Andre the Giant. Of course, we're also going to get the semifinals and finals of the event, going to crown a brand new WWF champion right here next week. A new era begins in the World Wrestling Federation next week here on the Grenade. Plus 6-man tag team action, Islanders and Bobby Heenan. What's a surprise as they take on the Birdman, Coco Beware, and the British Bulldogs? And don't forget, it's the return of Matilda, guys. She'll be at ringside for the big 6-man encounter. WWF Tag Team Champions Strikeforce defend their titles against Axe and Smash of Demolition, as well as Brutus the Barber Beefcake, challenging the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title. All of that going down next week as the WrestleMania 4 review continues here on the Grenade. Now, as for this week, just want to remind everybody to stop over to WrestleCopia.com. Check out all of the great shows here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Also, be sure to follow me on social media. Follow me on X at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, Follow and like me, facebook.com/wrestling grenade. Subscribe to youtube.com/wrestling grenade. And hey guys, lots of great stuff over there for the $5 all access tier at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. And of all those gifts, some bonus video casts coming very soon, very timely to this WrestleMania 4 review. You do not want to miss those. But for now, we're going to close up shop. A lengthy episode this week, so once again, want to thank everyone for sticking through it. Hope you guys really enjoyed the breakdown, kind of our definitive edition of WrestleMania 4 here this year. Part 1 in the books, Part 2 right around the corner. But for now, this is Ray Russell saying, from pillar to post and coast to coast, you pull the pin, and I'll pick up the pieces right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. I'll see you next week. Don't miss it. Be there!
That when I get Andre the Giant cinched up in the launch position, when I slam him through the Trump Plaza, brother, from New York down to Tampa, Florida, the fault line is going to break off. And as Andre the Giant falls into the ocean, as my next two opponents fall to the ocean floor and I pin them, so will Donald Trump and all the Hulkamaniacs. Thank God Donald Trump's a Hulkamaniac. He'll know enough to let go of his materialistic possessions, hang on to the wife and kids, dog paddle with his life all the way to safety. But Donald, if something happens, you run out of gas, and all those little Hulkamaniacs run out of gas, just hang on to the largest back in the world, and I'll dog paddle us, backstroke all of us to safety.